First thing Monday morning, a student said, "We appreciate you being here, Mr. Peterson, but shouldn't you have taken today off?" What kind of question is that? I looked up from my attendance sheet, genuinely confused. Marcus, who usually burst through the door 30 seconds before the bell, was standing frozen by his desk. The entire classroom had gone eerily silent when I'd walked in. Kids who were usually comparing homework answers or scrolling through their phones suddenly stopped mid-motion. Everyone was stealing glances at me, but whenever I made eye contact, they'd quickly look away. Sarah, usually the first to answer everything, was slumped forward with her face hidden in her arms. Even the boys in the back row, who never stopped joking around, were dead serious. The whole room felt wrong. I haven't missed a day in 5 years, I said, trying to lighten whatever strange mood had taken over my classroom. Why would today be different? Marcus shifted uncomfortably and cleared his throat. "Mr. P, I really think you should check your phone. Or maybe you should go to the main office. Like, right now." My heart started racing because something was seriously wrong. Whatever this was, my students were looking at me like I was about to get the worst news of my life. I reached for my phone in my jacket pocket but remembered I'd left it in my car after rushing in late from stopping for coffee. I'd overslept after staying up grading essays until 2 a.m. "Can someone please tell me what's going on?" I asked, hearing my voice crack slightly. The silence was deafening. Even Kevin, who never stopped talking, was staring at his desk. Finally, Ashley from the second row spoke up, her voice barely a whisper. "Mr. Peterson, did you not check the news this morning?" "No, I overslept. I barely made it here on time." My hands were starting to shake now. "What happened?" Ashley exchanged looks with Marcus, who shook his head violently, but she continued anyway. "Maybe you should call someone. Your family? Family. My parents." My mind immediately went to them. Mom's dementia had gotten so much worse over the past year. Dad had been her sole caregiver, refusing help, insisting he could manage. Last week when I visited, Mom didn't recognize me for the entire visit. She'd called me by my uncle's name, asked when her mother was coming to pick her up. Her mother who'd been dead for 30 years. Dad had looked so tired, so utterly defeated, aging 10 years in the span of 10 months. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. "Everyone just start reading chapter 12. I'll be right back." The hallway felt impossibly long as I jogged to the parking lot. My hands fumbled with my phone as I turned it on. The screen lit up with notifications. 17 missed calls from my brother David, 3 from my Aunt Linda, 5 from unknown numbers. Text messages flooded in. The most recent from David just said, "Call me now." I called him back, my fingers trembling so badly I could barely hit his contact. He answered before the first ring finished. "Jesus Christ, where have you been?" His voice was raw, like he'd been screaming or crying or both. "At school." "David, what's happening?" I asked, but he just kept talking. "Get to Mom and Dad's house right now, please." His voice cracked, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. I don't remember the drive. I just remember pulling onto their street and seeing the police cars. 3 of them, lights off but still parked at angles like they'd arrived in a hurry. Yellow tape across the front door. Neighbors standing in clusters on their lawns. David caught me rushing toward the door. "Don't, they're not. It's a crime scene now." "Crime scene? What happened? Where are they?" "They left at sunrise." Mrs. Chen saw them walking toward Riverside Park. She said Mom was lucid, talking clearly, holding Dad's hand. My knees were buckling. "Where are they now?" "The train tracks. They chose the morning freight. Together." A detective emerged from the house carrying evidence bags. The notes were on the kitchen table. "Your mother wrote hers yesterday during what your father described as her last clear day." I read them through the plastic. Mom's elegant script. "I know what's coming. I've seen what this disease does. Yesterday, I remembered your faces, your names, your father's love. Today might be the last day I do. We choose this moment while I'm still me." Dad was on his letterhead from his retired law practice. 46 years ago, I promised to love her in sickness and health. I keep my promises. The 5:47 freight is never late. She was herself this morning, my Margaret, telling me about our first date. The engineer said they were holding hands, the detective said softly. Said they were facing each other, foreheads touching, like they were having a private conversation. He tried to stop, but it was at the Trestle Bridge, David whispered, their favorite spot, where Dad proposed.
While I was using the toilet. At school, a girl in the next stall asked, "Can you hop over in here? I need extra hands." "Yeah, I don't think so." I wasn't about to climb into a bathroom stall with a freak. "No, please, I think I might bleed out." Her voice was shaking, and suddenly this wasn't funny anymore. It was Summer from my English class, the pregnant senior who everyone whispered about but nobody really talked to. She was sitting on the toilet gripping the handicap rail with white knuckles, and her face was covered in sweat. "What's wrong?" I asked, even though I was starting to guess. "Please do something. I'm giving birth." She looked up at me with pure terror in her eyes. My whole body went cold. I was 17 and barely knew how tampons worked, let alone babies. But she was crying and alone, and I couldn't just leave her there. I hopped over the stall divider awkwardly and almost slipped on the wet floor. That's when I saw it. The baby was already crowning. There was blood on the toilet seat and the floor, and Summer was making these low groaning sounds that scared me more than anything. This was actually happening in a gross school bathroom with fluorescent lights and graffiti on the walls. "I'll be right back." I ran out of the bathroom still in shock. I sprinted down the hallway to Mrs. Bashar's classroom. She was my favorite teacher and the only adult I could think of who wouldn't freak out. I burst through her door, interrupting her lecture on photosynthesis. The whole class stared at me. "I need your help urgently, please." I was out of breath and probably looked insane. Mrs. Bashar took one look at my face and followed me without asking questions. We ran back to the bathroom and I could hear Summer's sounds getting louder. Other kids were starting to peek out of classrooms wondering what was happening. Mrs. Bashar pushed open the stall door and immediately went into teacher mode. "Okay, honey, I'm here. You're doing great. I'm going to support you while she gets the nurse." I didn't need to be told twice. I ran to the nurse's office faster than I'd ever run in PE. When I burst through the door, Nurse Patty was checking Casey's temperature. Casey, who everyone knew was Summer's boyfriend, the guy who'd been bragging about becoming a dad at prom. "Summer's having her baby in the bathroom right now." I basically screamed it. Casey's face went from white to green. He threw up all over the floor before Nurse Patty could grab a trash can, but we didn't have time to deal with that. The 3 of us ran back to the bathroom with Nurse Patty grabbing emergency supplies from her cabinet. By now, half the school had heard something was happening. Kids were crowding outside the bathroom doors trying to figure out what all the screaming was about. Teachers were trying to move them back to class, but nobody was listening. When we got back to the stall, it was chaos. Mrs. Bashar was holding Summer's hand while she pushed. The nurse immediately took took over, checking how dilated she was and telling Summer to breathe. Casey stood frozen in the doorway, looking like he might pass out. That's when Summer grabbed my hand and pulled me close. "You have to get my boyfriend out of here. I can't tell him the baby isn't his. He won't like what he'll see." My cooter dropped. This was so much worse than I thought. But before I could process what she'd said, the nurse started chanting for her to push. And then the weirdest thing happened. All the kids crowding outside started chanting too. Push, push, push. Like this was some kind of twisted pep rally. I tried to get Casey to leave, saying he looked sick and should get air, but he wouldn't budge. He kept saying he needed to be there for his kid. His kid. I felt sick knowing what was about to happen. The baby came fast after that. One final scream from Summer and then a different kind of cry filled the bathroom. A tiny baby cry that made everyone go silent. Even the kids outside stopped chanting. Nurse Patty wrapped the baby in paper towels since that's all we had. She handed the bundle to Summer, who was crying and shaking. And that's when everyone saw it. The baby was beautiful and perfect, but definitely black.
When did you find out your parents wanted you to die? The grocery store security footage showed my face hitting the floor. Blood pooled around my head where I cracked it on the tile. When I woke up in the hospital, I immediately threw up blood. "You're literally starving to death," the doctor told me. I tried to sit up, but the room spun violently. "I need to get back to work. Rent is due tomorrow." She pushed me back down. "You're 16 years old and you weigh 80 pounds. That can't be right. When did you last eat a meal?" 3 days ago, I think." She looked horrified. "Where are your parents right now?" "In the basement playing their online game like always. They don't know you're dying. They told me not to bother them unless someone is dead." "You almost were dead." "Almost doesn't count, according to them." She glanced at my chart. "You work 2 jobs and go to school?" "I work at 4 in the morning delivering newspapers, then I go to school, then I work at the grocery store until midnight." "That's physically impossible. Red Bull and gas station pills make it possible." "You're taking stimulants?" "I have to pay rent or we get evicted." "Your parents don't have jobs?" "They quit 2 years ago to become professional gamers." "Are they making money from gaming?" I laughed. "They've made exactly $0, but they keep saying fame is coming any day now." "How much sleep are you getting?" My thoughts kept slipping away like water through my fingers. 3 hours on a good night, but usually less. "Do you ever feel dizzy or confused?" "Every single day, but I can push through it." She stared at me in disbelief. "Your parents make you work while they stay home gaming all day?" "They're trying to build their streaming career. They need my support." She examined my arms, which looked like twigs. "You're 40 pounds underweight because you're feeding them instead of yourself. You don't understand. They should be able to follow their dreams after the sacrifices they made for me." My manager Jimmy had been sitting in the corner listening. He finally spoke up, looking sick with guilt. "I should have said something sooner. This kid has been falling apart for months. He has been seeing things at work that aren't real." The doctor turned to him quickly. "What kind of things?" "Yesterday he was having full conversations with nobody for 20 minutes straight." I felt my face get hot. "Sometimes when I'm really tired I see shadows that aren't there." "That's your brain literally shutting down from exhaustion." Jimmy looked broken. "And last week I found him unconscious in the freezer. He had been in there for 40 minutes and had blue lips. I was just resting my eyes." "You could have died, but I didn't, so it's fine." The doctor checked my blood work again. "Your body is failing and you're still defending them. They're my parents. I owe them everything. You don't owe them your life. Without me, they'll be homeless. Without them, you'd be healthy." The doctor called Child Protective Services and a social worker arrived within an hour. They tried calling my parents 23 times before anyone answered. The doctor put them on speaker so the social worker could record everything. I could hear battle sounds and screaming from their game in the background. "This better be important because you just made us lose a ranked match." The doctor spoke calmly. "This is the hospital calling about your son who collapsed at work. What does that lazy piece of garbage want now?" "He's in critical condition from severe malnutrition." My dad exploded. "Of course, I should have just let him die when he was born instead of wasting 16 years feeding him." Everyone in the room froze. "Your son is hospitalized with severe exhaustion and malnutrition," the doctor said carefully. "That lazy waste of space better not miss his shift tomorrow or we'll all be homeless." My mom grabbed the phone next. "He has to give us $800 by tomorrow or I'm selling everything he owns." The doctor's voice got ice cold. "Your child's organs are failing from working to support you. Stop making excuses for that pathetic failure because he can't handle a simple job." Then my dad said something that made the nurse leave the room crying. "If he dies, at least we will get his last paycheck and life insurance money." My mom added, "We could probably sue the grocery store for millions if he dies on the job." The social worker started shaking with rage. "You just admitted to wanting your child dead for money. So what? We spent thousands raising him. We deserve to get paid back somehow." Jimmy looked at the social worker with tears streaming down his face. "This kid is coming home with me and my wife right now." I panicked thinking about what would happen to them. "They'll lose the house without my money and end up on the streets. They're grown adults who can get jobs like everyone else in the world, but they're my parents and I'm supposed to help them. Parents are supposed to protect their children, not use them as slaves." The social worker started emergency paperwork immediately while I cried. "You're never going back to those monsters again, no matter what." Now that I live with Jimmy, I sleep 8 hours every night and eat 3 meals a day. My parents lost their house and live in a tent behind the library. "What's the most embarrassing thing your wife caught you doing?" "Oh yeah, you like that?" I yelled into my headset microphone. "Beg daddy for more," I added. Just my wife busted through my door. "Gotcha," my wife shouted. Dozens of people poured into the room, glaring at me. My parents, her parents, my best friend, and even a lawyer were all there to witness the greatest misunderstanding of all time. So, I told my wife I needed to focus for 2 hours because I had an important commitment with friends. I locked my office door and put a cute little "Do Not Disrupt" sign on the outside. My wife ended up walking by and hearing me through the door growling, "Yeah, baby, just like that. That's exactly what I've been asking for." She froze and pressed her ear against the door. "Oh, Adam, you're so good at this," a high-pitched feminine voice said, giggling. "Are you staying on all night? I need you." My wife's hands started shaking. Her heart pounded. She heard me laugh and say something about getting dirty and going all night. She stumbled to our bedroom and sat on the bed staring at nothing. When I came out 2 hours later, I kissed her goodnight like nothing happened, not realizing that my wife was already brewing up a plan on how she'd end me. My wife started sitting beside my locked door, secretly recording all of the suspicious sessions on her phone. She caught the female voice taunting, "Adam, is that the best you can do?" And me responding with, "I'm gonna destroy you so hard." "Yes, daddy," the female giggled. My wife even managed to record me saying, "I spent $500 on her last night and I'd do it again. She's perfect. She's everything I wanted." With all the male voices congratulating me, my wife was understandably furious, showing the recordings to her sister. "That's definitely a woman," her sister said, "and she sounds young." "Oh my god, is your husband? Is he having an affair? They went to a divorce lawyer the next day. He listened to the recordings and nodded grimly. Get video evidence, he said. Get witnesses. We'll bury him in court. My wife assembled what she called the intervention team. Both sets of parents. My best friend, who she convinced would be saving me from myself. The lawyer with his phone ready to record. Her sister with her phone as backup. Even our neighbor who was just happy to be a part of something fun. We'll catch him mid-affair, my wife said with rage in her eyes. And she did catch me doing something. Just not what she was expecting. So that night during my usual gaming session time, the entire intervention team burst through my door. Gotcha! My wife yelled, but everyone else just froze, staring at me and my computer monitor, showing a cartoon dragon breathing rainbow fire at a bunch of wizards in ridiculous clothes. Can I help you? I asked, blinking back at them. Adam, the high-pitched female voice shrieked through my speakers. Did you just go AFK during the boss fight? We're dying here. My wife pointed at the speakers frantically. There, that's her. That's the woman he's been cheating on me with. What? Cheating? I pulled up my Discord window and showed them the 5 male friends I'd been gaming with every week. Ray, Simon, and 3 random teens that kick butt at the game. That voice you've been hearing, that's Ray, I said, pointing to the bald guy on the screen. He waved and said hi with the female voice changer still on. Everyone took a step back in horror. He quickly turned the voice changer off. Oh, sorry about that, he said now in his regular voice, deep and gravelly like a truck driver who'd smoked for years. Ray shared his screen and showed his Discord settings with the anime girl voice changer chosen as his primary microphone. So no cheating, no girl, just men, I said, suddenly starting to feel embarrassed. While the others looked convinced, my wife still wasn't satisfied. Why would a grown man use a voice changer? My wife demanded. People help girls more in the game, Ray said in his normal voice. I get free stuff all the time, just acting all cute. Plus, it's hilarious. He switched it back on. Daddy. Everyone on the Discord call gagged in disgust. So freaking cringe, one of the teens said. My wife looked at me, then at the screen, then back at me. But all those things you were saying, it's just banter between boys, I said, my face burning red. My mom turned to my wife. The woman you were worried about was Ray? I told you we should have just asked him, my best friend muttered. The neighbor raised his hand. So, no drama then? Can I still tell people I was here? My dad had moved closer to the screen, squinting at Ray's hot elf character. So you can dress up your elf girl however you want? Harold, no, my mom snapped. My parents demanded I should do 50% of all chores, but they didn't expect that to backfire on them. We're done being your servants, Mom announced, slapping a contract on the kitchen table I'd scrubbed an hour ago. This says that you will do exactly 50% of all household chores. Sign it. She started recording on her phone while Dad stood behind her, arms crossed. We're exhausted from carrying you. The irony was incredible. I'd been doing way more than 50% of everything for 2 years, while they couldn't even tell you where we kept the laundry detergent. Mom hadn't cooked since 2022. Dad hadn't touched a vacuum in forever, yet they genuinely believed they were doing most of the housework. 50%, or find somewhere else to live, Dad added, wearing the shirt I'd ironed that morning. I looked at the contract, then at their smug faces, then I signed it with a smile. You're absolutely right. 50% starting tomorrow. I promise I'll never do more than my exact share again. They actually high-fived each other, like they'd just won a free slave in the lottery, not realizing their problems were about to skyrocket. The next morning, Mom was on the phone with her sister at 6 a.m., bragging about their breakthrough in parenting. We finally taught him responsibility, she gloated. Kids these days need firm boundaries. Dad chimed in from the bathroom. Should have done this years ago. Watch how smooth everything runs now that he knows we mean business. They moved through their morning routine with the confidence of people who'd never had to think about clean clothes magically appearing in their closets or lunches mysteriously packing themselves. That's when I decided to follow exactly what the contract said. 20 minutes later, I started the laundry and pulled my clothes out mid-cycle, leaving the machine full of soapy water. Dad discovered his work shirts floating in cold gray water at 7 a.m., his confident whistling dying mid-note as he started screaming from the laundry room. He missed his critical client meeting trying to dry a shirt with Mom's hairdryer, still damp patches visible during his afternoon presentation. Mom fared no better. She'd assumed her presentation outfit would be clean as always, only to find it buried under a week of their dirty clothes. She did her Zoom presentation to corporate in a wrinkled gym shirt, her credibility evaporating as quickly as her promotion chances. By Wednesday, the house reeked. I'd taken out exactly 1 trash bag, mine, leaving theirs to ferment in the summer heat. When Mom's book club arrived, I watched from my spotless half of the living room as her best friend's face contorted at the smell. We're doing exactly 50-50 now, I explained cheerfully, showing them Mom's recorded contract. She was very insistent about fairness. The women exchanged glances before suddenly remembering other commitments. Mom's smile cracked like old paint. The real collapse came Friday when Dad's boss arrived for dinner. I'd vacuumed exactly half of each room, leaving a perfect line down the middle like a bizarre art installation. The dining table was set only on my side, where I sat eating takeout while Dad frantically tried to explain why half their home looked abandoned. Where's the food? Dad hissed in the kitchen. I only bought my half of groceries. Cooking for others would exceed my share, I called out, loud enough for his boss to hear. The man left after 15 minutes, muttering about family issues. When they realized they'd messed up, they attempted gaslighting me into going back to how things were. You're being deliberately difficult, Mom accused during another family meeting. This isn't what we meant and you know it. I pulled out my phone, playing back her video from the first meeting. You said, and I quote, exactly 50% of all household chores, no more free rides. I have spreadsheets showing I'm doing precisely 50%. Dad tried a different angle. You're supposed to be mature enough to understand what we really meant. Oh, so you meant I should read your minds instead of following the written contract you made me sign? They went silent, awkwardly avoiding my eyes. They couldn't exactly scold me about doing exactly what they wanted me to do. When their friends started joking about the 50% house at social gatherings, they cracked. Please just go back to how things were before, Mom begged. We didn't realize you were doing so much. Dad nodded frantically. We'll rip up the contract. Just please clean the bathroom properly. My boss is coming for dinner tomorrow. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. Actually, I'm really enjoying this new system. It's given me so much more time for studying, and my grades have never been better. Plus, you were right. 50% is much fairer than what I was doing before. The panic in their eyes was palpable.
The food delivery driver asked me, "Ma'am, are you alone right now? My husband's on the way home." I lied, immediately feeling nervous from his question. The delivery driver held my Chinese food, peeking into my house. "What does your husband look like?" he asked. "Sorry, listen, I have a movie to catch. Here's an extra tip." I pushed a $5 bill at him and reached for my food. "But what does he look look like? He pressed more desperately, his tone making all the hair on the back of my neck stand up straight. I grabbed my food and practically slammed the door in his face before turning the deadbolt. Now, I know weird people deliver food all the time, but I wasn't ready to become a true crime story that people make YouTube videos about. But 20 minutes later, just as I'd forgotten all about him, I walked into the kitchen to get some ice cream and noticed that his car was still parked on the street with the engine running. When his eyes met mine through the window, I closed the blinds in a panic and fell to the floor covering my mouth. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is your delivery driver. Where is your husband? Are you still by yourself right now?" I didn't respond, but my hands were shaking. Another text came through immediately. "Please answer. It's important." Through a crack in the blinds, I watched him get out of his car and walk back toward my house. The pounding of my heart filled my ears. I crawled around, turning off all the lights, closing all the blinds on the first floor. Then, a third text. "Come outside." 2 words that made my spine tingle. I heard his footsteps on my front porch, gently knocking like he didn't want to scare me even more than I already was. "Annabelle," he said, voice calm and eerie. "Annabelle, I know you're in there. Please come out." I couldn't take it anymore and figured if I threatened him with the cops, he'd leave. I stupidly opened the door just a crack with the chain still on. "You need to leave or I'm calling the police." Before I could react, his hand shot through the gap and unhooked the chain. He grabbed my arm and dragged me out of my house. I tried to scream, but he was already throwing me into his back seat and slamming the door. I tried to leave, but the child lock trapped me inside. I kicked at the window weakly, even screamed as he calmly got into the driver's seat. He reached down and pulled out a baseball bat that he set in the passenger seat. "Call the cops," he told me. "What?" I said, suddenly thrown so far off all the panic drained from my body in an instance. "Call the cops now." He repeated it while staring straight ahead at my house. His hands were on the steering wheel and he wasn't even looking at me. I fumbled with my phone and dialed 911. "There's a delivery driver and he grabbed me and forced me into his car." I told the dispatcher, but even as I said it, something felt wrong. Why would he want me to call? The bat was sitting in the passenger seat, but he wasn't threatening me with it. He was just watching my house like he was waiting for something. "Ma'am, where are you now?" the dispatcher asked. "I'm in his car outside my house on Maple Street, but he's not driving anywhere. He's just sitting here, watching my house." I looked at his face, then traced his gaze back to the second floor of my house. I gasped when I saw it. A man moving from room to room. My blood went cold. "There's someone in my house." My voice came out as a whisper. "I'm outside with the delivery driver, and there's an intruder in my home." I hung up the phone and looked at the driver. "Is this why you asked me if I was alone?" He looked at me, his face full of concern, not violence. "I saw him climb through your attic vent when I pulled up with your food. I thought maybe it was a teenager sneaking back in, but when I saw you, I knew you were too young for that. When I asked about your husband and you told me he was still out, I got worried," he explained. "All this time, this man was trying to warn me. I tried to get you to come outside, but you wouldn't listen. I couldn't let you stay in there with him, so I had to grab you." Just then, police cars came screaming down my street, surrounding my home. The man inside tried to run out the back, but they were waiting for him. They tackled him on my lawn, his bright orange jumpsuit visible. The cops told me later he was an escaped convict who'd broken out of prison transport 2 hours earlier after killing a guard. He'd been hiding in my attic while I ate Chinese food below him, probably waiting for me to fall asleep. The delivery driver saved my life by literally dragging me from danger I didn't even know was there. I tried to thank him, but he just shrugged. "No problem, it's what delivery personnel are trained to do." "Wait, what?" My dad suddenly burst into my room and yelled, "Did you eat the pills from my drawer?" "Yeah," I said, looking up from my phone where I'd been scrolling TikTok for the past hour. Dad's face went from worried to absolutely terrified in half a second, like I'd just told him I'd jumped off a roof. How many did you take?" His voice cracked and he grabbed my shoulders hard enough to hurt. 2, I had a headache from studying. He actually stumbled backward and had to grab my desk to keep from falling. "Oh God, no, no, no!" He was pacing now, running his hands through his hair so violently I thought he'd rip it out. When did you take them?" "Like an hour ago, Dad." "What's wrong? You're scaring me." He stopped dead and his face went even whiter. "I took one too, 20 minutes ago. I thought they were Tylenol." He sat on my bed and put his head in his hands, and that's when my stomach dropped because Dad never panics, not even when our house almost burned down last year. "We need to tell your mother." "Oh God, she's going to kill me." He looked at me with genuine fear in his eyes. "Do you feel anything? Dizzy? Hot? Is your heart racing?" I wasn't before, but now my heart was pounding from pure terror. Mom came running when Dad yelled for her, and I've never seen someone's expression change so fast. Confused to furious to absolutely horrified in about 2 seconds. "You left them where she could find them?" She was screaming now, actually screaming. "Are you insane?" She rushed over, checking my pulse with shaking hands, looking at my pupils, feeling my forehead. "Baby, how do you feel? Any nausea, chest pain, trouble breathing?" Before I could answer, my older brother Matt walked in looking annoyed until he saw Mom basically giving me a medical exam while Dad sat there looking like he might puke. "What's happening?" Matt asked, but Mom was already on the phone with someone, nearly crying. "Yes, my 15-year-old daughter. She took 2 of them about an hour ago." "No, my husband took one too." Dad kept checking his own pulse and muttering about contraindications and drug interactions, which made everything scarier. Matt spotted the pill bottle on my nightstand where Dad had thrown it. He picked it up, read the label, and his eyes went so wide I thought they'd pop out. "Oh my God, Dad, you didn't!" He looked between our parents with this expression of complete disbelief. "These were just sitting in your room? These?" Mom snatched the bottle before I could see what it said. "We're going to the hospital right now," Mom announced, already grabbing her purse and keys, mascara running down her face from crying. "This is serious. This could cause..." She stopped herself, which made my imagination go crazy. "Heart attack? Stroke? Liver failure?" Mom practically dragged me to the car and I'd never seen her drive so fast. "Mom, am I going to die?" I asked, and she started crying harder. "No, baby, no, but we need to make sure you're okay." Matt was in the back looking up something on his phone, and whatever he read made him make this choking sound like he was trying not to laugh, but also horrified. "Matt, this isn't funny," Mom screamed. "Your sister could be..." I know, he said, but I could see him biting his lip hard, We screeched into the emergency room parking lot, and Mom practically carried me inside even though I could walk fine. They took me back immediately, which terrified me more because emergency rooms never take anyone back fast unless they're dying. The doctor came in, this younger guy trying so hard to look professional, while Mom held my hand crying and apologizing for not hiding the medication better. Then the doctor came back with my test results on his tablet. So, I need to discuss the results with you. My heart stopped because that's how doctors say you're dying in movies. There is nothing we can do now. She will have to wait it out. He was hiding his face. I could tell something was seriously wrong. I couldn't take it anymore. Am I gonna die or what? They all went silent. The doctor took a deep breath and said, how do I say this? Then my mat said it for him. Relax. Worst case scenario, you'll just get bricked up. My dad completely covered his face. I looked at the doctor. What? But the doctor nodded. He's right. The pill you took was Viagra. Dad didn't make eye contact with me for a week after that.
What's the most inappropriate assignment a teacher has ever given? My phone buzzed during a client presentation with the number every parent dreads seeing during work hours. It only means something has gone horribly wrong at school. The secretary's voice was tight with barely controlled panic when I answered. You need to come to the school immediately. There's been an incident regarding your son Patrick with the Mother's Day celebration that requires your immediate attention. I apologized to my clients and drove to the elementary school, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Patrick had never been in trouble before, and this was completely out of character for my quiet 8-year-old, who usually spent recess reading books about dinosaurs. The main office was in complete chaos when I arrived, with parents flooding in and the principal trying to manage what looked like a full-scale crisis. Their new teacher stood in the corner looking shell-shocked. Through the glass window of the conference room, I could see Patrick sitting at the table with his chin raised defiantly. Torn paper and destroyed crafts covered every surface like someone had detonated a craft store. Their new teacher launched into her explanation before I even sat down. Your son destroyed 6 weeks of Mother's Day projects that the children have been working on, including cards and painted handprints and clay sculptures that were supposed to be gifts. She pulled out her phone to show me a video she'd taken, and I watched my sweet Patrick systematically ripping apart every single card on the display table while his classmates watched in stunned silence. He destroyed everything right as parents were arriving for our special Mother's Day presentation where the children were supposed to read their cards aloud. The principal shifted uncomfortably in his seat while the teacher continued her tirade about destruction of property and traumatizing other students and how this would go on Patrick's permanent record. Patrick hadn't said a word yet, but tears were streaming down his face with his jaw clenched tight. Patrick, you need to tell me exactly what happened, I said softly, while crouching down to his eye level. He wiped his nose with the back of his hand and took a shuddering breath before speaking. The teacher made Celia make a Mother's Day card, even though her mom died in that car accident where the truck ran the red light 2 weeks ago. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees as Patrick continued. Celia's mom was everyone's mom too, because she came every Tuesday to help with reading groups, and she brought everyone birthday cupcakes, and she taught us how to tie our shoes with the bunny ears. My throat constricted because I knew exactly who he meant. That wonderful woman had been the heartbeat of room 203 for 3 years running. When Celia said she couldn't make a card because her mom was dead, the teacher told her to just pretend she was still here and write about happy memories like it would be good practice for writing. Patrick's small hands clenched into fists as his voice grew stronger. The teacher made her write, I love when my mommy picks me up from school, even though Celia was sobbing that her mom can't pick her up anymore because she's in the ground. Several parents in the doorway gasped, and the principal had gone completely pale. Celia was crying so hard she couldn't even hold the crayon, and the teacher said she was being dramatic and that everyone else managed to finish their cards, so she needed to stop holding up the class. So what did you do? I asked, even though I could already piece together what came next. While the teacher was setting up the presentation, I gave Celia the memory box we all made for her, with 73 notes about her mom, like how she always smelled like vanilla cookies, and how she did funny voices for all the characters during story time, and how she never got mad when someone spilled paint. Patrick reached into his backpack and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper that made my heart shatter. This is what Celia tried to write before I stopped her, and it just says, I miss you, over and over in shaky letters. His voice cracked, but he pushed forward with fierce determination. Then I destroyed all the stupid cards because why should we celebrate mothers in front of Celia when hers is gone forever, and the teacher doesn't even care that her mom used to braid everyone's hair during indoor recess? The teacher started to protest that she didn't know the situation, but the principal cut her off with a raised hand. How did the other students react when you destroyed their cards? He asked Patrick gently. They helped me, Patrick said simply, and the teacher's mouth fell open. Everyone started ripping up their own cards and putting the pieces in the recycling bin, and then we all sat with Celia while she looked through her memory box. Another parent in the doorway spoke up with tears streaming down her face. My daughter just told me they've been working on that memory box in secret for 2 weeks by staying in during recess because they wanted Celia to know her mom mattered to everyone. The principal stood up slowly and looked directly at the teacher with an expression I'd never seen before. You forced a grieving 8-year-old to make a Mother's Day card and write, I love when my mommy picks me up, 2 weeks after we all stood at her mother's funeral? The teacher stammered something about following lesson plans, but the damage was done. My girlfriend said she wanted to be friends with benefits, so I treated her exactly like one. I've been planning Miranda's dream Valentine's Day for weeks when she destroyed me over brunch. I just pulled out my phone to confirm the reservation at the restaurant she'd been dying to try when she interrupted me. God, you're so clingy and needy. We need to talk, she said, pushing away the flowers I'd brought. I can't do this anymore. It's suffocating. You're always trying to be romantic, always wanting to do couple stuff. My heart broke. We're about to be a year Miranda. Exactly why we need to set boundaries now. From now on, we're best friends who happen to sleep together. Treat me exactly like you treat Nate or Will. No flowers or special treatment, just buddies. I'm just someone you have sex with. She said it like I was pathetic for wanting more. The couple next to us looked horrified. If that's what you want, I said quietly. She rolled her eyes. Finally, maybe now you'll stop being so desperate and embarrassing. Valentine's Day arrived. Miranda texted asking about if we had plans. I responded that I was going to Nate's to watch the game. She could come if she wanted. Dead silence for an hour. Didn't we have a reservation? She finally asked. I reminded her that I don't make romantic reservations for my buddies. That night, she showed up at Nate's in a red dress and heels. I handed her a beer without looking up from the TV and went back to the game. When she tried to sit next to me on the couch, I pointed to the recliner across the room. Dude, you're blocking the TV. Nate looked confused. Miranda's face went red. She spent the night watching us play video games and talk about sports. Her birthday came 3 weeks later. I got her what I got all my bros, a 6-pack of beer and buffalo wings from the sketchy place near campus. She stared at the grease-stained container like it was radioactive. Where's my actual gift? She asked, voice shaking. That is your gift. Same thing I got Will last month. Pretty good wings too. But I'm your girlfriend. No, you're my friend who I occasionally sleep with. Your exact words. She didn't speak to me me for 2 days. The real entertainment started at her company's spring gala. She'd begged me to come, bought me a suit, and said it was important for her promotion. When her boss approached, asking how long we'd been together, I corrected him immediately. "Oh, we're not together." Her boss looked bewildered. "But she said you were her boyfriend of 10 months? Nah, she doesn't do the relationship thing. We're buddies who hook up occasionally." She was actually just telling me how suffocating real relationships are. Miranda grabbed my arm so hard it left marks. Her co-workers started whispering. At her cousin's wedding in May, the disasters multiplied. When they called for couples photos, I stayed seated playing on my phone. "We're not a couple, just friends with benefits," I explained to the photographer who asked 3 times if I was sure. During the slow songs, I was at the bar with other guys talking about basketball, while she stood alone on the dance floor. Her family kept asking if we'd broken up. I explained cheerfully that Miranda didn't want to be together, just friends with benefits. Her grandmother nearly fainted. Her mom pulled her aside for a long conversation about self-respect and not letting men use you. By month 3, she was getting desperate. She'd try to hold my hand in public. I'd give her a fist bump instead. When she leaned in for a kiss at dinner, I went for the high five. "Bros don't make out at restaurants," I said. The waiter smirked. When she said "I love you" one night, I responded with "Love you too, bro," and immediately turned on the game. She started suggesting romantic restaurants, weekend trips, and couples activities. Each time I'd counter with group functions, group trips, or inviting the guys along. She'd wear lingerie. I'd ask if she wanted to play Call of Duty. The explosion came at my birthday party. She'd planned something romantic, candles everywhere, expensive scotch, a photo album of our memories. I walked in with 12 people and turned it into a poker night. When she tried to give a girlfriend speech about our journey together, I cut her off. "Yo, Miranda's giving a toast. My good buddy Miranda!" Everyone clapped awkwardly. She ran to the bathroom crying. My sister followed, later reporting that Miranda was sobbing about how I treated her like just another dude and how humiliated she felt that everyone knew I wouldn't claim her. That night, after everyone left, she sobbed hysterically. "I want to be your girlfriend, your actual girlfriend, with romance and flowers and everything. Please." I looked at her with genuine confusion. "But you said that was suffocating and desperate. You said we're just friends who have sex sometimes." She tried to argue, but I cut her off. "I'm actually really comfortable with this arrangement now. You were right. No expectations, no embarrassing romance stuff. Just friends." "What toxic relationship test did you pass that destroyed everything?" "My girlfriend's best friends have this sick tradition where they constantly test boyfriends to make sure they're not toxic or controlling. They create situations to trigger jealousy, then shame any guy who reacts. If you show any possessiveness, you're labeled an abuser. If you get upset, you're manipulative. Only the truly evolved men who show zero jealousy are deemed worthy of marriage." Claire's friends started it after one of them dated a controlling guy in college. When Claire and I started getting serious, I knew what was coming. I'd been saving for a ring, planning our future. I was scared to lose her. "My friends want to make sure you're one of the good ones," Claire said. "Just be yourself." But being myself meant admitting that I did get jealous sometimes, that I cared who she spent time with. Her friends made it clear that wasn't acceptable. "Jealousy is toxic masculinity," her friend Maeve lectured me. "A secure man trusts completely." So I became the perfect nonchalant boyfriend they wanted me to be. When they took Claire to a male strip club for a random Tuesday night, I smiled and said, "Have fun." My stomach churned for hours. When they posted videos of Claire getting a lap dance, grinding on some oiled up dancer, I liked the post. "So supportive," comments said. Inside, I was dying. They started inviting Claire's ex-boyfriend Blake to group events. "We're all adults here," Maeve announced. "Unless someone has a problem with that." Everyone looked at me. I shrugged. Why would I care? Blake started texting Claire constantly. Inside jokes, memories. "Remember when we..." Messages that lit up her phone at midnight. I watched her smile at them, wanting to scream. Instead, I said nothing. The tests escalated. They convinced Claire to go on a weekend trip to Vegas without me. "Couples need space," they said. She posted photos in tiny dresses, dancing with random men. Her friends commented about the hot guys buying them drinks. When she came home with a hickey she claimed was a curling iron burn, I just nodded. My instincts yelled at me, but I kept my voice calm. "Sounds like you had fun." They created a fake Tinder profile showing Claire was single and active. When I saw it on her friend's phone, accidentally of course, I felt my world tilt. "You're not going to freak out, are you?" Maeve asked, watching me like a hawk. "It's just a glitch," I said. "Technology, right?" She looked disappointed. Her friends would openly flirt with other men in front of me, then watch to see if I'd warn Claire. They'd make comments about how certain actors were hall passes and shouldn't count as cheating. They'd ask Claire about her ex's new girlfriend, saying she was a downgrade, waiting for me to react. I never did. I swallowed every emotion, every instinct, every normal human reaction. When Blake showed up at Claire's apartment at 2 a.m., drunk and needing to talk, I was there. Claire looked at me, waiting. Her friends were texting her, I could tell. This was another test. "He can crash on the couch," I said, dying inside as I left them alone. "You're so mature," Claire said, but her voice sounded flat. The facade fell apart at Maeve's birthday. They hired a psychic who was actually Maeve's cousin. She told Claire that her soulmate was someone from her past who would return. Everyone looked at Blake, then at me, waiting for the jealous boyfriend to explode. I raised my glass. "To soulmates," I toasted. Claire's face fell. Later that night, she cornered me. "Do you even love me?" she asked. "You watched my ex-boyfriend sleep in my apartment. You liked a video of me grinding on a stripper. You don't care who I text or where I go." My jaw dropped. "I thought that's what you wanted," I said. "A guy who isn't toxic." "I wanted a guy who loves me enough to care," she said. "My friends kept pushing because they were sure you'd finally show some passion, some sign that losing me would hurt, but you never did. You just didn't care." "I cared about everything," I finally admitted. "The strip club made me sick. Blake's texts made me want to punch walls. That Vegas trip, I didn't sleep for 3 days. Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because your friends said jealousy was toxic. That caring who you're with makes me controlling. I was trying to be what you needed. I needed someone who would fight for me," she said. "Not someone who'd watch me slip away with a shrug." She ended it that night. Not because I failed their tests, but because I passed them. Her friends were shocked. "He was perfect," Maeve said. "He never got jealous once." "Exactly. What kind of man doesn't care if he loses me?" Claire said. I finally erupted in emotion. "You know what? Your tests are toxic manipulation disguised as feminism. You destroyed something real." Maeve's face darkened. "We were protecting her from ending up with an abuser." "No, you were abusing me and teaching Claire that love means mind games and manipulation." That was 6 months ago. I went to therapy to recover from the emotional manipulation and learned that love didn't require any tests. Claire's dating someone new now. He told Blake to back off. He said the Vegas trips were inappropriate. Her friends call him controlling. The tests continue, but he doesn't play. How do I tell my crush I fell in love with her kids? I found my work crush Cher crying in the break room, looking completely stressed. "My dad's in the hospital and I need to fly out tonight, but I can't find anyone to watch my kids. My ex won't answer. The babysitter I hired bailed, and I can't afford to miss this flight, but I can't afford anything else either." She leaned against my shoulder, crying even harder. I volunteered without thinking. "I'll watch them," I said, heart racing from how close she was to me. "Are you serious? It's 3 kids. 3. For at least 2 weeks. I waved my hand around like a lovesick fool. Psh, how hard can it be? The kids showed up at my apartment that night with tons of suitcases. The oldest, around 14, looked at her mom and said, "Really? Another boyfriend?" Cher's face went red. "He's just a friend from work, Camilla." The middle one, 10, rolled his eyes. The youngest, 7, wouldn't even look at me. They stood in my doorway like they were being sentenced to prison. Cher hugged them quickly, told them to be good, and left for the airport. I stood there with 3 kids who clearly hated me and realized I was in way over my head. The first morning, I woke up early to make them pancakes when the oldest one, Camilla, laughed. "She's not here, you know. You can stop trying," she said. "Besides, you're not her type. Mom doesn't date guys without kids. We've seen this a dozen times already." It hurt, but it wasn't a lie. Cher's coworkers, guys from her gym, men from dating apps. Everyone wanted to play dad until they realized 3 kids meant actual work. And the kids really didn't make it any easier. From spilling drinks on my laptop to turning the TV up during important Zoom meetings, they hated every second with me. "Dude, just survive until she gets back, then ask her out," my friend told me. That became the plan. Survive 2 weeks, do whatever to keep the kids happy, be the hero, finally land a date with Cher. But like most things, it doesn't always happen the way you want it to. Sometime within the second week, the middle kid, Murph, came home from school trying to hide a black eye. Before I could even ask, Camilla grabbed ice from the freezer and held it against his face. "Just pretend you didn't see anything," she told me coldly. I bent down beside them and asked in a kind but stern voice, "Tell me what happened. Just leave me alone," he said, turning away. I shook my head. "I'm not here to lecture you, or get mad at you, or do anything without your permission. Not even tell your mom. But I need to know what happened." Murph blinked at me and frowned. "Someone called me an orphan because I don't have a dad." I patted his head and thanked him, walking away as calm as I could, even though all the blood in my body was boiling with anger. The next afternoon, I took a half day at work and showed up at their school in a rental GTR, strikingly white, engine purring like a monster. I rolled down the window and waved, wearing sunglasses and a black polo. "Who's got the coolest dad now?" I said loudly, as Murph and his friends ran over excitedly. Murph watched his bully's jaw drop and quickly hopped in. He rolled down the window and flipped him off, which was my signal to immediately drive off the middle school campus. "Okay, I like the enthusiasm, but let's never tell your mother about this," I said, grinning. I picked up the other 2 kids and took them to In-N-Out for a quick afternoon snack, then surprised them with a baseball game. Murph ate in a helmet full of nachos, and I managed to snag a foul ball for little Celia. "Not bad, old man," Camilla said, watching her siblings enjoy the game. We made sure to take pics with the car and at the stadium, all covered in ketchup and mustard. I sent everything to their mom with a caption, "We wish you were here." After that, things between me and the kids sort of changed. When the youngest, Celia, had a nightmare and called for her mom, I sat beside her bed, reading out fairy tales until she fell asleep. I made the kids meals and lunchboxes, and we spent weekends crying to Camilla's favorite series, To All the Boys I've Ever Loved. In the last week together, I surprised Camilla at her secret choir concert, showing up with flowers, recording the entire show for her mom. She saw me in the audience, and her tough girl mask slipped for just a second. "You did great, kid," I told her after the performance. She hugged me back. "Thanks for being there for me." Cher finally came home after weeks of delays. The kids ran to her immediately, spilling about all the cool things we managed to do. Cher laughed. "They never warmed up to anyone before," Cher said, watching her kids show me their homework like it was totally normal. "What did you do?" "I stopped trying to date you and started seeing them like they were one of my own," I said. She blinked. "What?" "I mean, I cleared my throat and took a deep breath. I volunteered to help because I like you. I've liked you for 3 years. But when I was caring for these kids, I felt a different kind of love that I never expected to have. And I just showed it to them the best way I could." Cher stared back at me, speechless. That's when the youngest, Celia, walked over with a drawing of the 5 of us smiling. "Can't we keep him?" I nodded. "Can't you keep me?" Cher laughed and agreed.
My husband ignored me after I almost died giving birth until the male nurse said, if she was mine, I'd hold her hand. He lost it. My husband begged me to have his baby for 3 years before I finally agreed to get pregnant. The second they wheeled me into the recovery room after my emergency cesarean, my husband pulled out his phone and started playing some stupid mobile game he's obsessed with. I was struggling to hold our daughter so she wouldn't cry while eating and managing my pain. Meanwhile, he sat in the corner tapping his screen and cursing when he lost matches. "Your food's getting cold again," said a voice from the doorway. I looked up to see my nurse Austin walking in with fresh ice chips. He was tall with kind eyes and he had been taking amazing care of me for the last 5 days. "The cafeteria actually made something edible today, but you haven't touched it." He glanced at me, struggling to balance the baby while reaching for my tray. "Here, let me take her for a minute so you can actually eat something." I practically shoved my daughter into his arms because my incision was screaming and I hadn't really eaten anything in 2 days. "Please, take her before I drop her trying to reach that pudding cup," I said, and he laughed before glancing at my husband, who hadn't moved in 3 hours. "Earlier, your husband was asking the nurses if the cafeteria had better Wi-Fi because his game keeps lagging." I nearly choked on my food. "He actually asked them that?" Austin looked uncomfortable for a second, then seemed to decide something. "Yeah, and yesterday when the nurse asked if he wanted to do skin-to-skin contact with the baby, he said that was, quote, your thing, not his," direct quote. The words hit like physical blows. I found myself staring at Austin, who was gently swaying with my daughter, humming something soft while my husband hadn't held her once in 5 days. It shouldn't have hurt as much as it did, but tears started forming anyway, probably from hormones and exhaustion and the fact that I almost died giving birth to his child. Austin immediately grabbed tissues and wiped my face for me because my hands were shaking. That simple gesture made me realize nobody had touched me with kindness in months. "I'm sorry. That was unprofessional of me." "No, you were just telling me the truth," I said. "I just can't believe you almost died 4 days ago and he's worried about internet speed," Austin said quietly, putting my daughter in her bassinet carefully. "You know that's not normal, right?" I thought about how my husband always forgot I was pregnant until I was 6 months along because he never looked up long enough to notice my growing belly. He didn't come to a single prenatal appointment, I heard myself saying, not even the ultrasounds. Austin sat on the edge of my bed and his face showed something between professional concern and barely contained rage. My wife had 12 appointments and I went to every single one. From across the room, my husband suddenly shouted "fucking campers" at his screen loud enough to wake the baby. He had the audacity to look annoyed when she started crying. Austin stood up to get her but stopped and looked at my husband. "Your daughter is crying," he said flatly. My husband didn't even look up. "She'll stop in a minute." I felt something break inside my chest. Austin picked the baby back up and walked closer to my bed. "You know what kills me about this job?" He adjusted the baby's tiny hospital hat and continued. "Sometimes I have to watch men mistreat their wives. I always think, if that was my wife who almost bled to death delivering my baby, I'd be holding her hand every second, not playing on my phone like some teenager whose mom dragged him to visit his sick grandma. But maybe I'm just old-fashioned about marriage and basic human decency." My husband shot up from his chair chair so fast his phone clattered onto the floor and he actually kicked it trying to get to us. What the hell did you just say? He demanded, storming over to where Austin sat completely calm, still holding our daughter. I was talking to your wife about my experiences working here, Austin said professionally, but if you heard something that offended you, maybe you should ask yourself why. My husband suddenly grabbed our daughter from Austin's arms, asking if she needed to be changed. I don't need some wannabe doctor hovering around my family, he spat. I've got this handled, now get out. Austin stood slowly and looked him directly in the eyes. All right then, quick question since you've got this handled. When did she last eat? My husband's mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. After Austin left to continue his rounds, my husband said, that nurse needs to be reported for harassment. I stared at him. What's our daughter's name? I asked quietly. He rolled his eyes. What kind of question is that? Obviously it's... He stopped. His hand actually started reaching for his phone like the answer might be there. When did your in-laws stop treating you like a gold digger? My boyfriend's parents still make me eat in the kitchen when I visit their house. Not joking. His mother Rosalind literally sets up a food tray by the dishwasher while the family eats in the dining room. This all started when they saw one photo of me in hospital scrubs and decided I was a gold digger, trying to marry their trust fund son for money. Reggie, his father, slides me $20 bills after dinner for my lunch money. Rosalind asked me to wash my hands twice before touching anything, since nurses are always dirty. My boyfriend just smiles and lets them talk. He knows I love a good verbal sparring match, and more importantly, he knows the truth about what I actually do at that hospital. Last month at their annual family reunion, I found out just how little they thought of me. Rosalind had set up 2 dining areas, the main room with crystal and china for family, and a kids table in the sunroom. Guess where my place card was? You'll be more comfortable with the children, Rosalind announced. Less pressure to keep up with adult conversation. I moved my card to my boyfriend's table. I think I can handle it. She physically moved it back. Nurses are used to pediatric units anyway, aren't you, dear? I work with plenty of children, I said, looking directly at Reggie. Usually they're better behaved than your husband. Her face went scarlet, and she ignored my comment entirely because she knew it was true. During cocktails, she kept interrupting every conversation I joined. The mayor asked about our healthcare policy. Before I could respond, Rosalind cut in. She's just a nurse, not a policy expert. She just takes blood pressure and empties bedpans. And yet I still contribute more to society than your book club, I fired back. Reggie's brother asked my boyfriend why he was slumming it with the help. I answered before my boyfriend could. Same reason your wife is slumming it with you. Love makes people do crazy things. The room went silent. Maggie, Rosalind's sister, laughed nervously. Such a sharp tongue for someone who takes orders all day. I might take orders from doctors, but you take orders from your pool boy. We're not the same. You should have seen the look on her face. During Reggie's toast about family achievements, he ended with, and our son even brought his temporary friend from the hospital. Temporary? I stood up. Like your hairline? Or Maggie's last 3 marriages? Rosalind hissed at me to sit down. Know your place. I do. It's apparently at the kids' table watching your family pretend they earned their trust funds. My boyfriend was biting his napkin to keep from laughing. His family only hated me more with each clapback. Then came the defining moment. Rosalind was showing off her new diamond bracelet to her relatives when her champagne flute slipped and shattered on the floor. She gasped, clutched her temple, and collapsed into the broken glass, her entire body going rigid before starting to shake violently. My eyes went wide, and I instantly knew that she was having a seizure. The room exploded into chaos. Reggie froze, screaming, "Someone call 911," over and over. Maggie shrieked about lawsuits since that's the only word she knew. Everyone was panicking, filming, or calling, but nobody was actually helping. I jumped up from the kids' table and slid across the floor on my knees, ignoring the glass slicing through my dress. I turned Rosalind on her side, protected her airway, and cushioned her head with my jacket. "Call 911, I barked at my boyfriend. "Reggie, stop screaming and get everyone to step back. Now!" My voice cut through the panic with absolute authority. When the paramedics rushed in 18 minutes later, the lead EMT froze in the doorway. "Chief Thorne, we didn't know you were here." The room went dead silent. "Family event, Thompson. The patient is stable. She had a tonic-clonic seizure for 87 seconds. No aspiration." Thompson's partner whistled low. "Ma'am, you're lucky the chief of surgery was here. Dr. Thorne runs the entire surgical department at Mount Sinai." Reggie dropped his phone in shock. "Chief of surgery?" Thompson nodded while loading Rosalind onto the stretcher. "Best neurosurgeon in the state. She literally wrote the protocols we use. Your wife probably got better care from her than she would have in an emergency room," Maggie whispered. "But she's a nurse." Thompson looked confused. "A nurse?" Dr. Thorne is the youngest chief of surgery in the hospital's history. She's been running the department for 4 years. We call her chief because she's everyone's boss, including every nurse and doctor at the hospital. As they wheeled Rosalind out, she grabbed my hand weakly, still disoriented but conscious. "Thank you," she whispered. Reggie stood there with his mouth opening and closing. After that night, I never ate in the kitchen again, and Rosalind introduces me as the surgeon who saved my life. My best friend slept with my fiancé, and then came to me with an outrageous request. 2 hours before I walked down the aisle, my best friend Bella came to me and said, "I slept with Ransom yesterday." "Ransom? My fiancé?" "Yes, we had a wonderful time together. I thought you should know before you marry him." Once I heard what she said, I didn't even think. I just ran out in my wedding dress to confront my fiancé and ask him if it was true. But Bella followed behind me and said, "Oh, don't be so dramatic. We both know I am the better option, so he was going to choose me eventually." I turned around and went to slap her, which is when Ransom appeared and grabbed my hand before pushing me away. Then they held hands and announced that they'd fallen in love and told me I should be happy for them on my wedding day. It felt like my heart was being struck by needles. That's how much it hurt. I walked out and removed both of them from my life that day. While they told everyone that I was the one who got between them, I started to slowly move on. I took the promotion Ransom had told me to turn down and became marketing director. My salary doubled in 6 months, so I bought a downtown condo with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. Then I started rock climbing, ran a half marathon, and traveled solo to Thailand. Yes, I did all that. I even made friends who actually celebrated my wins. My new friend group threw me a dodged bullet party on what would have been my wedding anniversary. Then 6 months ago, Bella showed up at my office with tears in her eyes, not to apologize, not to make amends, but to ask for my help. She said she wanted me to be her maid of honor. She and Ransom were getting married, and she needed my help. "You were always the organized one," she said with a straight face. "Plus, you still have all those vendor contacts from before." She actually referenced my canceled wedding like it was a shared resource. I didn't know what to laugh at, the audacity or the irony. "I need you to coordinate everything. The bachelorette party, the shower, the rehearsal dinner. You know Ransom's family already, so it makes sense." The audacity was breathtaking. I wanted to refuse and throw a stapler at her face, but I played the civilized woman. I simply told her I needed to think about it and hoped she would drop it after a few days, especially since I didn't want to confront them and destroy my own peace. But then she started bombing my phone with venue tours she wanted me to schedule, dress shopping appointments, cake tasting slots. Can you call that photographer you'd booked? Remember that florist you loved? What was that caterer's name? She even sent me a bridesmaid dress link for $400 and told me to buy it ASAP. The worst thing she did was telling people I was already her maid of honor before I'd answered. She actually posted on Instagram about reuniting with my soul sister for my big day. My mom called, confused, asking if I'd really forgiven her. Even Ransom started liking my Instagram posts again. They were both acting like nothing had happened. After 2 weeks of harassment, I was done being polite. I called my friend Sarah, who's an event planner. I need to destroy her publicly but elegantly, I said. Sarah came over with wine and her laptop. We spent 4 hours crafting the perfect response. I reached out to mutual friends Bella had invited and found out she'd told them I begged to be included, that I needed closure to move on. The lies were pathological. Half of them only RSVP'd yes because they thought I was okay with it. Her cousin admitted she thought it was weird but figured I knew best. Ransom's groomsmen were placing bets on whether I'd show up. I documented everything. Sarah helped me plan the perfect confrontation. We picked the location, the timing, the exact words. I even practiced my lines in the mirror. I wasn't going to let emotion ruin this moment. She'd taken enough from me. Once I was ready, I invited Bella for coffee at our old college cafe. She showed up 20 minutes late, already talking about centerpieces. I let her ramble about mason jars and fairy lights for exactly 1 minute. Then I slid my phone across the table. "This is my wedding gift to you," I said. It was a public Facebook post I'd just published. PSA, I am not Bella's maid of honor. I am not planning her wedding to my ex-fiance. A woman who sleeps with your fiance 2 weeks before your wedding doesn't get to demand you plan hers. Her face went white. "What is that? Did you post that? Take it down right now," she yelled. "Everyone can see it. That's the point," I said. "Your mom already shared it, by the way." She started sobbing, saying I was bitter, jealous, trying to ruin her happiness. "No, Bella, I'm protecting my peace. You took my fiance, my wedding, my deposits, my dignity. You don't get to take my time and energy too. You made your bed. Now lie in it with my ex, who will definitely cheat on you again." I stood up, left cash for my coffee, and walked out.
What happens when everyone says you're perfect together, but you need your best friend on every single date? My friend Holly and I were voted couple most likely to get married in the yearbook, even though we told everyone we would never date. But I get why. She was the beautiful homecoming queen, and I was football captain. The usual cliche, except, we weren't jerks to everyone like in those movies. So yeah, the pressure was ridiculous. Every school event, every party, even parent-teacher conferences, someone would pull me or Holly aside and ask when we were finally going to date. Our homeroom teacher literally started a betting pool. The only person who listened was my best friend Kira, who told us, "You guys don't have to date just because everyone else wants you to." But I didn't realize she had told us that for a really good reason. Something I found out way later. When Justin Bieber said never say never, he was right. Because at our classmates' pool party, it finally happened. Holly and I were sitting by the fire pit, everyone chanting kiss, 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 like we were in middle school. She looked at me, rolled her eyes, and said, "Let's just get this over with." When we kissed, everyone literally cheered. To me, it felt like nothing. Not bad, not good, just literally pressing your face to another human being. But since everyone was so happy about it, we started dating, and everything went smoothly, right? Not exactly, but it did lead to something so much better. To be fair, our dates weren't that bad. Our first official date was that weekend. Holly insisted Kira come with us. "It'll be weird without her," she said, and honestly, I was relieved. We'd always done everything as a trio since 7th grade anyway, so every date, Kira was there. We'd make her sit between us at the movies, all because Holly and I both wanted to be able to hear her jokes and hilarious side comments. And I loved watching her hide her face in her jacket during scary scenes. And at fancy restaurants, whenever Holly and I would run out of things to talk about and start staring at our menus in panic, Kira would jump in with the funniest stories to keep us going. People thought it was weird, but I was having the best summer of my life. With her around, I didn't have to think about how to date someone. The hangouts and conversations just came naturally. Even our families got used to it. Holly's mom started automatically setting 3 places at dinner. My dad called Kira the relationship translator. So when Kira couldn't make it to the next big date, let's just say it was a real eye-opener. Holly's cousin was getting married in San Diego, and I was her +1. I told her to take Kira instead, but Kira insisted, "You guys will be fine. It's just 2 days. Enjoy some romancing too." But she was wrong. The car ride on the way there was painful. Holly and I fought each other over Spotify, arguing whether her podcast or my music was the best choice. We eventually just switched to complete silence, making the 4-hour drive feel more like 12. At the wedding, we sat through dinner barely talking, realizing we never really had much to say without Kira around to prompt us. Even when we slow danced together, other couples were lost in each other while we were mechanically following the steps like a recital. Back at the hotel, Holly kicked off her heels and flopped on the bed. "This is weird without Kira," she said. I sat down next to her. I was just thinking that. Without discussing it, we both pulled out our phones and FaceTimed her. She answered from her grandma's hospital room, whispering so she wouldn't wake her up. For 20 minutes, she made us laugh with stories about the nurses and her grandma hitting on the doctor. When we hung up, the room went quiet again. Holly turned to look at me. "Why is this so hard when she's not around?" I knew exactly what she meant. "We haven't had a single real conversation all day. I'm exhausted trying to be your perfect boyfriend, girlfriend," we both said at the same time. We looked at each other and started laughing. "How bad would it be if we just broke up?" she asked. I grinned. "I'm sure not as bad as our actual dates." She laughed in agreement. So we went back to being 3 best friends like nothing had happened, except something still bugged me. While the 3 of us were hanging out at Denny's, I looked at Kira and asked, "Kira, you knew Holly and I wouldn't work out, right?" "How?" She stopped mid-chew. "Because you 2 are better as friends?" She shrugged. "That night at Spring Formal, when you told me not to date her." "Why?" Her eyes widened, surprised. "You know why," she said. So quietly I almost missed it. She turned away, cheeks flushing red, and for a moment I felt my heart racing anxiously. Then she took a deep breath and turned to face me with a courage I'd never seen before. "Because I've been in love with you since 7th grade," Holly gasped, then immediately slapped her hand over her mouth. Sorry, continue. "I'm not here," she said, stuffing herself with fries while the scene unfolded. I reached across the sticky Denny's table and took Kira's hand. "Kira, I'm an idiot. You were the one who always laughed at my terrible puns. You made every conversation fun. You always remembered the smallest details, down to my allergies. You're nice, funny, and now I don't think I could go a day without you." We stared at each other silently, too shy to say anything more. So Holly stepped in. "Please kiss," she whispered, unable to stop from fangirling. I laughed and leaned forward.
What's the worst way to spot a toxic relationship? My boyfriend used to make me apologize so much that sorry had become my most spoken punchline. I used to time my showers for when Nolan left for the gym because the sound of running water annoyed him. It's like nails on a chalkboard, he'd say, even from 2 rooms away. My friend Esme once asked why I whispered on our phone calls, and I couldn't explain that Nolan said my voice was too shrill whenever I got excited. When I cooked, I'd apologize preemptively for the smell, the sound of chopping, the cabinet doors closing. Nolan would sigh and say I was lucky he was so patient with me, that other guys wouldn't put up with someone so naturally annoying. Oh, the curse of a first relationship. Then one day, Esme invited me to her apartment for wine night while Nolan was out of town for work. I almost canceled 3 times, each text typed and deleted. Nolan always said my friends were toxic influences who enabled my worst qualities, but something about his empty side of the bed made me brave, or maybe just lonely. Esme's boyfriend Remy was there when I arrived, which made my stomach clench. I can go, I offered immediately, already backing toward the door. He's just leaving for poker night, Esme laughed, pulling me inside. But Remy was pouring wine for all of us, asking about my work, actually listening to my story about the nightmare client. He laughed at the right parts and asked follow-up questions. When Esme interrupted to add her own work horror story, he just smiled and said, "Babe, you tell it better," without a trace of irritation. 20 minutes in, Esme knocked over her wine glass reaching for the remote. Dark red Merlot spread across their cream carpet like blood. I froze, my body automatically bracing for impact. But Remy just said, "I'll grab the club soda," and kissed her forehead as he passed. No sighing. No, how could you be so careless? No silent treatment that would last 3 days. Esme wasn't frantically scrubbing while apologizing. She was laughing about being a klutz while Remy worked on the stain, and he was laughing too, telling me about the time he'd dropped an entire lasagna on the same carpet. When Esme got excited telling a story about her horrible boss, her voice got louder, more animated. Remy watched her with this soft expression, like her enthusiasm was something precious. "You're so cute when you're fired up," he said. Not, "You're being dramatic," or "Lower your voice," or "Why do you always have to be so intense?" When they disagreed about what movie to watch, Remy said, "You chose last time, but honestly, I'll watch whatever makes you happy." Esme put on some rom-com and Remy pulled her closer, playing with her hair. Halfway through, Esme said she was cold. Remy got up to get her favorite blanket without being asked, brought her tea without her mentioning it, remembered she liked 2 sugars and oat milk. "You're spoiling me," Esme said. "Good," Remy replied. When Esme started getting sleepy, slumping against Remy, he adjusted his position to make her more comfortable, even though his arm was probably falling asleep. He caught me staring and smiled. 3 years and I still can't believe I got this lucky," he said quietly, so as not to wake her. Before he left for poker, Remy did the dishes from dinner without being asked, took out the trash, and left a sticky note on the coffee maker that said, "Love you, beautiful," for Esme to find in the morning. "Drive safe," Esme called out. "Always do." "Text you when I get there," he called back. No accusations about checking up on him. No, "Why don't you trust me?" Just easy care for each other's peace of mind. When I got home that night, Nolan was already back, sitting in the dark. "Where were you?" he asked, not looking up from his phone. I started to explain, to apologize, but stopped mid-sentence. "Esme's boyfriend brought her tea, you know," I said instead, without her asking. Nolan snorted. "So he's whipped?" Pathetic. I looked at him then, really looked at him, at the man who'd trained me to move silently through my own life, to shrink myself into acceptable shapes, to apologize for existing too loudly. "No," I said, my voice steady for the first time in 2 years. "He just loves her." Nolan finally looked up, confused by my tone. "What's gotten into you?" I walked right past him without bothering to silence my footsteps. That night, while Nolan slept, I silently packed my bags and left. What happened when my mom demanded 24/7 access to my phone? My mom reads this parenting blog about online predators and announces at dinner that I can't have a passcode on my phone anymore. She needs to be able to check it for my safety. I'm 17. I argue that I need privacy, but she says if I want the phone she pays for, those are her rules. "If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about," she says, smiling like she just solved world hunger. Fine, I delete my passcode right there at the dinner table and hand her my phone. She checks it immediately to make sure. But here's what my mom doesn't realize. I'm not just her daughter. I'm her unpaid tech support, her business social media manager, and the only person who knows her passwords because she forgets them constantly. I handle her online boutique's customer complaints before she sees them. I fix the Wi-Fi every time it breaks, which is at least twice a week. I coordinate family events in the group chat so she doesn't have to deal with her sisters. Without privacy on my phone, I can't do any of that anymore. Week 1. Her online boutique starts getting angry comments asking why nobody's responding to messages. I can't check her business Instagram because she might see me logged into her account and think I'm snooping on her. She loses $300 in sales. The Wi-Fi crashes during her important Zoom call with suppliers. She screams for me to fix it, but I tell her I can't look up the solution because she'll see my search history and think I broke it on purpose. She has to use her phone data, and it costs $40 extra. Week 2. My aunt texts me about planning mom's surprise birthday party. I have to tell her mom reads all my messages now. Aunt calls mom directly, furious that she's acting like a prison warden. The party's canceled. Mom's sisters start a separate group chat without her. Dad asks why the Netflix password isn't working. I can't tell him mom changed it again and forgot it because she'll see me texting him about her memory problems. Week 3. My friend's mom, who's a nurse, sees me at school and asks if everything's okay at home because my mom posted in the neighborhood Facebook group asking if it's normal to read your teenager's texts at 3 a.m. The whole cul-de-sac thinks she's having a breakdown. Week 5, and mom's checking my phone every few hours, including midnight bathroom breaks. She's exhausted and paranoid. Her boutique has 12 one-star reviews because I'm not filtering customer complaints anymore. She sees me Google how to know if your parent has anxiety disorder, and we have a 3-hour fight about respect. My guidance counselor calls because I haven't submitted my college essay about overcoming challenges. I tell them I can't write about anything real because mom will read it and make it about her. The counselor asks mom directly if there are issues at home. Mom tries to explain her phone rule, but it sounds insane out loud. Dad starts taking my side, which starts daily arguments. Mom finds my friend group chat where we're discussing birth control for period cramps. She calls every single mom in the chat. 7 girls are now banned from talking to me. Their moms call her unhinged. Week 8. Grandma's sick, but texts me not to tell Mom yet because she'll make this about herself and post it everywhere for sympathy. Mom sees it while scrolling through my messages at breakfast. Mom races to the hospital screaming at Grandma about keeping secrets. Grandma, hooked up to oxygen, says the most devastating thing. This is why nobody tells you anything anymore. You've become impossible since you started invading that poor girl's privacy. Soon after, other visitors arrive. The entire family's there for Grandma, aunts, uncles, cousins. They take the opportunity to start piling on. My cousin who's studying psychology says Mom needs therapy for control issues. My aunt says this is why Mom wasn't invited to her daughter's wedding planning. My uncle mentions Mom posted 9 times about protecting children from phones, and everyone unfollowed her. Mom's crying, saying she just wanted to keep me close and safe from predators. Grandma laughs. The only predator in that child's life is you, reading her every thought like some stalker. Dad announces he's taking me to get my own phone plan tomorrow, one he'll pay for, with a passcode. Mom tries to argue, but Grandma says if she keeps this up, she'll change her will. The next morning, Mom hands me my phone. Put a passcode on it, she whispers. She looks broken. Her business closes in 3 months since I won't help anymore, and she has to get a retail job where her manager monitors her every move. She complains about being watched all day. The irony kills me.
My boss said we're all family here, so I started treating him like my actual father. I'd been killing myself for 5 years at my job when Jimmy, my boss, called me into his office on a random Tuesday. Kevin, we're demoting you, he said, not even looking up from his MacBook. My heart stopped. I've never been late, handed in my work on time. It just didn't make sense. Your position is being given to my nephew Bartholomew. He just graduated and needs leadership experience. My coffee went cold in my hand. You're demoting me to make room for your nephew? You'll be supporting him. But hey, that's what family does. We help each other out. We're all family here, remember? I just closed on a house based on my senior developer salary. My mortgage, family makes sacrifices, Kevin. Bartholomew needs this opportunity, and families support each other unconditionally. Plus, I need you working weekends. The whole team does. Family doesn't watch the clock. I stared at the motivational poster behind him. Family. Together, we achieve more. Right. Family. He beamed. See? I knew you'd understand. Family values are what make this company special. Monday morning, I walked straight into Jimmy's office without knocking. Morning, Dad, I announced cheerfully, plopping down in his chair while he was getting coffee. Family doesn't need appointments, right? His face went red. Kevin, this is highly unprofessional. But we're family. You said so yourself. Can I borrow your Tesla this weekend? Jimmy gripped his coffee mug so tight his knuckles went white. At lunch, I started eating his meal from the executive fridge. Jimmy stormed into the break room. That's my lunch. My mom always said family shares everything. Your salmon tastes great, by the way. I took another bite while maintaining eye contact. He yanked the container away, breathing heavily. Tuesday, I submitted an official request to HR for tuition reimbursement. Jimmy is like a father to me. He said so, and my dad paid for my sister's MBA. HR called Jimmy immediately. He showed up at my desk, red-faced. We don't have a tuition program, but Dad, family supports each other's growth. You supported Bartholomew's growth into my job. His jaw twitched. The quarterly board meeting made his forehead vein throb. When he introduced me to investors, I interrupted. Actually, this is my dad, Jimmy. The investors looked confused. Jimmy's smile became manic. Kevin's joking. Dad's been having memory issues lately, I stage whispered. Jimmy's face went purple. The entire room went silent. I started calling him Dad in every email, CCing the entire company. At that point, everyone called him Dad. Jimmy sent 17 emails demanding I stop. I replied all each time. Dad's cranky today. Someone needs a nap. When Bartholomew struggled with basic coding, I loudly announced, don't worry, Bartholomew. Grandpa Jimmy didn't hire you for your skills. That's what family nepotism is for. Jimmy burst from his office. Conference room, now. During his 20-minute lecture about professionalism, I just kept nodding. You're right, Dad. Family should communicate better. By Thursday, I brought my laundry to work. Dad, the machine at my apartment broke. Mind if I use yours? I started folding underwear during his client call. Then I asked his secretary for Jimmy's Netflix password because family shares streaming services. By week 2, others joined in. Kelly from accounting started calling him Papa Jimmy and asked for college tuition reimbursement. My real dad paid for my education. Caleb from IT brought his kids to the office. Uncle Jimmy can babysit while I code, right? That's what family does. His assistant said she'd never seen him take 3 Advil at once before. The hospital called him the following week. Mr. Jimmy, you're listed as Kevin's emergency contact and next of kin. He's fine. Just needs someone to sign these forms. He drove there furious, only to find me getting a routine checkup. Families take care of each other's medical decisions, Dad. By week 3, Jimmy was cracking. He stopped using the word family entirely, actually flinched when someone said it. He tried implementing professional boundaries in a memo, but no one listened. 12 of us showed up at his house for Sunday dinner. His wife answered the door, confused. Jimmy said we're family, I explained. Family has Sunday dinner together. His wife looked horrified. Jimmy pulled me aside, sweating. Please, Kevin, this needs to stop. What needs to stop, Dad? The family bond you created? His biggest client was over the house. 20 employees lined up calling him Dad, Papa, and Grandpa Jimmy, while asking for money, life advice, and someone's bail. The client asked if this was a cult. Jimmy's eyes twitched violently as I explained our beautiful family dynamic. Monday morning, Jimmy called an emergency meeting. Effective immediately, we're maintaining strict professional boundaries. We're co-workers, not family. Everyone was in shock. I raised my hand. Sorry, Dad, but I'm really embracing this family culture you built. It's brought us all closer together. Why would you want to destroy our family? His eye twitched so hard.
My husband slept through every feeding until my sister said, she fantasizes about leaving you. He finally woke up. My husband made me promise we would keep things normal after the baby was born, because he read online that babies need to adapt to your life, not the other way around. I agreed because I was 9 months pregnant and too tired to argue about his parenting theories from Reddit. The second we got home from the hospital with our 3-day-old daughter, he disappeared into his gaming room. I stood in the hallway holding our screaming baby while he told his online friends he was finally back. I spent the first 3 months doing every single night feeding while he slept peacefully in our bed. He actually bought special noise-canceling headphones so the crying wouldn't disturb his precious 8 hours of sleep. You look like you were about to drop dead, my sister Mindy said when she showed up at my front door. I hadn't seen her since the baby shower because she lived 6 hours away. When was the last time you ate actual food or slept more than an hour? She dropped her bags and immediately took the baby from my shaking arms. You have lost at least 20 pounds and your hands won't stop trembling. She pulled me into the first real hug I had gotten since giving birth. I didn't realize how much I needed a hug. Where is your husband? I pointed down the hall where he was screaming about someone stealing his kill. Mindy listened for a second, then her whole face changed completely. You have been doing this alone while he plays video games all day, haven't you? Before I could answer, she said, go shower right now while I watch the baby. Then we are going to talk about whatever this mess. She started washing the mountain of bottles that had been sitting for days. You are not doing another night alone while that waste of space pretends you don't exist. I stood under the hot water and cried harder than when I was in labor. When I came back downstairs, Mindy had the baby sleeping peacefully. You look exhausted, she said, actually looking at my face. When's the last time someone asked how you're doing? I couldn't remember. My husband hadn't asked since we left the hospital 3 months ago. He'd asked if the baby was fed, if she'd napped, but never once. How are you holding up? Your husband games every night until 4 a.m.? Mindy asked, looking at his empty gaming chair. My ex did that. I ended up hospitalized from exhaustion. He didn't visit. That hit hard. Even strangers at the grocery store asked how I was doing, but not him. I came back downstairs from my shower and stopped in the hallway when I heard voices in the kitchen. My husband had actually left his gaming room and was talking to Mindy, who was still feeding our daughter. We don't need any help, he was saying with obvious irritation in his voice. Everything's been fine here without you showing up and judging how we do things. Mindy kept calmly feeding the baby while she responded. Fine? Your wife has lost 20 pounds and hasn't slept in 3 months. I watched him grab an energy drink from the fridge and crack it open aggressively. She wanted a baby so badly, and now she complains about everything, he said. Maybe if she wasn't so dramatic about normal mom stuff, we wouldn't have issues. Mindy finally looked up at him with cold eyes. Normal mom stuff? She told me she thinks about leaving you. His hand froze halfway to his mouth with the energy drink. She fantasizes about packing up and disappearing because raising a baby alone would be easier than this. The kitchen went dead silent except for the baby's soft breathing. She already looked up divorce lawyers. My husband stormed out of the kitchen and found me standing in the hallway where I'd been listening. You were going to leave without even talking to me about it? He said, his voice cracking with panic. He grabbed both my shoulders like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go. This is our family. You can't just walk away because things got hard. Mindy appeared behind him, still holding the baby. Hard? She's been doing everything alone while you played games with teenagers online, she said. My husband spun around to face her but kept one hand gripped on my arm. Stay out of this. She's my wife and this is our marriage, he said desperately. He turned back to me with tears actually forming in his eyes. Please don't leave me. I'll delete all my games right now. I'll do every night feeding. I'll quit my guild. He was pulling me toward him like he could physically keep me from leaving. I know I messed up. We're supposed to be a team. Mindy watched him scramble with cold satisfaction. It's amazing how the threat of losing everything makes you suddenly remember you have a family, she said. I looked down at his hand gripping my arm so tight it hurt, the first time he'd touched me in months. You have 1 week, I heard myself say. 1 week to prove you actually want to be a father and husband, or I'm taking her and leaving. Later that night, I watched my husband actually hold his daughter without trying to hand her back. You missed 3 months of her life for what? He stared at the baby in his arms and couldn't answer because we both knew there was no good reason. My parents kicked me out at 16 and now want me to take care of their new daughter? My parents threw me out when I was 16 and pregnant, called me a whore, said I was dead to them, told me I'd burn in hell for spreading my legs. Mom changed the locks while I was at school, and by dinner they were eating at my empty place setting like I'd never existed. I lived behind the high school for 6 months with my growing belly, but Mrs. Crawford, my English teacher, found me eating from the cafeteria dumpster and took me in. She wasn't just some teacher being nice. She became my real mother, drove me to prenatal appointments, held my hand during labor, watched my daughter while I went to night school. She co-signed my first apartment, helped me apply for college grants, taught me how to write business proposals. I built a nonprofit for pregnant teens while raising my baby. Started with 1 apartment. Now I have facilities in 12 states. We house 300 girls a year, provide childcare, education, job training. Last year, the government gave us a $50 million grant. My daughter Judy is 15 now, honor roll, varsity soccer, wants to be a doctor. My parents never met her, never called once in 15 years, not when I graduated college, not when I won the humanitarian award, nothing. I sent them one announcement when I opened my first facility. They sent it back unopened. When Mrs. Crawford walked me down the aisle at my wedding 5 years ago, I didn't even consider inviting them. Then, completely out of nowhere, my parents showed up at my office, not to apologize, not to reconnect. They brought their adopted daughter Abigail, 16 years old and 4 months pregnant. They wanted to sign over guardianship immediately. We can't do this again, Mom said without a hint of irony. The audacity was staggering. These people who destroyed their pregnant daughter's life were trying to abandon another pregnant teenager. Dad actually brought legal paperwork, already filled out. They just needed my signature. You help these kinds of girls anyway, he said with a straight face. I told them I needed to review the documents with my lawyer, hoping they'd leave. Instead, they started bombing my phone. 20 calls before lunch, pictures of Abigail crying, threats about what would happen to her if I didn't help. You owe us for the shame you caused. God gave you this organization to fix our problem. The messages got more vicious each hour. Remember, you're still going to hell. This is your only chance at redemption. We'll tell everyone you refused to help your own sister. They even called my staff, my board members, claiming I'd already agreed to take Abigail. After 3 days of non-stop harassment, I made a plan. Give my parents one chance to do right by Abigail, then call CPS if they refused. I had already talked to Detective Walters from CPS, who told me, record the conversation. I'll have officers ready if they refuse to keep her. So, there I was with Mrs. Crawford, making the 3-hour drive to my parents' house. I literally couldn't stop shaking. Every mile made my chest tighter. I was successful now, but suddenly I was 16 again, pregnant and terrified. Mrs. Crawford noticed me rubbing my stomach, the same protective gesture from when I carried Judy. You still do that when you're scared, she said softly. The texts kept coming. Each notification made me flinch. 15 years of therapy, and their words still cut deep. We pulled up at 7 p.m. Through the window, Abigail was crying on the couch, Mom pacing, Dad with his head in his hands. She looks just like you did, Mrs. Crawford said. As Mom noticed us through the window, her face went white. Good, let them panic. They came outside before I could knock. Mom stood on the porch, arms crossed like she was defending her territory. Dad stayed by the door with Abigail, who looked smaller than any 16-year-old should. Get back in the car, Mom commanded. We'll bring Abigail to your facility tonight. I'm not going anywhere, I said, hitting record on my phone, and neither is she. Mrs. Crawford stepped forward. Mom's mouth fell open. She hadn't expected Mrs. Crawford. Detective Walters from CPS is on her way, I announced. Child abandonment is a felony. 3 to 5 years. Dad went pale. You called the police? On your own parents? I laughed, but it came out bitter. You're strangers who happen to share my DNA. Abigail started crying. Real tears, not the manipulated photos they'd sent. Please, she begged. I can't do this anymore. I need real help. Mom spun around. After everything we've done for you, Abigail? You mean threatening to throw her out? I asked. I walked past them to Abigail, handed her my card. When you're ready, call me. I understand what it's like. Mom grabbed my arm. Blue lights appeared down the street. Walters was here. Walters took Abigail to her aunt in Oregon that night, the one who'd been begging to help since she found out about the pregnancy.
Why did my allergist literally drop her clipboard when she saw what I was reacting to on the test panel. I've been dealing with these random hives for about 6 months, and nothing made sense about when they showed up. My regular doctor tried everything from food elimination diets to changing my laundry detergent, but nothing worked. Finally, she referred me to Dr. Mitchell, who supposedly handled all the weird cases nobody else could figure out. I showed up at the office that Thursday afternoon, ready to get stabbed with 100 different needles if it meant finding out what was wrong with me. Dr. Mitchell had been practicing for 25 years and seemed confident we'd figure it out quickly. The nurse prepared all these different allergen samples while Dr. Mitchell kept saying this would be straightforward once we identified the trigger. The testing started normal enough with all the common stuff on my left arm, and nothing really reacted except for ragweed, which I already knew about. Then she moved to foods on my right arm, and again, nothing showed up. Dr. Mitchell seemed puzzled and tried an expanded panel, but still nothing appeared. That's when she mentioned doing an autologous test, which I'd never heard of before. She explained sometimes people can develop sensitivities to their own biological materials, though it was extremely rare. She took samples of my saliva and tears and had me pluck a few hairs from my head to test against. I remember thinking this seemed absolutely ridiculous because how could anyone be allergic to their own body? But she insisted we should rule everything out. The nurse prepared the samples while I sat there joking about whether someone could be allergic to their own existence. When Dr. Mitchell applied the new test spots on my back, I immediately felt this burning sensation like someone had pressed a hot iron against my skin. She had me lie face down while we waited the full 15 minutes, but I could feel massive welts forming and my whole back started throbbing with this deep pulsing heat. When the timer went off, she took one look at my back and literally dropped her clipboard, which clattered on the floor while she stumbled backward into the counter. She whispered, "This can't be real," before calling the nurse in immediately, and they both stood there with their mouths open, staring at my back in complete silence. Dr. Mitchell told me that the spot where she'd placed my hair sample had produced the most severe reaction she'd seen in her entire career. The welt was the size of a tennis ball and dark purple with these angry red veins spidering out from it like lightning bolts under my skin. She showed me a photo on her phone, and I actually gasped because it looked like something was trying to claw its way out from inside my body. The spots from my saliva and tears showed nothing, but that hair reaction was so extreme. She tested it 2 more times, and both new spots swelled up just as severely within minutes. She brought in her colleague from down the hall, and he took one look and said, "Your body is literally declaring war on itself, which is medically impossible." They tested hair from my eyebrow, and every single piece caused the same violent reaction, while hair from 3 staff members did absolutely nothing. Dr. Mitchell had me cut a fresh hair sample right there with sterilized scissors, and the moment it touched my skin, the reaction was so immediate and severe that she actually grabbed my arm to steady herself. The nurse started taking photos while Dr. Mitchell made frantic phone calls, and I could hear her saying, "I need you to see this because you won't believe me otherwise, and 30 years and I've never seen anything close to this." They drew blood for more tests, and she mentioned consulting with a research hospital because this violated everything she knew about immunology. One specialist on speakerphone suggested maybe it was psychological, but then he saw the photos and went completely quiet. By the time they brought in 2 more doctors from the building, my entire back looked like I'd been attacked by some invisible creature with welts overlapping into this massive raised purple continent across my skin. 4 hours later, I left wearing a surgical cap because even a single strand touching my neck would trigger a reaction within seconds. Dr. Mitchell prescribed an emergency EpiPen and told me she was submitting my case to a medical journal because in her words, the medical community needs to see that impossible things sometimes happen anyway. She scheduled me for weekly follow-ups and mentioned researchers from 3 different universities had already called back wanting to study my case. Walking out of there, I felt like some kind of medical freak show while other patients in the waiting room stared at my wrapped head and the visible welts creeping up my neck. My roommate thought I was having a mental breakdown when I explained why I had to keep my hair completely covered every second of every day from now on. I've seen 11 different specialists in the past month, and when they test it themselves, they all get the same look on their faces like reality just broke in front of them. Last week, one immunologist literally said, "Your hair follicles are producing something that your immune system recognizes as pure poison, but that something doesn't exist in any medical textbook ever written." I sleep in a surgical cap now and shower with 2 layers of protection and carry tweezers everywhere in case a single strand falls onto my skin because within 10 seconds, that strand will create a welt that lasts for days.
A Girl Scout pounded on my door screaming, "Please let me in! He's coming!" The moment I opened the door, she sprinted inside and slammed the door shut, locking the deadbolt before I could even react. She pressed her back against a wall and hugged her knees to her chest, crying so hard she couldn't catch her breath. "What's wrong, sweetie?" I asked, bending down to look at her. I noticed the scratches on the arms and on the Girl Scout uniform. "There's a man. He's following me and he won't stop." The faster I walked, the faster he did too. I stepped into the dining area and peeked out from the blinds carefully. I saw the cookie wagon out on the sidewalk, but no sign of a man. Not even a car. The street was just empty. I wondered if maybe she was having some kind of panic attack or episode. "Sweetie, are you sure someone was following you?" She nodded and kept insisting he was real. She got up and checked window after window, looking for him. His face looked even more panicked. He was right behind me. I swear he was right there, but I could see her starting to doubt herself. She paced around the room, trying to recall the man's face. She reached up to her messy hair and lit up when she pulled something out. "I knew it. He's real. Look, this came off his jacket when he grabbed my shoulder." She handed me a navy blue button with an anchor design on it from a military uniform. The button was heavy and expensive looking and definitely came from an adult's jacket. "Okay, sweetie, I believe you. Let's call your parents." And before I could finish my sentence, I heard footsteps on my front porch, heavy boots walking slowly like someone trying not to make noise. I looked through the peephole and saw a tall man in a dark jacket standing at my door with his face turned away. The Girl Scout held onto my shirt nervously. "Is it him?" she whispered. I nodded, putting a finger to my lip. "Shh." I took the girl's hand and hid her behind the couch while I went to grab a bat from upstairs. The man knocked 3 times and waited. When I didn't answer, he knocked again, harder. "Hello? I know you're home. I saw a girl come inside. Can you open up?" His voice was deep and calm, which somehow made it scarier. "Go away before I call the police," I shouted through the door, but the man still didn't move. He stood there shifting his weight like he was deciding what to do next. And then I saw him reaching into his jacket pocket carefully. "Police? I am the police, honey. It's me. You can open the door now." I froze, recognizing the voice. The little girl screamed, "What are you doing?" while I reached out and opened the door. I set the bat down and stared at my husband. He held out his police badge in one hand and the cookie wagon in the other. "Honey, what are you doing acting all creepy? You scared this poor girl half to death." He stepped inside. "I'm sorry. There have been 3 Girl Scouts who went missing this week. The suspects are still at large. I needed to make sure she got home safe. The Girl Scout started crying again, but this time from relief. I thought you were trying to kidnap me. Of course not, he said, laughing, but there was something more. I pulled my husband to the kitchen while the girl waited for her phone to charge to call her mom. Nice job with the fake badge, I whispered. Looks like we got another one. He grinned back, grabbing the baseball bat I had dropped earlier.
What's the most elaborate prank someone planned from their deathbed? My Uncle Harold called me to his hospital bed 3 days before he died and handed me a thick envelope. Open this at my funeral during the eulogy, he wheezed, that familiar mischief in his eyes. Promise me, Timothy, right when your father starts talking about what a disappointment I was. I promised, though I should have known better. Harold was the family failure. Never married, no kids, lived in a trailer, worked odd jobs. My father and aunts constantly reminded him how he'd wasted his potential. Every family gathering ended with someone lecturing Harold about responsibility while he just smiled and nodded. When he got cancer, they suddenly cared, hovering around his hospital bed asking about his affairs and whether he'd made arrangements. The funeral was exactly what Harold predicted. My father stood at the podium going on about missed opportunities and poor choices, barely disguising his contempt as grief. That's when I opened the envelope. Inside was a single page and a USB drive labeled Play Me Now. I walked to the funeral home's AV system and plugged it in. Harold appeared on screen, very much alive, sitting in his hospital bed grinning. Hello, family. If you're watching this, William just finished explaining what a loser I was. Time for some truth. My father went pale. First, let's discuss money since you're all wondering what happened to mine. William, remember when Dad left me $50,000 and you convinced me to invest it in your restaurant? The one that mysteriously burned down? I know you torched it for insurance money. I have the security footage. Gasps filled the room. My father started toward the screen but froze when Harold continued. Patricia, sweet sister, you've been stealing from Mom's nursing home account for 6 years. I have the bank records. Already sent them to the authorities yesterday, so expect a visit soon. My Aunt Patricia ran for the door, but 2 police officers were already walking in. Gordon, baby brother, your wife doesn't know about your second family in Denver. She does now, though. I mailed her everything last week. Check your phone. Gordon's phone exploded with texts. His wife stood up, threw her wedding ring at him, and walked out. Now for the fun part. You all assumed I was broke. Actually, I've been quite successful. See, 30 years ago, I bought a silly little tech stock called Apple with that insurance money I got from documenting William's fraud. Never touched it. As of yesterday, it's worth $4.2 million. The room went silent. I also patented 17 inventions while working those odd jobs you mocked. The royalties alone paid me $200,000 a year. That trailer? I owned the whole trailer park. Sold it last year for $1.8 million. Harold coughed on screen, then smiled wider. Here's the beautiful part. I'm leaving everything to charity. Every penny. The children's hospital, the animal shelter, the library, they're all getting chunks. Except for one thing. He held up a ceramic garden gnome. This ugly gnome goes to whoever confesses their worst family secret on camera right now. Inside, it is a check for $100,000. You have 60 seconds starting now. The room erupted. Patricia screamed about Gordon's tax evasion. Gordon revealed Patricia's affair with the mailman. My father admitted to stealing Harold's baseball card collection and selling it for drug money in college. My cousin admitted to being the one who actually burned down the restaurant for my father. They all talked over each other, confessing everything. Meanwhile, I noticed another note in the envelope. Timothy, check under your car's passenger seat when this circus ends. After the chaos died down and police arrested Patricia, I went to my car. Under the seat was a small box containing a key and an address. The address led to a storage unit filled with Harold's actual valuables, his vintage guitar collection, signed first editions, and a letter. Timothy, you're the only one who visited me without asking about money. You brought me terrible hospital coffee and listened to my stories. The gnome was a fake. There's no money in it. But this storage unit is yours. Sell it, keep it, whatever makes you happy. The guitars alone are worth about $300,000. Also, I filmed every visit from the family where they asked about my will. It's uploaded to YouTube. The ad revenue goes to you. Current view count, 2.3 million. P.S. The gnome is actually filled with glitter and a spring mechanism. It'll explode in about 10 minutes. Love, Harold. I drove away as I heard the faint sound of an explosion and shrieking from the funeral home. The video went viral as greatest deathbed prank ever. I still have Harold's guitar, the one he taught me to play on during those hospital visits. Sometimes I swear I can hear him laughing when I play it. The family doesn't talk to me anymore. Harold would be so proud.
My 4-year-old nephew looked at his cousin during Thanksgiving dinner and asked, "Who hits you?" 20 family members stopped eating and stared at Charlie in his booster seat. I wanted to disappear because Charlie always said whatever popped into his head at the worst times, but this was really bad. "Charlie, let's go watch cartoons," I said while trying to get him out of his chair, but he pushed my hands away. He stood up on his seat and pointed right at his cousin Alina again. "Alina has purple marks like my friend Benny had from the bad teacher," Charlie said loudly. The room stayed totally quiet until Arthur, Alina's stepdad, laughed in this nasty way. "What kind of stupid kid makes up stories like that?" he said while glaring at Charlie. "Someone needs to teach him to shut his mouth." I started saying sorry and telling everyone that Charlie's preschool had problems with a teacher who hit kids and got arrested last month. "I don't give a shit about your excuses, just control your brat before I do," Arthur snapped at me. But then Alina's grandma asked Charlie what marks he was talking about. Charlie climbed right onto the table, which made everyone yell, but he kept talking. "Big purple ones and little finger ones all over her arms and legs," Charlie said while pointing at Alina. "I saw them when we were playing before dinner." Charlie looked at Arthur and then back at Alina. "Alina always looks scared of you." Alina looked like she might throw up and just stared at her plate while her mom looked back and forth between Alina and Arthur. Arthur jumped up from his chair so fast it fell over backward. "This is complete bullshit, you lying little bastard," he yelled with spit flying from his mouth. "Alina, tell them right now that you are a clumsy little idiot who falls down the stairs." But Alina just sat there shaking and tears started rolling down her face. Alina's teenage brother cleared his throat and everyone turned to him. "Arthur goes in Alina's room super late at night when mom's sleeping," he said in a shaky voice. "I recorded him on my phone telling her that if she makes any noise, he will do it harder and longer." Arthur's whole face turned purple and he lunged at the brother. "You little shit, stop lying, I will fucking end you," he screamed while other family members held him back. He was thrashing around trying to get free. "All of you are dead to me. I can't believe you would listen to lies from these meddling kids." He broke free and started moving fast toward Alina. "We are leaving right now, and if you say one word, you know what happens," he hissed at Alina. Her dad got up and stood in the way while Alina ran to her grandma and hid her face. Alina's mom walked over to Alina with tears streaming down her face. "Baby, let me see your legs," she said with her voice shaking as she knelt down. Alina was crying so hard she couldn't breathe. "No, Mommy. He said he would hurt you bad if you ever saw." Arthur's face twisted into something evil. "Don't you dare look, you stupid bitch," he snarled at his wife. "I own both of you and we are leaving right now." Arthur tried to grab Alina, but she screamed like I had never heard a kid scream before. "No, he'll hurt me worse. Please don't let him take me," she sobbed while clinging to her grandma. The whole room erupted with aunts crying and uncles moving to block every exit while my sister ran to call 911. Arthur was completely trapped and he knew it. "You want to know the truth?" he screamed while looking around wildly. "Yeah, I discipline her because someone has to. Her mom's too weak and pathetic." He turned to Alina, who was shaking violently. "Tell them how you deserve it for being bad. Tell them how you never listen." Alina's brother held up his phone. "I have 3 videos of you going into her room," he said loudly. "In one of them, you are threatening to end us all if she tells anyone." Arthur tried to charge at him again, but got tackled by 2 uncles. "When I get out, I know where you go to school. I know where all of you live," Arthur screamed from the floor. "Alina knows what happens to little girls who tell lies. Don't you, Alina?" Alina finally spoke in a tiny, broken voice that made everyone lean in. "He makes me take my pajamas off and hits me with his belt until I stop crying," she whispered. "He says I'm a bad girl and I have to learn to be quiet." Her mom let out a sound like an animal and threw herself at Arthur, scratching at his face while screaming that she was going to end him. When the cops arrived, they took Arthur away in handcuffs while he screamed threats. My ex-husband called CPS on me during our custody battle. They investigated him instead. My ex-husband Joshua had been building his case against me ever since the judge ordered him to pay child support. Joshua decided he wanted full custody so he wouldn't have to pay me a single cent. He bought a hidden camera to film our 8-year-old daughter Tracy during his weekends, trying to catch her saying something bad about me so that he could use it as evidence. He even paid his cousin to break into my apartment and plant recording devices. I work as a nurse at the hospital and sometimes my shifts run late, so Joshua started documenting every single minute I was late picking her up. He'd also take photos during his custody weekends, but only the ones that looked terrible. A photo of Tracy making herself a sandwich became proof of child abandonment. A small bruise from playing soccer became proof of physical abuse. "Kimberly is going down hard," he told his brother while showing him the folder of evidence. "When I'm done with her, she will never see Tracy again." When the doorbell rang on a Tuesday morning, I knew something was wrong immediately. The night before, Joshua had sent me a text that said, "Enjoy your last day with her." He told me I should be grateful if the judge let me see Tracy at Christmas. Now Mrs. Hendricks from Child Protective Services stood at my door with official paperwork. Joshua had actually gone through with his threat to destroy my life. "Your ex-husband filed an emergency report claiming that your daughter is in immediate danger," Mrs. Hendricks said, stepping inside. "He claims you leave Tracy alone for entire nights while you party with men." The accusations got worse with every page she turned. "He says you have been starving her and she has lost 15 pounds in 2 months." Another page flip showed photos Joshua had edited to make Tracy look skinnier. He claims Tracy told him she's terrified of you and begs not to go home. My hands were shaking because I knew Tracy would never say that. He even got 3 people to sign statements saying they've seen you driving drunk to school pickup. Mrs. Hendricks walked through my house checking everything while I scrambled to defend myself. I showed her the full refrigerator and freezer packed with Tracy's favorite foods. I pulled out medical records from Tracy's checkup 2 weeks ago, showing perfect health. I explained that my mother lives 2 houses down and watches Tracy whenever I have to work late. Joshua actually called our office demanding to be present for this home inspection, so I asked him to join us. The doorbell rang again, and there was Joshua in his expensive suit, looking smug. "I just want what's best for Tracy," he said to Mrs. Hendricks while pulling out his own folder. "I have more evidence here showing Kimberly is a terrible mother if you need it." Mrs. Hendricks looked at him for a long moment. "Actually, Joshua, I'm glad you're here. We need to discuss something extremely serious." She pulled out a folder 3 times thicker than the one Joshua brought. "We've been investigating you for 4 months based on 23 separate reports." Joshua's smug grin melted off his face like wax as she spread out pages covered in official stamps. 15 different people have called our hotline about your treatment of Tracy." She started reading while Joshua's mouth hung open. "Your neighbor called after finding Tracy locked outside in freezing rain for 3 hours." Joshua started to speak, but Mrs. Hendricks kept going. "Another neighbor reported hearing you scream, 'I wish you'd never been born,' at your daughter." His hand started shaking as she flipped to another page. "The building manager found Tracy sleeping in the laundry room at 2 in the morning because you wouldn't let her back in." Joshua tried to interrupt, saying this was all lies, but Mrs. Hendricks pulled out a sworn statement. "Your girlfriend Jessica called us after witnessing you make Tracy stand facing the wall for 8 hours straight without food, water, or bathroom breaks. She had recordings of Joshua telling Tracy she was garbage, who ruined his life. She also filmed you slamming Tracy against a wall when she cried for her mother." Mrs. Hendricks showed me the video, and hearing my daughter sobbing made me want to vomit. "This is all fake. Kimberly set this up," Joshua started yelling, but Mrs. Hendricks wasn't finished. "Mr. Joshua, the most damaging evidence came from you." She pulled out his report against me with sections highlighted in yellow. "You wrote right here that you've been the perfect father every single weekend for 4 months." She showed him his own handwriting listing dates and times. "March 15th, you wrote Tracy was safe and happy with you all day, but that's when your neighbor called about her being locked outside." She matched up every date Joshua had listed with a matching abuse report. "March 22nd, you claim you gave Tracy the best day ever, but that's when she was found in the laundry room." Joshua stood up, knocking his chair over, screaming, "This is entrapment. You can't do this." Mrs. Hendricks stayed perfectly calm. "By documenting that you were responsible for Tracy on these exact dates, you've given us written proof you were present for every incident." She pulled out emergency paperwork. Joshua tried to grab for the papers, but Mrs. Hendricks pulled them away. "I'm filing for immediate removal of all your parental rights, and the police are already on their way. The judge granted me permanent full custody of Tracy, and Joshua still has to pay child support from jail, where he's serving 18 months for child endangerment."
My girlfriend's brothers tried to destroy our relationship, and I couldn't be more grateful. I knew dating Rachel meant getting past her 3 older brothers, but I had no idea they'd turned protecting her into a military operation. She'd been with a guy named Jeff for 2 years, and he'd broken her jaw when she tried to leave him. So now her brothers treated every man who looked at her like a potential threat. The first time I picked her up for dinner, her oldest brother answered the door holding a baseball bat like he was stepping up to home plate. The middle brother stood behind him, cracking his knuckles, while the youngest just stared at me, taking photos with his phone, probably for some criminal database they were building. Rachel pushed past them, looking mortified, but I caught the oldest one mouthing, "We're watching you," as we walked to my car. They threw literally everything at me to see if I'd crack or run away screaming. Every restaurant we went to, somehow one brother would already be there pretending to read a menu upside down while photographing my every move. During our 3rd date, the youngest brother actually sat down at our table uninvited and said, "So, what exactly are your intentions with our sister? Because we've got shovels, and we know how to use them. Instead of getting angry, I looked him straight in the eye and said, my intention is to never give you a reason to use them, which made him blink first. They ran background checks and left the results on my windshield with certain things circled in red marker like a teacher grading papers. The middle brother created a fake Instagram profile as a woman named Jessica and sent me messages trying to get me to cheat, but I just screenshot everything and sent them to Rachel saying, your brother needs to work on his catfishing skills because Jessica types exactly like him. When they followed us to the movies, I bought them popcorn and had the usher deliver it to their seats with a note saying, next time just join us instead of lurking, which actually made the youngest one laugh. I started leaving gift cards for coffee on their trucks when I spotted them tailing us with notes like, stalking must be exhausting, so caffeine's on me, and eventually the oldest brother actually used one. The breakthrough came when I showed up at their mother's birthday dinner, even though Rachel warned me they'd told me the wrong time on purpose. I arrived 3 hours early with flowers for their mom and helped her cook, while she told me embarrassing stories about all 4 of her kids. By the time everyone else arrived, I was wearing her apron and knew about the time the oldest brother cried, watching The Lion King at age 16. He pulled me aside later and said, that was sneaky as hell, but he was almost smiling when he said it. After 2 months of this dance where I matched every test with patience and humor, the middle brother finally asked me directly, why haven't you given up yet? We've broken 7 guys before you. I told him the truth that Rachel was worth whatever bizarre hazing ritual they needed to put me through. The real test came during Rachel's company holiday party when I stepped outside for air and found all 3 brothers waiting by my car. The oldest one stepped forward and said, she's getting attached and we need to know if you're going to hurt her. Before I could answer, we heard Rachel scream from the parking garage and saw her backing away from a man I recognized from photos as Jeff, who'd been released early for good behavior. Her brothers froze, but I shoved past them and put myself between Jeff and Rachel. Jeff laughed and said, who's this clown supposed to be? And I said, someone who's not afraid of you, even though my hands were shaking. When he swung at me, I didn't dodge because backing up would have put him closer to Rachel, so I took the hit and kept standing. The brothers jumped in then, pulling him down while I held Rachel behind me, blood running from my nose but still standing between her and him until the cops arrived. After that night, the whole dynamic shifted like someone had rewritten all the rules overnight. The oldest brother started inviting me to watch fights, and between rounds he'd teach me defensive moves, saying, you've got heart, but your technique needs work if you're going to keep standing guard. The middle brother helped me fix my car when it broke down and spent 3 hours explaining exactly how Jeff had manipulated Rachel so I'd recognize the signs if anyone tried to hurt her again. The youngest sent me funny videos, but also articles about trauma recovery with notes like, thought you should understand what she's still working through. They included me in planning Rachel's birthday, keeping it secret for weeks, and trusting me to pick up the cake without supervision, which felt like passing some final exam I didn't know I was taking. When I asked Rachel to move in with me, I told her brothers first, not asking permission but showing respect, and the oldest one said, about damn time. Mom already considers you her 4th son anyway.
What moment made you go no contact with family? My sister Tara got a German Shepherd for her 16th birthday. I got a card. The dog's name was Jax, and he cost $3,000 from a champion bloodline. My parents built him a heated doghouse that cost more than my car. When Jax bit me the first week, Dad said I must have bothered him. Jax killed my childhood cat Peaches 3 months later. I'd raised Peaches from a kitten, bottle fed her when she was abandoned. I found her lifeless in the backyard one morning. My parents shrugged and said cats were boring anyway, that dogs had personality. They refused to let me bury her properly because it might upset Jax to smell another animal in his yard. I buried Peaches at my friend's house and cried alone. I paid for my own college working 3 jobs. Tara dropped out sophomore year to become a dog trainer. She'd never trained Jax to even sit yet. My parents bought her a $40,000 mobile grooming van for her new career. The business lasted 2 months. When I graduated nursing school with honors, my parents couldn't make it to graduation. Jax had a vet appointment. When Tara's dog turned 1, they threw a party with 50 guests. Then Jax attacked my neighbor's poodle. My parents paid the vet bills and bought Tara a second German Shepherd to keep Jax company. When I asked for help with my textbooks, Mom said that's my responsibility. The second dog's name was Athena. She was worse than Jax. Together they destroyed my childhood bedroom during Thanksgiving. I found Peach's hidden toys under my bed torn to shreds. My parents laughed and said dogs will be dogs. Everything unraveled when I met Steven. We dated 2 years before getting engaged. My parents said they were thrilled but never asked about wedding plans. When I mentioned wedding costs, they suggested courthouse ceremonies were more intimate. At the same time, Tara announced Jax needed surgery for hip dysplasia. My parents spent $15,000 without blinking. Then Jax destroyed my wedding dress during the fitting. Tara had brought him to my appointment uninvited. He jumped on me with muddy paws and tore the train clean off. The dress was ruined beyond repair. Tara laughed and said I should have picked something less delicate. The seamstress said it would need complete replacement. Mom said that seemed excessive for one day. To make things worse, 3 venues banned us because of Jax. Tara had insisted he be the ring bearer, but when venues saw his bite history, they refused our booking. When I complained, my parents said I was being bridezilla about a silly tradition. Find somewhere dog-friendly or they wouldn't attend. Tara suggested her backyard, the backyard where Jax and Athena had destroyed all grass and flowers. Steven's family carried our wedding. His parents offered their beautiful property upstate. No dogs allowed on the grounds due to insurance. Perfect. I sent invitations 4 months early with clear instructions. My parents RSVP'd yes immediately. The date was set for June 15th. 2 weeks before the wedding, Mom called. Did you realize June 15th was Jax's 10th birthday? They'd already planned his party, rented a dog park, hired a pet photographer, and ordered a meat cake. Can't you move your wedding? Jax only turns 10 once. I reminded her I only get married once. You'll understand when you have an animal you care about. As if I wasn't her child. As if Peaches hadn't meant everything to me. The wedding day came and my parents never showed. Mom texted during hair and makeup saying they couldn't abandon Jax on his birthday. Tara needed help with his party since 50 guests were coming. This is my wedding day, Mom. Divorces happen often. Jax's milestone birthday is once in a lifetime. Steven's father walked me down the aisle and his mother gave the parent speech. His family filled every empty seat on my side. They welcomed me with tears and joy, while my birth family brought nothing but disappointment. That night, I saw pictures online from Jax's party. My parents were smiling bigger than I'd ever seen. 8 months later, at midnight, Tara called sobbing hysterically. Jax had attacked a child at the park. The family was suing and criminal charges were filed. They needed character witnesses saying Jax was gentle. They needed a veterinary expert to testify. They knew I'd become certified in animal behavior through my education. Please, we need your help. Jax will be taken away without your testimony. The dog who killed Peaches, who destroyed my wedding dress, who they chose over my wedding day. You're the only one who can save him. Family helps family. Where was family on my wedding day? That was different. It was his birthday. Dad took the phone. Don't be selfish. Your sister needs you. We all need you. The very first time they'd needed me for anything. You have the credentials credentials to save Jax. Don't let him go away because of your selfishness. You chose Jax's birthday party over my wedding. You can't be serious. He's family. So was I. So was Peaches. We'll never forgive you if Jax dies. They both yelled over the phone. You treat that dog better than you ever treated me. I'm done being neglected. I hung up. They called 17 times that night. I blocked them all. I overheard the mall Santa on his phone saying, I've got 3 kids in line you might want to look at. He paused and glanced over at the kids in the line. Yeah, the youngest is probably 5 or 6. I'll get you the photos when I get them isolated. My whole body went cold hearing that word. Isolated. I pulled my daughter Annie closer to me. Santa hung up and walked back to his chair with his usual jolly smile like he hadn't just said the most terrifying thing a parent could hear. I bent down and faced my daughter. Annie, let's take a picture with Santa next year, okay? She shook her head. No, my wish won't come true. I stared at her, even wondered if I should tell her that Santa's not real at that moment, but I couldn't ruin the magic for her, so I nodded and went in line with her. The little boy ahead of us climbed onto Santa's lap and started listing what he wanted for Christmas. Normal Santa stuff until the boy mentioned his friend from school. Yeah, Tyler hasn't been there since before Thanksgiving. Santa pulled out his personal phone while the kid was still sitting on him. Is this Tyler? He showed the boy a photo on his screen. The boy shook his head. Santa scrolled through more pictures. How about him? Or her? He kept swiping through what looked like dozens of photos of children. The boy didn't recognize any of them and finally got his candy cane and left. I felt even more nervous. Were those kids his victims? Was he here to make sure there aren't any witnesses left? Before I could react, it was finally our turn. Annie climbed up and immediately told Santa she wanted a Nintendo Switch. Santa chuckled and told her it was a great wish. He then asked what grade she was in and if she liked her teacher. Again, normal questions that every mall Santa asked. But then his questions shifted. Are you and your friends excited for Christmas? Annie grinned and nodded. Yes, it means no school, except for Lily because she hasn't been at school since Halloween. Santa's expression changed completely. He handed Annie a yellow candy cane instead of the red ones I'd seen him give other kids. Then he wrote something down in a notebook beside him. Immediately, the alarms rang off in my head. This guy dressed as Santa was targeting my child and all the kids who received a yellow candy cane, and I had to stop it. I rushed over to a nearby mall security officer by the food court and explained the situation. The call, the pictures, the color-coded candy canes, but the officer sighed. Ma'am, please just let him do his job. But I refused to give up. I marched straight back toward the Santa, watching him pull a shy little girl with braided hair onto his lap. For some reason, Santa didn't even ask her what she wanted for Christmas. He took one look at her and stood up from his throne. He handed her a green candy cane and shouted as loud as he could, "Merry Christmas, everyone!" The second those words left his mouth, 3 security guards sprinted toward the little girl's father. The father grabbed the girl and tried to run, but they tackled him before he made it 5 steps. What are you doing to her father? You've got the wrong guy, I yelled, pointing at the Santa. That's when the little girl with braids screamed, I want my real mommy. The same officer who dismissed me was now putting handcuffs on the man while calling for backup. Police arrived within minutes, and I heard one of them say, that's definitely her. She's been missing since October. I was completely wrong, but the truth was also something I never would have guessed. Santa was a retired detective, responsible for finding over 50 missing children across several states in disguise. And the candy canes? Yellow meant a child mentioned knowing someone who might be missing, and green meant he'd found one. The officer who dismissed me had been part of the operation the whole time. The worst part of it all was that the Santa was out here looking for his own granddaughter, believing she'd still turn up one of these days, but she wasn't going to. I made sure of it.
My dad followed me everywhere for 2 months, until I exposed his big secret. Dad barges into my room at 7 a.m., demanding to know where I'm going today, who I'm seeing, and what time I'll be back. Basketball practice, I tell him, and suddenly he announces he's driving me there and picking me up, even though I've been driving myself for 6 months. From now on, I need to know your exact location at all times, he says, installing a tracking app on my phone right there. If you delete it or turn it off, you lose the car. Mom walks by and I ask her what's going on. She makes up an excuse saying, your father's just being protective, but this isn't protection, it's surveillance. That afternoon, I'm at the mall with friends when Dad literally appears behind me at the food court. Thought you said you'd be at your friend's house after practice, he says, arms crossed. I explain we decided to grab food first, but he's already checking my phone, scrolling through my texts. The next day, he shows up at my job at Target during my break, interrogating me about a girl who commented on my Instagram. Who's Jenny? Why haven't I heard about her? I tell him she's just someone from another school, and his eyes narrow. What school? What's her last name? When I say it's not a big deal, he explodes. Everything's a big deal when you're hiding things from me. He demands I share my location 24/7, starts following me to practice, waits in the parking lot during work, and checks my phone every night. Mom thinks he's having a midlife crisis, but I know better. Dad thinks I'm up to something. Well, 3 weeks go by and Dad's surveillance has reached insane levels. He's accidentally showing up at the bookstore, coffee shop, even waiting outside theaters to give me a ride home. This was a huge problem because I was actually dating Jenny, the girl he suspected, but my dad had forbidden me from dating anyone who came from a private school. Anyone who goes to private school is an entitled brat. Stay away from them. That's what they'd always said. So I had to manage meeting Jenny and dodging Dad's control at the same time. That day, Jenny and I were at a taco place across town when Dad texted me, library closes in 30 minutes, need a ride? I panicked and raced back, but he was already in the parking lot. Funny thing, the librarian said you never came in, he says, studying my face. But when I asked him what he was doing on this side of town when his office is 40 minutes away, he got defensive. I had a meeting nearby. His shirt was untucked and I swear I smelled perfume that wasn't Mom's. I make up something about study rooms in back, but he's not buying it. Jenny started to get paranoid after that. Maybe we should just tell them, but I know my parents would forbid me from seeing her. Week 5, Dad installs a tracking app for emergency safety. I check the history and he's viewing my location 30 times daily. It's insane, but when I pointed out that he never shares his location with us, he snapped, I'm the parent. I don't need to be tracked. Something was definitely off about that. Jenny and I finally got a break when Dad had a client meeting he couldn't reschedule. He was weirdly specific about it. I'll be gone from 1 to 5 p.m. Don't come home early. When I asked which client, he mumbled something and changed the subject. Plus, he was wearing cologne and his nice watch, things he never wears for actual work meetings. Have fun at your meeting, I said, and he looked panicked for a second before recovering. We headed to her house since her mom was supposed to be away. Jenny was laughing about how paranoid my dad was, doing an impression of him interrogating me about Instagram comments. Who's Jenny? What school? She mocked, and we were both cracking up as we turned onto her street. But then I saw it, and my blood turned to ice. Dad's silver Honda was parked in Jenny's driveway. Jenny grabbed my arm. Why is your dad's car at my house? My mind started racing. Did he track me here somehow? Did he find out about us? Was he waiting inside to confront us? But something was off. If Dad came here to bust us, why would he park in the driveway where I'd obviously see it? We used Jenny's key and walked in quietly. From upstairs, we heard laughter. Jenny's mom's voice and a man's. Jenny's face was pure confusion. Wait, my mom is supposed to be in Boston. We crept up the stairs and the master bedroom door was half open. Through the crack, I saw my dad in Jenny's mom's bed, both of them half dressed, drinking wine at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Dad, what the hell? Are you cheating on Mom? I yelled, shoving the door open. He scrambled up, grabbing for his shirt, while Jenny's mom shrieked and pulled up the sheets. Jenny stood frozen beside me. Everything suddenly made sense. Dad hadn't been suspicious of me at all. He just needed to know exactly where I'd be, so he could be somewhere else, screwing my girlfriend's mother.
I married a stranger for a dying girl's wish, but now I don't want to get divorced. I've worked at Make-A-Wish for 3 years. Most kids ask to meet their favorite celebrities or go to Disney World, maybe even meet Spider-Man. But this little 9-year-old girl, Evie, was different. When I asked what she wanted the most in the whole world, she said excitedly, "I want to see my daddy get married again." Me and the other staff in the room were shocked to silence. She grabbed her father's phone and showed me a picture of her parents' wedding day. See how daddy smiled? He stopped when mommy went to heaven and when I got sick. Her father Lawrence stood in the corner mortified. "Evie, sweetie, we talked about this." She shook her head, oxygen tubes rustling. "But it's really my wish," she pouted. "Who will smile with you when I'm gone?" I'd lost my mom at her age. I knew that worry. What if we could make this happen? Would that make you happy, Evie? She nodded her head furiously. Yes, 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 yes. Lawrence started to protest, but Evie grabbed his hand. "Please, daddy." He looked at his daughter, then at me, and nodded. Evie became the world's most determined wedding planner. I watched Say Yes to the Dress with mommy when I was little, so we started with the dresses. She picked out a dozen and sat on the couch, judging each one rigorously whenever I walked out. At cake tasting, Evie could barely eat, but insisted on trying every chocolate slice. "Daddy pretends he likes vanilla, but he always steals chocolate," she whispered. I laughed. "Don't worry, I'll keep it a secret." And while most of it was fun, the dance lessons were awkward. Lawrence moved around stiffly, holding me like I was a cactus. When he stepped on my foot for the 4th time, I stepped on his back, grinning. "That's payback," I joked. His shoulders instantly relaxed, and the rest of the practice went smoothly. But each day that the planning went on, Evie got weaker. More excited, but definitely weaker. So while she rested at the hospital, preparing for the big day, Lawrence and I finished decorating her wheelchair and helping organize the venue. "It's really nice of you to do this for us," Lawrence said, working on the string of lights. She hadn't smiled like this since her mother passed. "I was 6 when my mom passed too," I told him with a soft smile. "In a way, I'm thankful I get to be a part of this. I'm thankful it's you too. I can't imagine any other person doing this with us," he said, looking at me just as the fairy lights he was setting up turned on. We stood there for a while, staring while my heart raced, and I hoped and prayed he didn't look at me like this, just because of a wish. The morning of the wedding, Evie did my hair with shaking hands. "After you get married, can I call you mommy?" My chest squeezed painfully. I pulled her into a hug. "Anything you want," I whispered. When I walked down the aisle, Lawrence's eyes filled with tears, and I realized my wish had also come true at that moment. We were in love. Evie walked beside me with her walker, using all her strength to throw flowers on the sides of my veil, just as she wanted. Lawrence and I read our vows to each other, but Evie surprised us with her own. She looked at me first. "Do you promise to make my daddy laugh again? And make sure he still gets cereal on weekends and watches cartoons on weekdays when I'm not here?" I looked at this brave little girl, wiping away my tears. "I promise." Then she turned to Lawrence, whose eyes were already filled with tears before she started reading to him. "Hi, Daddy. Thank you for my last wish. I love my dress, and I love the flowers and glitter on my wheelchair and walker. I love you very much, and now 2 people can love you." My dream came true. They hugged each other while the entire room burst into sniffles and tears. The rest of the ceremony went by quickly, but the kiss felt the longest. Lawrence cupped my face and pressed his lips to mine slowly, like he was saying thank you, and I'm sorry, and I love you, all at once. We opened wedding gifts in their living room that night. Evie laughed at a funny card and gasped when she saw money in the envelope. "This was the best day ever," she said, sitting between us on the couch. Then she went rigid. Lawrence caught her while she collapsed, nearly falling onto the floor while her body started seizing up. I quickly called 911. 9-year-old girl, terminal patient, collapsed. Evie's eyes opened slightly like she was looking without seeing. She said with a fading voice, "Oh, hi, Mommy. I've missed you. Did you see the wedding I made?" The ambulance was 5 minutes away.
What's something your parents told you that you later found out was a complete lie? My feet hurt every single day, and I thought that was just how shoes worked. My parents had explained to me when I was little that shoes came in exactly 5 sizes: toddler, child, teenager, adult woman, and adult man, which as a kid made total sense. They told me I was lucky because some countries only had 3 sizes, and everyone just had to make do with whatever was closest to fitting them properly. When my friend Liam invited me over to work on our biology project, I almost canceled because the walk to his house meant 40 minutes of that deep burning ache that started in my heels and shot up through my ankles with every step. I'd learned to walk on the outer edges of my feet to minimize the pressure, but a 40-minute walk meant I'd be feeling it for days afterwards. I wrapped my feet in extra socks like I always did, even though it made the shoes even tighter because the cushioning helped a little and started walking. We had a presentation due Monday, and Liam was the only person who actually understood the material. Halfway there, I had to stop and pretend to check my phone while I shifted my weight back and forth, trying to get the numbness to go away, because when my feet went numb, that meant the real pain was coming soon. His house was normal looking from the outside, but when I got inside and took off my shoes, I noticed something weird about their front closet. There were like 20 pairs of shoes, all in different sizes, even though though only 3 people lived there. The relief of getting my shoes off was so intense that I actually sighed out loud, and Liam's mom glanced at my socks, which were damp with sweat from the pain, and she got this strange look on her face, but just offered me some water. Liam must have seen me staring at all the shoes, because he laughed and said his mom had a shoe shopping problem. But I was looking at the boxes on the shelf, and each one had different numbers on them, like 7.5 and 9 and 10.5, which made no sense. When we got to his room, I kept flexing my feet, trying to get feeling back in my toes, and finally Liam asked if I was okay, and I mentioned stepping wrong during the walk over. He immediately asked what shoe size I wore because he had some old running shoes that might be more comfortable, and I told him teenager size, obviously. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head and said, "No, what number size are you?" That's when my whole world cracked open. Liam explained that shoes came in numbered sizes with half sizes in between, and everyone had a specific measurement for their feet, and you were supposed to wear the exact size that matched your foot length and width. He Googled something on his phone, and then grabbed a piece of paper from his printer and put it on the floor, telling me to stand on it with my heel against the wall, and when he looked at where my toe ended and checked the chart, his face went white. "Dude, you're a size 10 and a half, but those shoes you were wearing are like an 8 at most. How are you even walking?" I tried to explain that teenager size was just what you wore between child and adult, but he was already pulling boxes from his closet, and when he handed me a pair of size 11 sneakers and my feet slid in with room to spare and no pressure on any of my toes, I literally started crying right there in his bedroom. The absence of pain was so foreign that my brain couldn't process it, and I just stood there sobbing while Liam grabbed 2 more pairs, saying I could have them all because his mom was always telling him to clear out his closet anyway. Then he looked at me with a worried expression and said, "Your parents really never told you about shoe sizes?" And all I could do was shake my head, because if I opened my mouth I would have screamed. I took a few steps around his room, and for the first time in my life my feet just touched the ground normally, without having to calculate which part would hurt less. Liam's mom drove me home because she insisted it was too late to walk. I saw Liam looking out the window at our house with its peeling paint and the broken mailbox, and I waited for him to say something about how we obviously couldn't afford proper shoes, but instead he just said, "See you tomorrow for the presentation, and bring those old shoes because my mom wants to report them to someone," which made no sense, but I nodded anyway because I was too overwhelmed to ask questions. That night, I gave my little sister a pair of smaller shoes Liam had given me, and even though they were huge on her, she hugged me and whispered, "They don't hurt."
What happened when you were forced to ignore a child begging for help? My foster daughter Alexis was literally hiding behind my legs when the social worker knocked on our door. Her birth mom gets visits starting tomorrow, judge's orders, she announced like it was nothing. I pointed down at this terrified 6-year-old clinging to me. "This kid wakes up screaming about her mother every single night until she throws up," I said. The social worker actually rolled her eyes at me. "That's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" I pulled Alexis out from behind me to show her. "Look at her. She's literally shaking right now just hearing us talk about it." The social worker didn't even glance at the kid. Her mom finished her anger management classes, so she gets visits now, period. "These visits will be unsupervised starting week 3, she said while Alexis started crying harder. After 8 visits, her mom can apply to get full custody back. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That first visit was absolute hell from the second we pulled into the parking lot. Alexis threw up chunks of scrambled eggs all over the sidewalk while screaming, "Please don't make go, please." The second we walked in, her mom grabbed Alexis and goes, "Stop being such a dramatic little brat." The social worker just sat there writing notes like this was totally fine. During the second visit, Alexis peed herself. Her mom completely lost it and screamed, "You're a disgusting little pig. You smell like piss now." She made Alexis sit in her wet clothes for the whole visit while calling her pissy baby. The social worker kept writing in her notebook and actually had the nerve to tell me potty accidents are common during this process. The third visit was the first unsupervised one, and I had to physically pry Alexis off my body to leave her there. "I'll be good. I promise I'll be good. Please don't leave me," she sobbed. When I picked her up 4 hours later, she didn't say a single word for 2 days. Visit 4 was when things got really dark, and the kids started saying terrifying stuff. "Mommy says she's gonna take me away forever and make sure nobody finds me." I called the social worker immediately, and she literally laughed at me. Birth mothers always make promises about the future. That's actually really good for them. I was practically begging at this point. "Please, something is seriously wrong here, just look into it." That's when she got nasty. "You're just jealous of the real mother." One more complaint and Alexis goes to a new foster home tonight. That night, Alexis woke up at 3 in the morning screaming like someone was killing her. "She puts her hands over my whole face when I cry," she cried, showing me on her teddy bear. "She pushes down until I see spots and can't breathe, and she says next time she won't let go." I skipped the next visit and drove straight to the emergency room instead. The doctor examined her and found bruises on her chest from being suffocated over and over. They did x-rays and found old broken bones that weren't in any of her files. The doctor looked at me and said, "Someone's been trying to end this child's life." The detective showed up an hour later and pulled me into the hallway. "We need to talk about her birth mom," he said quietly. "Her first kid died of SIDS 2 years ago. We suspected that it was murder but couldn't prove it back then." Then he told me they searched her apartment and found searches on her laptop for things like how to make a child's death look accidental and how much Benadryl unalives a 40-pound child. She was going to end her, the detective said, just like the first one. I stormed into that social worker's office the next morning with everything the police gave me. "You almost let a murderer end another child's life," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. She tried to make excuses about following the rules, but I cut her off. "Alexis told you she was being hurt and you called her a dramatic liar," I screamed while waving the police report in her face. Other caseworkers had started gathering to watch. "How many other children have you ignored while they were being tortured?" I screamed. The social worker tried again with, "I was just doing my job," and I completely lost it. "Your job was to protect kids and you almost got one murdered because you couldn't be bothered to listen." The birth mom got arrested for attempted murder and the social worker was fired on the spot. Alexis is officially my daughter now. What happened when your bus bus driver missed the turn to school and started driving faster. Mr. Henderson had driven bus 47 for 12 years, and I'd never once seen him smile. Not when Sarah brought him Christmas cookies, not when we all signed a thank you card, not even when the seniors decorated his bus on their last day. He just grunted, pointed at our seats, and grumbled about keeping it down. But that Friday morning, last week of school, we were absolutely feral. Tommy was blasting music from his speaker. Kids were throwing someone's homework in the air like confetti. 3 guys were wrestling in the back. Everyone was signing yearbooks across the aisles, screaming about summer plans. Miranda was literally standing on her seat, leading a chant about no more school. Sit down. Mr. Henderson's voice cracked over the intercom, but we barely heard him over our chaos. I watched his knuckles go white on the steering wheel in the big mirror above his head. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. When Kevin threw a paper airplane that hit the windshield, Mr. Henderson's whole body went rigid. That's when he missed the turn for school. Yo, Mr. H, you missed Franklin Street, someone yelled. He didn't answer, just kept driving, eyes locked forward, accelerating. The bus got quieter. Then he blew past the next turn too, the one that would loop us back around. Mr. Henderson, Sarah called out, her voice smaller now. School's back that way? Nothing. He took a hard right that made us all slide in our seats, tires screeching. My stomach dropped. We'd finally done it. We'd finally pushed the meanest, grumpiest bus driver in the district over the edge. Oh my god, Miranda whispered, dropping into her seat. He's kidnapping us. No way, Tommy said, but he'd turned his speaker off. He's probably just, maybe there's construction. But then Mr. Henderson took the on-ramp to the highway, merging so aggressively that kids screamed. The bus erupted. Kids were pulling out phones, frantically texting parents. Someone started crying. A 7th grader was hyperventilating. I heard Kevin in the back say, my brother said Mr. H was a Vietnam vet with PTSD. We triggered him. Please, Mr. Henderson. Sarah stood up, gripping the seats as he swerved between lanes. We're sorry. We'll be quiet. Just take us to school. He kept checking his mirrors frantically every few seconds, his breathing heavy. He took an exit at the last possible second, cutting across 2 lanes. Everyone screamed. What are you doing? Tommy yelled. Mr. Henderson's eyes were wild in the mirror. He took another sharp turn into some town I didn't recognize, running a yellow light. Then another aggressive turn that sent backpacks flying. He's lost it, someone sobbed. He's actually lost it. He drove through a Walmart parking lot, cutting through spaces. Then he tears onto some back road I'd never seen before. Trees on both sides, no houses, no other cars. That's when we see them. Police lights flashing behind us, blue and red lighting up the whole bus. The cops! Someone screams. Mr. Henderson, the cops are behind us! But he doesn't pull over. He speeds up. Pull over! We're all screaming now. The police are right there. The back road is narrow, winding. We're being thrown around in our seats. Mr. Henderson's eyes are wild in the mirror, knuckles white, and he takes another curve so fast I think we're going to tip. The police car follows. The siren is wailing now, echoing off the trees. Oh my god, Miranda gasps. He's running from the cops. He brought us out here where nobody can see us. Why would he take a back road unless... Tommy doesn't finish the sentence. Kids are filming everything. Some are ducking down like we're about to get shot at. The police car is right on our tail now, lights blazing, siren screaming, and Mr. Henderson is driving even more erratically on this narrow road. That's when he says it. Sarah, call 911. What? She's crying. The cops are literally right behind us. Call 911 now, he roars. Tell them exactly where we are. Tommy's face goes white. Oh my god, I've seen this in movies. He wants to negotiate. He's going to demand money to release us at a specific location. He's using us as hostages, Kevin whispers. That's why he took us on this empty road. Sarah's shaking as she dials. We're on some back road past the Walmart on Elm. Our bus driver won't stop for the police car behind us. Tell them it's a white Crown Victoria. Mr. Henderson interrupts, checking his mirrors. Tell them that exactly. She repeats it, confused, terrified. And that's when we hear it through her phone speaker, the dispatcher's voice, loud and clear. That's not one of ours. All units, we have a fake officer vehicle in pursuit of bus 47. Keep driving. Real units en route. The bus goes dead silent, except for the siren still wailing behind us. He's not a cop, Sarah whispers. Mr. Henderson finally speaks, his voice strained. Got an alert over the radio 20 minutes ago. Only us drivers heard it. Someone's using a fake police car to pull over school buses. Already got one in Riverside. I noticed that Crown Vic tailing us right after we passed the school turn. Couldn't tell you. Couldn't stop. Just had to keep driving until real help came. Within minutes, through the back window, we watch real police cars surround the fake one, forcing it off the road. Mr. Henderson finally stops the bus, his whole body shaking. Sorry I scared you. You're all my kids, he said quietly. And for the first time ever, Mr. Henderson showed emotion. What happened to the girl who wore a purity ring? Ashley wore her purity ring like it was the Hope Diamond. And at our college, it basically was. This girl literally had a countdown on her dorm door that said, 287 days until I give myself to my husband, which should have been my first red flag that something was off, because who counts down to sex in days? But Ashley wasn't just some random virgin holding out. She was the mascot virgin on campus who somehow made celibacy look like a career path, which really pissed me off considering I couldn't even make my walk of shame look dignified. Anyway, the dedication was actually crazy. She ran abstinence workshops with an actual waiting list, like people were really competing to not get laid. Her fiance would visit monthly, and they'd sit on campus benches holding hands with a Bible wedged between them like some kind of holy chastity belt, which I thought was foreplay for Christians, but apparently was just Tuesday. She also threw these true love waits formals where the lights stayed on, and chaperones measured the space between dancing couples with rulers, but they were super popular. But here's where it gets weird. She was also everyone's favorite person to drunk text at 2 a.m. Every pregnancy scare, every I think I have chlamydia panic, every girl who needed Plan B, they all called Ashley. Why would the Virgin Queen know which CVS didn't ID for Plan B? Nobody really questioned it because she'd pray for your sins while buying you Gatorade. So senior year came and Ashley got picked to keynote the abstinence gala, which was basically the Met Gala for people who don't bone. Picture 500 people in a Marriott ballroom eating dry chicken to celebrate not getting any, and you know what I mean. Anyway, her parents even flew in from Texas and sat front row wearing them lame matching proud parents of a pure daughter, buttons they definitely made themselves. Ashley floated up to that microphone in a white dress that screamed, I'm saving myself, so loud I thought my virginity would start to grow back. Then she started her speech about resisting temptation for everyone like it was the Apple keynote everyone was looking forward to. Then something beautiful happened. She just stopped mid-sentence, completely stopped, like her brain finally realized what her mouth was saying. The silence lasted so long I started wondering if she was having a stroke. Then she grabbed her note cards and ripped them in half with the energy of someone who just caught their boyfriend with their sister. I've been lying to every single one of you for 4 years, she said, then pulled off that purity ring and set it on the podium like it was contaminated. Her mother made a sound I've only heard from cats while Ashley straight up just walked out those ballroom doors without saying a word. Her fiance just stood there. We all just kind of stood there. For 3 whole days, she ghosted everyone while the campus collectively lost its shit. Was she pregnant? Secret lesbian? Secret pregnant lesbian? But when her roommate found Ashley's laptop, the truth was so much juicier. Our purity princess was pulling $8,743 monthly from a confessions blog. A filthy anonymous blog that everyone on campus read every Thursday like scripture. This blog was the go-to for campus sex life. Dick ratings, detailed reviews of which guys could actually satisfy a girl, a weekly column called This Week in Bad Sex, and extremely graphic tutorials that would make porn stars take notes. The blog knew which RA was selling Molly, which professor's marriage was fake, and exactly how many pumps every Chad on campus actually lasted. Get this though. A few weeks later, her roommate tracked Ashley to a Starbucks 4 towns over where the whole delicious story spilled out. So Ashley was still a virgin, but had become the campus's unofficial sex encyclopedia through spying. Every drunk girl she drove home would trauma dump their entire sexual history because what's the virgin gonna do? Judge them. She'd pretend to be curious about temptation at parties, and idiots would describe their kinks in 4K detail, thinking they were corrupting the Christian girl. Dating app screenshots flooded her anonymous inbox from people wanting their profiles rated. She knew which basketball player cried during sex, which sorority president was secretly polyamorous, and exactly what sounds the dean's wife made through the dorm walls. No one suspected a thing. But here's the juicy basted steak part. Ashley ran because IT had traced the blog's IP and was 24 hours from exposing her. She panicked and ran because she knew she was cooked either way. She lost her grad school acceptance, her scholarship, everything. They wouldn't even let her walk at graduation. How did your dog prove your parents dead wrong? The window frame creaked as I pulled myself through, thinking I'd successfully snuck back from Carter's party at 2 a.m. But the second my feet hit the bedroom floor, the lamp clicked on, and there sat my dad in my desk chair, my laptop open in front of him displaying every single text between me and Carter from the past 3 months. I knew I was dead. Fun night, he said, pulling up the pictures I sent him. I was so embarrassed because he started lecturing me on getting pregnant. You did this to yourself. Ollie is going back to the shelter tomorrow morning. My heart fell through the floor as I processed what he was saying. Ollie, the golden retriever puppy I'd gotten for my 16th birthday just 2 weeks ago. The dog I'd been begging for since I was 7. The only thing that made being trapped in this house bearable. You can't do that. He's mine. You gave him to me. I sobbed, but my dad was already walking toward the door. The next morning, I watched through tear-blurred eyes as Dad loaded Ollie into the car, the puppy's confused whimpering breaking what was left of my heart, and I spent the entire day in my room, refusing to eat, refusing to talk to them, just staring at Ollie's empty bed in the corner and the toy rope he'd left behind. By 11 p.m., when I heard my parents go to bed, their bedroom door clicking shut with finality, I knew what I had to do. I was getting my effing dog back. This time I didn't even bother being quiet as I went out the front door, not caring if they heard me, not caring about consequences anymore. The animal shelter was only a mile away, and when I got there, I marched straight to the desk with tears streaming down my face. I sobbed out a story about how my parents had accidentally brought in my emotional support animal, how I had severe anxiety and needed him back immediately, how it was all a terrible misunderstanding. Please, I begged. He's microchipped under my name. I can prove he's mine. This is all just a huge mistake. My parents didn't realize what they were doing. After what felt like an eternity of back and forth, of me showing every photo and video I had, of tears and pleading, she finally relented, saying she could make an exception given the circumstances. I was walking out with Ollie bouncing happily beside me, his tail wagging frantically, when I heard someone shout, "Wait! Stop! You can't take that dog!" But I didn't look back, just started running with Ollie keeping pace, both of us sprinting through the parking lot and into the darkness of the suburban streets. My phone stayed silent as I jogged home, no calls from the shelter, no texts from my parents, nothing. They must not have noticed I was gone yet, probably assumed I was sulking in my room like I'd been doing all day. But when I rounded the corner to our street, I saw the weirdest thing. Our front door was wide open, every light in the house blazing, and that definitely wasn't normal for midnight. I thought my parents were out looking for me, and as I crept closer, Ollie suddenly tensed beside me. Through the doorway, I could see chaos. Drawers pulled out, furniture overturned, and then I saw them. 2 men in dark clothes shoving my mom's jewelry box into a bag, while my parents lay motionless on the living room floor. My hands shook as I reached for my phone to call 911, but before I could unlock it, Ollie had already made his decision, charging through the door with a deep, menacing bark I didn't know a 4-month-old puppy could make. The burglar spun around just as 70 pounds of protective golden retriever launched himself at the nearest one, latching onto the man's arm. They both panicked and tried to run outside, while Ollie treated them like a chew toy. They both took off, and the neighbors ran over to help after hearing all the commotion. I cried by my parents' bedside for the entire night waiting for them to wake up, but I wasn't sure if they ever would. When my dad woke up, the first thing he did was check on me, but as soon as he saw Ollie in my arms, I could see he was mad. But as soon as they saw the pictures of those burglars, completely covered in bite marks, he broke down crying. When my boyfriend said he wasn't ready for kids, I didn't realize he was already a father. 3 pregnancy tests lined up on my bathroom counter, all positive. I couldn't believe the timing. My boyfriend's birthday was in 2 days, and this was the best present I could ever give him. I threw on my coat and rushed to Target before they closed and immediately started crying when I found a tiny Dodgers onesie in the baby section. Remembering how my boyfriend Dylan talked about teaching his own kid on the field someday, I stuffed the onesie and pregnancy tests in a happy birthday bag and headed to his apartment. I wasn't prepared to be the one that got surprised. When I got to his door, I could hear voices inside, and I figured it could have been anyone until I heard that laugh. That specific laugh that once tormented me in college. It was Paige, his ex. She answered the door wearing his old baseball jersey, the one he'd never let me touch. Her hand immediately went to her stomach as she smirked at me. I felt all the color drain from my face. Oh God, she was pregnant, like several months pregnant. Dylan appeared behind her and instantly went just as pale. Before he could say anything, Paige stepped in. "We've been back together since Christmas," she said, rubbing her belly. "He didn't tell you? We've been living together this week preparing for the baby." F me, Christmas? We'd spent New Year's Eve together, Valentine's Day, even my birthday. All those chances to end things and tell me the truth, only to knock me up too? This evil jerk. I took a deep breath and set the gift bag down on his doorstep. Happy early birthday. On my way home, he called me over and over, but I refused to answer. I blocked him everywhere, even blocked his family, and blocked anyone who tried to help him reach out to out to me. I moved in with my cousin, hoping for a do-over. Portland was perfect for starting over. Gray and rainy, and nobody knew me. I got a job that didn't care about my pregnancy, and found a doctor who didn't judge when I said there was no father involved. Everything was good, but it was at the prenatal classes where things just rapidly escalated for me. An exhausted guy named Carter walked in late to the class carrying a newborn. Sorry, he said to the instructor. Caitlin had a rough night. You can pair up with her, the instructor said, pointing at me, the only other single parent in the room. During the diaper demonstration, his practice doll's head fell off and he just stared at it. 3 months in, and I still can't keep a fake baby together, he muttered, frustrated at himself. I laughed and helped him reattach the head. She looks pretty healthy for someone whose dad can't work a practice doll, I said. He smiled in appreciation. I'm just glad babies are a lot sturdier than this thing. We joked around with each other a bit more before Carter sighed and said with a sad expression, her mother would have been amazing at this if she were still here. I reached out and put my hand over his. You're amazing enough. Now don't lose confidence. You're my partner here. He sat up straight and gave the practice another go. We started getting coffee after class. He needed help figuring out his daughter Caitlin's sleep schedule, and I needed someone who didn't look at me with pity. We just talked about normal stuff, baby products and pediatricians and whether organic formula was worth the price, but after a couple of weeks, things shifted. We started hanging out as friends, even calling each other husband and wife when strangers asked. He started coming to my appointments when I mentioned being nervous about going alone, held my hand during the 36-week ultrasound, built the crib I'd ordered online because I couldn't figure out the instructions, all while I took care of Caitlin. It was the life I had always dreamt of having with my ex Dylan. Well, before the cheating. But just like all evil villains, Dylan showed up at my apartment just a few weeks before my baby's due date. He knocked on the door aggressively yelling, "Come on, sweetheart, let me in. You can't keep my kid from me." I opened the door and glared at him. "How's Paige? And your other baby?" His face twisted in annoyance. It wasn't mine. He forced a smile and grabbed my hand gently. "Look, I was wrong for hurting you the way I did, but you need a father for that baby. Someone to take care of you both." "I'm doing just fine without you," I said, trying to close the door. He blocked it with his foot, pushing me backwards while he let himself in. "Come on, sweet cheeks, we can make this work." Carter stepped out from the guest room to check on the commotion. Dylan broke into a horrifying smile. "Are you freaking kidding me? You already found some loser to play daddy? What, you couldn't handle being alone for 5 minutes? Or is he the bio father too?" "Get out or I'll make you," Carter said, stepping forward, completely towering over Dylan. Dylan took a scared step back and nodded. "I'll get custody. Get you both arrested." He stormed off, shouting about his lawyers, which I guess was just a bluff since we never really heard from him again. Dylan was right about one thing though. My baby did need a father. Good thing we found the perfect one. Carter and I settled down in a house together and tied the knot when Caitlin was old enough to walk down the aisle as a flower girl, and our son was old enough to waddle down with the rings. My roommate demanded I leave for her anxiety attacks, but I found her teddy bear. My roommate grabbed her chest and gasped like she was dying whenever I tried to exist in our dorm room. 3 weeks into freshman year, and she discovered the perfect weapon against me, her anxiety disorder paperwork. "Your typing triggers me," she cried one night with tears streaming down her face. "I need complete silence or I'll have a panic attack." The RA stood behind her nodding sympathetically, which made me feel like a monster for wanting to stay in the room I paid $12,000 for. That first night, I actually slept in the library bathroom stall. My roommate said they needed therapeutic isolation until morning, and housing department rules said I had to accommodate her medical needs. My back ached from sleeping on tile floors, but at least someone felt better, I guess. But the attacks got worse and worse. She'd hyperventilate about my desk lamp being too bright during exam week. She'd sob that my breathing made her feel unsafe before every group project deadline. The housing office sent emails about reasonable accommodations and threatened disciplinary action if I didn't leave when asked. It became a real problem for me because I started failing classes. My scholarship advisor called me in after midterms. "You're failing 2 courses," she said. "What's going on?" I couldn't explain that my roommate's anxiety was destroying my education without sounding heartless apparently, so I just promised to do better. Winter made everything so much worse. The library closed at midnight, so I slept in the apartment stairwell and got the flu. One night during finals, I begged to stay just for a few hours so I could study more, but she collapsed on our floor, wheezing about my aggressive energy, suffocating her. The RA was called, and I was actually escorted out while she writhed around claiming she couldn't breathe. Now really strange things started happening though. My favorite hoodie started to smell like cologne I didn't recognize. Ring lights appeared that my roommate called therapy lamps. Girls on our floor mentioned seeing random guys leaving our room at 3 a.m., but she always had explanations about her supposed emotional support visitors. I also noticed she'd bought a $1,000 camera. Someone with anxiety too severe to work suddenly had professional filming equipment. Then my coffee started tasting weird every morning, and I'd get drowsy at random times even after full nights of sleep in the engineering building. Then everything changed when I came back at 2 a.m. for my inhaler. The flu had turned into bronchitis, and I literally couldn't breathe. I turned the handle slowly to avoid triggering her crazy anxiety, and heard multiple voices through the crack. There she was directing 3 half-naked people on my bed while filming them. "Arch your back more," she was saying. "Subscribers pay extra for authentic dorm content. No anxiety, no panic, just calm professional direction," as strangers used my stuffed animals as props. I recorded a quick video on my phone and backed away before anyone saw me. My brain started connecting pieces. The weird coffee taste, the unexplained drowsiness, how she always knew when I'd be too tired to come back early. The next morning while she was at the gym, I searched her closet. Bottles of sleeping medication sat there. Her laptop was open showing a dashboard, $8,000 last month. The location tags read, "Real college dorm experience," and "Roommate's bed special." But it got so much worse. Some videos were titled, "Sleeping Beauty Series." The preview showed someone unconscious in pajamas exactly like mine. No way. That's when I realized those blackouts weren't from exhaustion. I took some of my hair samples to Campus Health claiming I felt drugged. The test came back positive for GHB. Campus police searched our room within hours. They found cameras in my shower caddy, behind my mirror, inside my teddy bear. When I did sleep in the apartment, she'd actually been streaming me unconscious to paying subscribers. The detective showed me screenshots from her website, dozens of videos of me passed out, sometimes with strangers posing next to my unconscious body. She'd been drugging me for months, selling my unconscious presence online and making me sleep in stairwells so she could shoot adult content in peace. The FBI even got involved because she'd shipped content across state lines. 12 other students came forward. Their roommates also had anxiety disorders requiring complete isolation. All tested positive for date rape drugs. All found hidden cameras. My roommate ran a whole network, recruiting people with fake anxiety documentation to drug and exploit roommates. The university settled out of court after we proved they'd ignored 37 complaints about suspicious accommodation requests. She got 15 years federal prison for drugging, trafficking, and running a criminal enterprise. At sentencing, she cried real tears, claiming prison would trigger her anxiety. The judge said, "Now you'll have all the isolation you want." The last thing I heard her say was, "I actually do have anxiety now."
What's the wildest thing someone expected after betraying you. 6 months after I caught my wife cheating on me with my 18-year-old brother, she sent me an email demanding I pay for her healing retreat to Bali. I need this to process the trauma of our marriage ending, she wrote in the email, and attached an itemized list of demands. First-class flights, 5-star beachfront villa, and a luxury spa package. At the bottom of the email, she added, "This is the cost of wasting my youth." Her lawyer sent a formal letter supporting her request for emotional damages. I called my ex immediately. "Are you insane? You cheated on me with my brother. That's exactly why I need this," she said, her voice fake sweet. "The guilt is eating me alive. Don't you want me to heal?" I laughed in disbelief and hung up. She called me again, immediately starting with a threat. "If you don't pay for my trip, I'm taking the stupid dog and impounding him." I glanced over at my golden retriever, who wagged when he noticed me looking at him. "You wouldn't. Watch me," she said. "You work 60-hour weeks. As far as the court knows, I've been his primary caregiver for years. So what's it gonna be? A vacation or your dog?" I looked down at my dog. "Fine, I'll book your trip," I agreed through gritted teeth. But I wasn't going to let her enjoy her trip that easily. I mean, cheating is one thing, but threatening my dog? I opened my laptop and started brainstorming the worst Bali vacation itinerary in the world. I found a 30-hour flight with 2 overnight layovers, selecting the middle seat in the back row, and of course no meal service. I found a hostel with the word luxury in its name, and got her a nice reservation in a 12-bed room. The authentic Balinese spa I found had been cited for health violations twice because of their sketchy fish pedicures. I did give her a nice yoga retreat. It just so happens to be 3 hours away from the hostel, and according to Google, very difficult to find. And to make sure she's well fed, I bought the terrible food coupons from the hostel as a package deal. I made sure everything was booked in her name, all non-refundable, no changes allowed. "It's all set," I texted her. "Confirmation numbers coming your way." I did feel a little guilty and thought about adding something nice maybe at the end of the trip, but then she replied, "Finally doing something right." And suddenly, I was less guilty about it all. My ex called me when she landed in Bali, completely fuming. "You absolute piece of man trash. This place has bed bugs and mold and other people," she yelled over the sound of terrible karaoke in the background, and almost laughed. "Do you even know where I am right now? The luxury villa you wanted?" I asked innocently, hitting record on my phone. "I'm in a hostel, with Australian teenagers who won't stop playing guitar. The freaking beach is beside a sewage dump, so obviously no one was there. And that flight you booked had me in 3 different airports for hours. Oh, and I went to that little yoga retreat you added as a gift. They had me rolling around in dirt and hugging trees, saying it was part of a spiritual awakening process." I muted myself on the call and burst out laughing, shaking hard in my seat the more she ranted about the trip. I wiped away the tear in my eye and cleared my throat before unmuting. "Wow, that's terrible. I honestly was just following the list you gave me. I really can't believe it." "Don't worry," I reassured her. "I'll leave them bad reviews for you." And by bad, of course I meant 5 stars for giving me the best laugh I've had in a while. "When I get back, I'm taking your dog to the pound myself. I'm taking the truck. I'm taking everything. Everything," she screamed. "For booking you a vacation? For sleeping with my teenage brother? I'm gonna make you pay. I'll tell the judge whatever it takes to make you suffer. I'll say you hit me. You hid money. You threatened to hurt me if I didn't sign the papers. You think you're so clever? Wait until court. I've been taking pictures of every bruise from this hellhole, and I'm gonna say you did it before I left." She laughed when I got quiet. "And that stupid dog? First thing I'm doing is having him put down." The line went dead. I immediately backed up the recording to 3 different clouds. At court, she burst into tears. "Your Honor, this man has hurt me in multiple ways. He sent me to the slums as punishment and threatened to do more if I told the court." She pulled up her sleeves to show the wounds. The jury gasped and glared at me, but I wasn't fazed. My lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to play a phone recording." Her face went white. The courtroom filled with her voice. "I'll tell the judge whatever it takes. I'll say you hit me. I'll say you hid money." Then the kicker. "And that stupid dog? First thing I'm doing is having him put down." The judge's face darkened. "Would you like to explain, miss?" When she couldn't respond, the judge quickly wrapped up the court. "The husband gets the dog, house, car, and all assets. All legal fees shall be covered by the wife. Oh, and if you go near that dog, you'll be arrested." She started throwing a tantrum, but her lawyer quickly shut her up and dragged her out. I took my dog on a trip to Bali, using my ex's list to book the best Bali trip ever.
He hired me to make his parents hate me at Disney World. I'm sitting on my apartment steps in platform boots and spiked collar when the landlord's son walks up with his clipboard. He's been here 3 times this month. I'm 4 months behind on rent. "Your dad's gonna evict me tomorrow, isn't he?" He stares at me for 10 seconds, then sits down. "I'll make your rent disappear for 2 months if you come to Disney World with my family tomorrow." I wait for the punchline. There isn't one. "You need to pretend we've been dating for 2 years." I study his face. He's serious. "You know I can't stand you, right? You literally called my music nightmare fuel last week." He nods. "That's exactly why you're perfect for this." He pulls out my eviction notice, tears it in half. "Look, I know we're not friends, but you need rent and I need someone my parents will hate." I watch the pieces of paper fall. 2 months rent. Disney World, fake girlfriend. I pick up the torn notice. 4 months rent, and you've got a deal. I'm in his car at 6 a.m. and he hands me index cards. They hold our fake relationship history. We met at a bookstore. I love his cooking. He always texts me, "Good morning." They made my brother's girlfriend cry at Thanksgiving because she used the wrong fork, he explains. I'm applying extra black eyeliner in his rearview mirror. He continues, "My mom once rejected a girl because her purse was from Target." His phone buzzes. His mom texted him, "Can't wait to finally meet this mystery girl." He grips the steering wheel tighter. "I need them to think I'm dating someone so wrong for me that anyone that comes after looks amazing." I flip through the cards. 2 years of fake memories. "What should I do to seem terrible?" I ask him. He glances at my outfit. Ripped fishnets, band shirt with skulls. "Just be yourself." The whole goth thing. Maybe mention you don't want kids. I add more black lipstick and ask if he wants me to put some on his shirt collar. He laughs. "They're going to hate me." I tell him. He nods. "That's the plan. After tomorrow, they'll beg me to date literally anyone else." The Magic Kingdom parking lot appears. His hands are shaking. Mine aren't. His family waits at the entrance. His mom in pearls and yoga pants. Dad in a polo and tennis shoes. His teenage sister in designer. Everything. His mom's face freezes when she sees me. Dad drops his Mickey pretzel. The silence stretches. I panic and start talking. "Did you know this castle uses forced perspective to look taller?" The sister's eyes light up. "Wait, you know about the parks?" The words tumble out. "I grew up 10 minutes away. Came here every weekend as a kid." His mom starts asking about hidden Mickeys. I know them all. Dad wants the best route to avoid crowds. I use my haunted house pen to draw them down on his map. My friend works on Pirates of the Caribbean. She sneaks us through backstage and we didn't have to wait. The mom actually squeals, "I know know which lines move the fastest. I know every dad joke on Jungle Cruise before the skipper says them. His dad laughs so hard he cries. The guy keeps trying to signal me. Be worse. Be more off-putting. So I mention I don't want kids. His mom tells me, smart girl, they're expensive. Then his sister grabs my hand and says, you're the coolest girlfriend he's ever had. I help the family get the best fireworks spot. During the show, the guy holds my hand. I try not to let myself feel anything. His mom leans over and whispers to him, she's the one. I can feel it. Don't you dare mess this up. His face goes completely red. The fireworks reflect in his panicked eyes. His mom turns to me. I was wrong about the clothes. Anyone who loves Disney this much has to have a good heart. His dad claps him on the back. She got us on Space Mountain 3 times. Marry this girl. The sister announces if we break up, she's keeping me as her sister anyway. The plan didn't just fail, it exploded. They don't want him to date anyone else. They want him to marry me. The goth girl who was supposed to horrify them. 4 months' rent appears under my door. 3 days of silence. Then his text. My mom made a Pinterest board called Gothic Disney Wedding Ideas. You were supposed to be the disaster. Now you're the one that got away. They compare everyone to you. Maybe they're right. I still wear the Haunted Mansion Mickey ears his sister bought me.
The groom paid me $300 to ruin his wedding. Turns out he didn't need me. I'm scrolling through Craigslist at 3 a.m. because my car insurance is due in 6 hours, and I've got exactly $139 to my name. Then this ad pops up. Easy $300. Need actor for wedding performance. Must be comfortable with public speaking. One-time gig. This Saturday. Listen, for $300 I'd explain to Gordon Ramsay why ketchup belongs on steak. So I click reply faster than I've ever clicked anything. This guy messages back in literally 30 seconds, asking if I can object at his wedding. I'm staring at my phone like it just grew legs. He explains he needs someone to stand up during the speak now or forever hold your peace part and just say they object. Make something up about loving the bride or whatever. Just stop the wedding. Before I can even process how insane this is, $150 hits my Venmo. You get the other half after you do it. My car insurance bill is staring at me from my laptop screen. $285. I text him back, asking why he wants to ruin his own wedding. He says, I learned something that's made it impossible for me to marry my girl. I can hear the tea being poured. But instead, I'm texting this stranger, I'll be there, like I'm agreeing to pick up milk from the store. I show up to this country club that's so fancy, the security guard looks at my KRP car like it might contaminate the parking lot. I have to lie that I'm with the band just to get through the gate. The venue has actual living swans walking around like they own the place, and I'm immediately downing champagne to stop my hands from shaking. This woman in a purple dress walks up to me, and she's built like she could throw me through a wall for fun. You're not on the guest list, she says. I'm trying to play dumb, but she leans in close enough that I can smell her perfume. I heard my brother on the phone last night. He hired someone to ruin this wedding. That wouldn't be you, would it? If it is, you should know I will absolutely destroy you. She shows me her fitness app like it's a weapon permit, and there's a photo of her choking someone out at what looks like a dojo. I'm nodding like a bobblehead on a dashboard, while she explains this is her brother and best friend getting married, and if I try anything, she'll end me. The announcement comes for everyone to take their seats, and she points at me with 2 fingers, then at her eyes, then back at me, before walking away to join the wedding party. I grab another champagne and down it straight up, then follow the crowd into this church that probably cost more to build than my entire neighborhood. The ceremony starts, and the bride looks like she stepped out of heaven, while the groom is sweating so much his tux looks like he went for a dip in the pool. The maid of honor, that purple dress Terminator from earlier, keeps turning around from the altar to stare directly at me. Then it happens. The priest says those magic words. If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace. My body moves before my brain can stop it, and I stand up. I object. The words echo off the church ceiling, and 200 heads turn to look at me like I just slapped the Pope. The bride drops her bouquet, and the maid of honor goes from 0 to Olympic sprinter in half a second, full-on NFL tackling me into the pew. She's got me in some kind of chokehold that definitely isn't legal in any sport, and we're rolling in the aisle knocking over those little flower arrangements. I'm trying to stay alive, but she's got my windpipe in a vice grip, and all I can think is that at least my car insurance will be paid even if I die here. The groom suddenly screams, "Stop! Everyone stop!" The maid of honor still has me pinned like she's waiting for a referee to count to 3. The groom says he needs to talk to the bride privately, but she screams back, "No! Whatever you have to say it here. These people flew from Italy to watch us get married." Her face is red, and her mascara is running like spilt oil. The groom pulls out his phone with shaking hands and shows her something on the screen. "The ancestry test you got me for Christmas came back last week." His voice cracks like a teenager's. "We're second cousins. We share a great-grandmother." The church goes so quiet I can hear the swans outside. The bride faints while her mom starts screaming in Italian, and the priest drops his Bible like it's on fire. The maid of honor releases me and goes. I stumble out past 200 guests who are acting like they're at the world's most expensive crime scene.
My family photoshopped me out of photos for refusing to die like Dad did. Mom, I'm done. I was calling her from the emergency room, my ankle elevated and throbbing. I'm selling the family in. What? No, I'm sorry, but you can't, she said, sounding angry. Mom, I literally fell through the roof trying to patch a leak. It's my 3rd injury this month. First the burn from the boiler, then the injury from moving that beam. What if the next one really ends me? My mom sighed. Sweetie, you're overreacting. You can't sell the inn. It's been in our family for more than 150 years. I felt heartbroken hearing her more worried about the stupid family business that's been costing us more money trying to maintain than her own daughter that's been racking up hospital bills. Mom, I still have to pay for my own daughter's college this semester, and I'm already working 60-hour weeks at my other job. Even the doctor told me to stop. Can't we just let this go? I asked, my voice cracking as I cried from exhaustion. Mom paused before saying, if you do this, you won't be family anymore. She hung up. My uncle Jerome came to pick me up from the hospital since Mom wouldn't. He was quiet until we got to the parking lot. She threatened to disown you already? She told you? I kinda figured. She said the same thing to your dad when he wanted to sell it years ago. He had the paperwork drawn up and everything, but your mom and great-grandma wore him down. That's how he lost his life. I felt my heart drop. My uncle placed his hand on my shoulder, his face looking at me full of guilt. They told me he had a heart attack, I said, shaking. A heart attack while fixing that same roof roof you fell through under the summer sun? He shook his head. It's a curse, you know. Your grandfather suffered the same fate when he wanted to sell it. Uncle Jerome gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles turning white. You're my lovely niece. Nothing is worth more than your precious life. I felt tears stinging my eyes. I gave him a quick hug before we drove off. My grandma also called that night crying after hearing about my injury. My parents loved that inn more than they loved us kids. I spent my whole childhood watching them choose repairs over groceries, choose the inn over my school plays, choose it over everything. She paused. I swore I'd never do that to my kids. Please don't end up like your father. That was my greatest regret. And so I finally called a family meeting. 23 relatives showed up, including cousins I hadn't seen in years. My cousin Jasmine flew in from California just to yell at me. How dare you even think about selling our family's pride? She started, not even asking about the brace around my foot. Other relatives quickly joined in, yelling how I was pretty much the worst person in the world. I couldn't help but laugh. When's the last time any of you helped me with things at the inn? Tell me, I said, setting my foot down. Where were you when the pipes burst last winter? When I was hauling furniture out at 2 a.m.? When I got injured repairing the fireplace and basement and— Oh, stop bragging, Jasmine said, rolling her eyes. You have 40% shares while we only get 5% for each family. And all of it was being used to repair the business, I yelled, completely frustrated. Fine, I said, standing on my crutches. Who wants it? Raise your hand if you're willing to run this inn. Nobody moved. Come on, it's so important to you all. Who's taking over? My cousin Mark looked at the floor. We have careers, families, and I don't? I work 60 hours a week at my actual job. My daughter needs college tuition, but I'm supposed to perish for this place like Dad did? Grandma, who'd been silent, finally spoke. Let her sell it. Mom, my mother turned on her. You can't mean that. I've buried my husband and my son for that building. I won't bury my granddaughter. The room exploded in arguments. I grabbed my crutches and left. Behind me, I heard my mom say, if she sells, she's no longer my daughter. Good. She'd do well without your negativity, my grandma responded. I smiled. The family group chat exploded with nasty messages. Jasmine started photoshopping me out of family pictures, but I already made my decision. The inn sold for $2.8 million. I divided it evenly among all the relatives, even the ones who'd been horrible to me. Everyone got their share. I paid for my daughter's tuition and took a break from work to recover my health for once. And when I saw what happened to the inn, I was shocked. New roof, restored Victorian details, professional landscaping. The parking lot was full of people. The new owner, a local history buff, had kept our family name on the sign and even restored the historical plaques. I fell to my knees crying in relief, realizing that my decision not only saved my family, but also saved the inn. I forgot I hid a camera in our house and have never been the same. My boyfriend and I waited for months for our baby to say his first word, but he kept telling me not to worry, that boys develop slower. I was starting to get anxious because Cody was way past when he should have been talking. Then one Tuesday morning while I was feeding him breakfast, it finally happened. Cody looked right at me, smiled, and clear as day said, May. I screamed with excitement, immediately calling Jake into the kitchen. He said his first word. He said May, but Jake's face went weird when he heard it. He shook his head and said I must have misheard him, that babies don't usually say random months as their first words. But I knew what I heard. Over the next few days, Cody kept saying it. May, May. Always the same word, always with this happy little giggle afterward. Jake kept insisting I was wrong, that he was just babbling, but something about how defensive he got made me uneasy. After a week of Cody only saying May, I started getting concerned. Other babies said mama or dada. I tried teaching him other words, pointing at myself saying mama over and over, but he'd just smile and say May again. The weird part was how Jake reacted every single time. He'd tense up, change the subject, or suddenly need to leave the room. One afternoon, our babysitter Kenna was over while I was getting ready for work, and Cody said it again. May! Kenna and I looked at each other. I saw panic in her face. There was something she wasn't telling me, and Cody knew about it. She sat down at the kitchen table and said she had something to tell me, something she'd been feeling guilty about for months. Kenna was sobbing so hard she could barely get the words out. I had to wait 5 minutes for her to contain herself, dying to know what she was about to tell me. Then, she admitted that sometimes we were out. She'd been bringing her friend over to help watch Cody. Her friend's name was Shay. I'm so sorry, Kenna kept saying. I know I should have asked permission. My mind was racing. Shay, not May. I actually laughed, hugging Kenna and telling her it was okay. I was just glad to finally understand what Cody was trying to say. However, I wanted to see it for myself, so I got an idea. The next day before Kenna came over, I put a camera in our living room to see if she'd bring her friend over. Sure enough, about an hour after I left, a girl with blonde hair came in. Kenna introduced her to Cody saying, "This is Shay. Can you say Shay?" And Cody responded with his usual, May. It was actually adorable seeing him try to pronounce her name. I felt silly for being so paranoid and decided to take the camera down when I got home. I forgot about the camera, and the next day while I was at work, I decided to check again. I wanted to see my boyfriend playing with our sweet Cody and text him I loved him. He was on the couch with Cody, and I smiled watching them together. Then I heard it. May, Cody said, reaching his arms up. That's right, buddy, he said. May's coming. My blood went cold. May's coming? A minute later, someone walked into frame. A woman with dark hair. Definitely not Kenna. Definitely not Shay. She walked straight over to him, kissed him on the mouth, then picked up Cody. May. I watched as this woman sat down next to my boyfriend, my son on her lap, playing house in my home. I kept watching, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. Jake and this May person were talking about their plans. How much longer do we have to keep pretending? May asked. Just another month, Jake said. I've been moving money slowly so she won't notice. Once I have enough, we can take Cody and go. It took me an hour to stop hyperventilating. I immediately called Jake's phone, watching them both on my screen. When he answered with his fake casual, "Hey babe, what's up?" I screamed, "Who is May? Who is that woman on my couch?" I watched them both jump up in real time, Jake's face draining of color as he realized there was a camera. They looked around frantically, May asking, "How does she know?" Jake grabbed Cody, May grabbed the diaper bag, and they ran out of my house. The police have issued an Amber Alert for Cody. Jake isn't answering his phone, and his family claims they don't know where he is. Doctors, when did you realize something was off about about a patient. I'd been an emergency response doctor for about 12 years, and at this point, nothing really phases me anymore. Except one time this man rushed in with his teenage daughter. She's been sick and vomiting uncontrollably. Please help her, he pleaded. All night the man played the perfect father, recalling her medical history by heart, holding her hand for hours while we worked on diagnosing her. The nurses kept saying how lucky she was to have such a devoted dad, but when I saw her freeze as his hand traveled down her back, something in my gut told me there was more to the picture-perfect family, and things only got weirder from there. When I asked her directly about her allergies just to confirm, she looked completely lost, like she wasn't sure if it was correct. She even turned to look at him before answering her own birthday. And when I was examining her body for more signs of her illness, I noticed old bruises around her wrists and ankles that looked exactly like rope marks, along with faint finger marks on her neck too, partially covered with makeup. Sir, I'll need you to leave the room. I'll be providing additional tests, all standard protocol. That's BS, and we both know it, Doc. You're just running extra tests to get more money out of me, but it's not happening, he said aggressively. When he saw the shocked expression of the nurses in the room, he put on a professional smile again. Sorry, she has anxiety and really needs me around. Please don't separate us, he said softly, sounding so sincere that I didn't push it anymore, but the red flags were still there. So during my break, I decided to check out their story. I called the previous hospital he'd mentioned in California, but they had no record of them. Then, the insurance numbers he'd given didn't match the standard format we usually see. When I went back to draw blood for tests, I was watching them more carefully, noticing the way she flinched or leaned away from him, the way she stared at the nurses that came near, like she desperately wanted to say something but couldn't. While he was distracted with his phone, she looked straight at me and mouthed, "Ayúdame," twice. Help me. I kept my face completely neutral while every bone in my body trembled. There wasn't much time left, and I needed to separate them somehow. I walked over to him and said that his car was being towed from the ambulance bay. He didn't even look up from his phone. I don't care, he said. Tow it. I'm not leaving until she's okay. I pushed harder, told him they were about to call the police for blocking emergency vehicles. That got his attention. He stood up fast and said, "Fine, we're leaving then," and actually started disconnecting her IV himself. I stopped him and said she needed an urgent CT scan because the vomiting could indicate brain swelling. "I'll take her to another hospital," he said. I told him if she had a brain bleed and he moved her, she'd lose her life instantly, and he'd be under suspicion of neglect and endangerment. His eyes narrowed, thinking. Finally, he stormed out, saying, "Make it quick." The second he was gone, I dragged over one of the other nurses who spoke Spanish to help communicate with her. She says she's 12 and from Honduras. She was taken from the streets on the way home from school and has been here for 8 months. She slept in a house with other girls her age. They hurt them, send them to other men, then take them back to eat medicine. Most importantly, that man is not her father. Before I could call security, the man rushed back in and shoved the nurse onto the floor. He grabbed the little girl's wrist. "We're leaving. Now!" She started screaming no over and over. "Sir, stop it!" I yelled, trying to pull them apart. "She's my daughter," he yelled. This time the girl found her voice and screamed in broken English. "He's no father!" 4 other nurses rushed in to grab hold of him, blocking him from leaving the room with her. Security finally arrived just as he was pulling a weapon from his pocket. The girl was safe, but what still haunts me is when the officers reviewed the hospital security footage. He'd been here before with 3 different daughters. What was it like being the adult in your house as a child? I never let anyone come over to my house after school because I was too embarrassed to answer the questions they'd ask. Why does the landlord call you instead of your mom? Why are you signing your brother's report card? Why is your fridge just ketchup packets and expired yogurt? I was 14, but I'd been handling stuff like this since elementary school. Most kids my age worried about TikTok followers, but I worried about keeping Child Protective Services away. Tuesday night, I was trying to super glue my brother's shoe back together when someone knocked on our door. My neighbor stood there looking frantic. "Please, I need you to babysit," she begged. "My regular girl just canceled and I have this huge thing at work." I looked back at my 3 siblings eating the mac and cheese I'd just made. "I can't leave them alone," I said. "Bring them," she practically shouted. "They can play with my kids and I'll pay you $20 an hour." That was grocery money for 2 days. "Let me get them ready," I said. Walking into their house felt like stepping into an alternate reality. Her 12-year-old daughter Amelia was on a $2,000 laptop complaining to someone on FaceTime. "Mom forgot to transfer money to my account, so I only have like $200 until tomorrow," she whined. "I literally can't buy anything good for the party." She had more money in her account than I'd seen in my entire life. Her mom had left dinner in the oven with instructions written in perfect handwriting. "Just heat at 350 for 20 minutes, the note said with a smiley face. During dinner, Amelia took 3 bites and pushed her plate away. "I'm not really hungry," she said, throwing away food that could have fed my siblings for 2 days. "Can you order me sushi instead? My mom gave you her credit card, right?" She said this as she was scrolling through her phone that was newer than anything I'd ever owned. I watched my siblings eat everything on their plates like they might not see food again tomorrow. Honestly, they might not. After dinner, Amelia put exactly 2 plates in the dishwasher. "Ugh, I hate doing dishes," she groaned. "At least the cleaning lady comes tomorrow so I don't have to clean my room." She had someone who cleaned her room for her while I'd been scrubbing toilets since I was 7. Her mom texted me to see if everything was going okay. "Tell her I'm studying," Amelia yelled, showing me 22 unread messages from her mom just checking in since this afternoon. She's so annoying. She texts me like every hour. I couldn't remember the last time my mom had checked on me. Amelia started complaining about her life. "I'm so stressed about this history test because if I get a B, my mom will make me go to extra tutoring sessions and I'll miss Taylor's pool party." She was stressed about pool parties while I stressed about keeping us alive. Around 9, Amelia Amelia disappeared to FaceTime friends about some drama at school. My mom usually brings me a snack around now. There's probably something in the pantry. Their pantry was bigger than our bathroom and filled with food that wasn't expired or generic. I gave her a snack and watched her text on her phone, wearing pajamas that matched her bed sheets, in a room decorated exactly how she wanted it. Around 10:30, her mom came home. "How did everything go?" her mom asked, putting down a designer purse before immediately going to check on Amelia. "Did you like the lasagna? Do you feel ready for your test?" Her mom treated her like she was the most important thing in their world. She handed me $80 but tried to give me more. "Please take this too," she said, holding out another 40. "It's okay. Thanks for letting me bring them," I said, carrying my sister while my brothers grabbed their backpacks. The next morning, I woke up at 5 in the morning to make breakfast. "Can I join the soccer team?" my brother asked. "Maybe next year," I lied, knowing we would never have the money for it. That's when I finally broke. I realized my siblings would never have a childhood unless something drastic changed. After getting them all to school, I walked straight to the counselor's office and said 3 words I'd never said before. "I need help." Have you ever had to stop an animal abuser with your bare hands? My parents had one simple rule before they left us home alone. Absolutely no one comes over while they're gone. 2 months ago, my older sister Rachel had invited a few friends over while they were at a movie and came home to 30 people, 2 literally in my bed. Rachel just rolled her eyes and promised, but 20 minutes after they left, I already heard her on the phone. Marco finally texted me back. He said he wants me to throw a party tonight. When I reminded her about Dad's threat, she grabbed my wrist hard enough to leave red marks. "This is my only chance with Marco before he graduates. He's my lover," she hissed at me. "You say one word, I'll make sure no one ever sits with you at lunch again." I tried explaining that Dad would literally disown her this time. She just laughed. "It's just a small thing, maybe 5 people." Rachel had always been the pretty one, the popular one, the one who could destroy my social life with a single Instagram story. I should have known she was lying, because an hour later 20 people showed up. She even put Milo's bed in the living room because she heard Marco loves dogs. She came into my room. "Hey sis, why don't you stay in here till later?" Before I could respond, she walked out and I heard the click of my door locking from the outside. She'd installed that lock years ago as a prank that my parents never found out about. "Rachel, this isn't funny. Let me out," I shouted, banging on the door. Her voice came through cold. "Shut up, or I'll tell everyone you still wet the bed. Marco's here and I'm not letting you ruin this for me." The music started blasting, completely drowning out my calling for help. I could hear voices, laughter, the bass shaking our walls. I tried calling my parents, but it went straight to voicemail. I was completely trapped. For 2 hours, I sat on my bed, listening to the party spiral out of control. The music got louder, voices more slurred, laughter more aggressive. I heard glass breaking, followed by cheers. Then I heard a group of guys chanting something, their voices getting louder and more excited. Girls were screaming, "Stop, that's not funny." But the chanting just got more intense. That's when I remembered. Milo was out there. Rachel had put his bed in the living room to impress Marco, my sweet puppy who was scared of thunderstorms, surrounded by drunk teenagers. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to make out what they were chanting, and then I heard it clear as day. "Microwave! Put the dog in the microwave!" My blood turned to ice. I started pounding on the door like a maniac, kicking, screaming, "Let me out! Rachel, stop them!" I was throwing my whole body against the door when suddenly it swung open. A drunk couple had come upstairs looking for an empty bedroom and opened my door by accident. The girl looked confused, but I didn't stop to explain. I flew down the stairs into absolute chaos. The house was trashed, red cups everywhere. Someone had knocked over Mom's lamp. Everyone was in the kitchen, and I pushed past everyone to get inside. Then, there was my sister's crush Marco, putting my sweet Milo in the microwave. I've never moved so fast in my life, ripping the door open and taking him out as fast as I humanly could. He was shaking violently, his fur hot, and he almost bit me in pure terror. His little body was trembling so hard I could barely hold him. "What is wrong with you?" I screamed at Marco, who just laughed and said it was a joke. That's when I saw her, Rachel, standing right there in the kitchen doorway, watching her crush torture my dog and doing absolutely nothing. She just stood there, frozen, too worried about what Marco would think of her to save an innocent animal. I ran out of that house carrying Milo, pushing past everyone. I was dialing 911 when I felt Milo go completely limp in my arms. "There's a party at my house and someone just microwaved my dog," I sobbed to the operator. "He's not moving. He's unconscious. Please send help." The police came and found my mom's jewelry was stolen, those 2 people in my bed, and my dad was furious. His parents had to pay to save Milo's life, and it was funny because my sister got to be with her lover because they both ended up in the same juvie.
How did your neighbor's PowerPoint presentation convince the cops to surround your house? I tried to explain to the 6 armed officers that I didn't know anything about any murders, but my neighbor Karen held up her iPad, showing a PowerPoint titled "Serial Killer Next Door Evidence" by Karen. She flipped to the first evidence slide, looking at me with a smug, "I got you this time" beach expression. "It began 3 months ago," Karen said like a modern-day Sherlock Holmes. She noticed I kept odd hours and had blackout curtains on all my windows. The first incident happened when she saw me dragging heavy black garbage bags to my car at 2 in the morning. The next day, she found red stains all over my driveway that looked exactly like blood. She started documenting everything for the safety of the neighborhood. He would have delivery trucks come to this house at night with tattooed men unloading large packages and body-sized boxes. He took every single one down to his garage and came out with black bags once he's finished the job. Our other neighbors who had come out to check on the scene gasped at the horrific PowerPoint full pictures of the men, the suspicious truck, and me wearing protective eyeglasses and an apron, stained with something red. Karen flipped through more extensive evidence, photos of body parts visible through my garage window, recordings of bone saw sounds at midnight, even a video of me splashed with a red liquid while holding a chainsaw. "I'm telling you now, it's not what it looks like," I said, trying to hold back my laughter. Karen laughed. "We're not blind. friend. Don't even try to play your tricks on us. You're just another Jason wannabe. Jason Derulo? I teased. What the no? Jason Voorhees from those horror films. You know what? Never mind. She flipped through more pieces of evidence. The Ring doorbell recording of me handing over a red-stained suitcase to the delivery men and a picture of a shrunken head in my car. When the officers saw the footage of a victim who sat in my living room, pale and unmoving, they panicked. Check the property. Start with the garage. Go. The officers entered my garage with weapons drawn and found mannequins on professional racks with latex limbs hanging to dry. They found containers of the red liquid labeled Corn Syrup Mix Episode 6 and a toy chainsaw tagged Testing Zombie Scene 4B. They clicked on different files from my computer, listening to different creepy sound effects and screams. Oh hey, wasn't this on Stranger Things on something? One officer said, recognizing one of the props. He whistled at the $3,000 invoice attached. Another officer picked up the body part that was seen on Karen's PowerPoint and realized it was just foam latex. They brought out a few of them to the lawn. Karen's hands shook as she picked up the lightweight props. I don't understand, she mumbled. That's when I explained everything. I used to work corporate until I lost my job, and I figured, maybe I could start over, do something I really loved. So I got into special effects, became an artist. I loved horror movies and wanted to make things that I had always wanted to see in person. So I started making them. One thing led to another, and I now do some freelancing for clients like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon. No, Karen said, still not ready to admit defeat. I saw the bodies, I swear, but no one was interested in her PowerPoint anymore. The officers and neighbors started asking me tons of questions about my job, which movies I'd worked on, what celebrities I'd met. Karen's husband stepped out from the crowd and quickly apologized to me and the officers, dragging her back to the house while she mumbled about seeing real bodies. Once she was gone, the neighbors and officers quickly left too, and I went back upstairs to check on the guy I'd tied up in the attic, my real prop. Why did my mother show up to my Indian wedding in a white ball gown? My mother always made everything about her. On my birthdays, she'd demand gifts because you wouldn't exist without me. At my college graduation, she pushed me off stage during photos so she could hold my diploma. When I got promoted at work, she told everyone how her parenting made it possible. So when I told her I was marrying Pia, I knew she'd try something. White is traditional for the mother of the groom, she announced 3 weeks before our wedding. Mom, it's an Indian wedding. Everyone wears bright colors. You'll stick out. Perfect. People should know who raised such a successful son. Pia found me stress-eating samosas at 1 a.m. after that call. Just let her wear white, she said, rubbing my back. Trust me. I didn't understand why Pia seemed so calm until her sister pulled me aside the next day. We've handled attention-seeking aunties before. Your mom won't know what hit her. The wedding day arrived. 300 guests in stunning saris and sherwanis. Gold, crimson, emerald, sapphire. The venue looked like a jewelry box had exploded. Then my mother walked in, wearing what I can only describe as a Disney princess wedding dress. Full ball gown, train, little tiara. The security guard stopped her. Ma'am, the American wedding is next door. I'm the groom's mother, she snapped. He looked at his list, confused. But all the family is already. Oh, you're that mother. He said it loud enough that everyone in the lobby turned to stare. During the ceremony, she tried to stand up during the Sat Fir to give a blessing. Pia's 5-year-old cousin yelled, "Auntie, sit down! You're blocking!" The whole mandap laughed. When she tried again, Pia's aunt suddenly had a coughing fit and needed water, which my mother just happened to be blocking. By the third attempt, Pia's grandmother had developed urgent stomach problems and needed my mother to show her to the bathroom immediately. At the reception, she couldn't participate in any of the dancing because her dress was too big for the moves. While everyone else was doing garba, she stood in the corner like a deflated meringue. She tried complaining to other guests, but Pia's family had spread the word. Every time she started her sob story, someone would interrupt with, "Oh, you must be so proud of your son," and launch into praise about me. Her final move was grabbing the mic during toasts. My son wet the bed until he was 12. The room went silent. I wanted to die, but Pia grabbed the mic. "How wonderful that you were such a supportive mother during his childhood anxiety. Medical professionals say bedwetting is often caused by stress in children. Thank you for sharing how you helped him through such a difficult time." The crowd started clapping, thinking my mother had shared a touching story about supporting me through childhood trauma. My mother stood there, mouth open, as 300 people applauded her vulnerability and brave parenting. She left early, her white dress stained with turmeric from when Pia's cousin accidentally bumped into her during the Haldi photo session. Later that night, during our first dance, Pia whispered, "I told you to trust me. Your family is evil. I love it. Welcome to the dark side. We have samosas." My mother called the next week demanding an apology for being excluded from wedding planning. I sent her the video of her toast. "Everyone thinks it was beautiful," I said. "Pia's posting it on social media to show what a supportive mother you've always been. She hasn't mentioned the wedding since. Pia's sister already has plans for when we have kids. Wait until she sees what we do to attention-seeking grandmas. I married into the right family."
At 3 a.m., my Ring app started buzzing saying there's new activity at my old apartment, and I swear to God my heart stopped. We'd moved out 6 months ago and terminated that lease, so why was I getting notifications? I shoved my husband Tyrone awake, probably harder than necessary, shoving the screen in his face. It's just a glitch, he mumbled, rolling over like I was being dramatic. Ring cameras do that sometimes with old addresses, but something felt off about how quickly he dismissed it, so I opened the app anyway. What I saw made me wake up instantly. Our old couch was sitting right there on the screen, that hideous brown monster we'd supposedly donated to Goodwill. The coffee table we'd sold on Facebook Marketplace was exactly where we'd left it, complete with my birthday party wine stain. But if we'd terminated the lease, Tyrone, why is our stuff still there? My voice went squeaky, which I hate, but I was freaking out. He sat up way too fast, practically lunging for my phone, but I yanked it away. Just close the app, babe. It's probably showing old footage. Except the timestamp said 3:02 a.m., literally right now, and I could see fresh rain droplets on the window. My chest felt like someone was squeezing it because this meant someone had been maintaining our old place for 6 months. I pulled up our bank statements while he kept insisting this was some technical glitch, his voice getting more desperate with each excuse. No rent payments anywhere on our personal accounts, which should have been good news except someone was obviously paying. By 7 a.m., I was practically vibrating with anxiety and called the property management's emergency line. After being transferred twice, I finally got answers that were even more confusing. Oh yes, mister. Tyrone renewed the lease, she said cheerfully. He pays through his business account for tax purposes, lists it as client meeting space. Client meeting space? He worked from home exclusively, so who was he meeting? That's when I remembered Megan, my old neighbor who worked night shifts and loved gossip. She called immediately after my text, probably thrilled for drama. Girl, your husband's been there every Thursday for months with some creepy old dude who gives me serial killer vibes. The description she gave stopped everything. Gray hair, tall, that weird limp from his motorcycle accident, the scar through his left eyebrow. My father, my own father, who was supposed to be rotting in state prison for 15 years. But how was he at our apartment if he was locked up? He got out 3 months ago, Tyrone admitted quietly, not even trying to deny it anymore. Some technicality with evidence handling, they had to release him. I wanted to scream so bad my throat burned. 3 months of secret meetings, but what were they planning that required weekly visits? How could you not tell me he was out? I was whisper screaming now because the kids were sleeping. Your mom's death changed him, Della. He's been going to therapy, working through his issues. Then this absolute idiot pulled out his phone to show me something that made everything worse. Hundreds of photos I didn't know existed. Our daughter Winnie at soccer practice, our son Milo walking into school, me at the grocery store buying tampons. He cries every time he sees how happy you are, Tyrone said, and I wanted to punch him. He's creating a family archive for his therapy. That's when everything clicked and I felt like I was going insane. The weird car outside Winnie's dance recital that made my skin crawl. That man at the park who looked familiar but vanished when I double-checked. The feeling of being watched at Target that Tyrone said was just my anxiety. Of course it wasn't anxiety, but why would my father risk violating parole just to watch us? You gave him our schedules? My voice sounded dead. Just general stuff. Tyrone lied, but I could literally see the documents on his phone. Winnie's dance schedule with the studio address, Milo's karate times, my running route with every single street labeled. But this wasn't a family archive, it was surveillance. He went to prison for trying to kidnap me, Tyrone. He had duct tape and zip ties in his van. The memory gave me flashbacks. That was 12 years ago, Tyrone whined, but even he didn't believe his own BS. When the ring alert went off again, I zoomed in on the feed and nearly screamed. He was loading boxes into a white van, the same type he'd had before. He said he just needed photos for his therapist, Tyrone stammered, but those weren't photos he was packing. Children's toys that weren't ours, rope, and something wrapped in plastic. Remember when the kids mentioned that nice grandpa with candy last week? Tyrone's face went gray. The one who knew their names? But if he'd promised no contact, why approach them at school? He swore he wouldn't, Tyrone started, but we both knew what those supplies meant. I made one phone call. He found us. I told my brother. Code black. Both of them. Silence then. You're sure about both? I looked at Tyrone, who still didn't understand what he'd enabled. He gave him everything. The line went dead. Tyrone keeps asking what code black means, but he'll find out soon enough when they both disappear. What happened? When MIL called me a gold digger at her own daughter's wedding. I'm at my sister-in-law's wedding rehearsal dinner, and my mother-in-law is doing her favorite thing, which is introducing me as my son's wife who stays home because he's such a good provider. She says that to literally every person she sees. Each time I try to smile and say, actually, I work from home, but she cuts me off with, yes, keeping house is work too, dear, we know. And she's already moving to the next person, literally turning her back mid-sentence, like I'm a museum display she's explaining. 6 years of this crap. 6 years of her dropping by at 10 a.m. and saying, must be nice to sleep in, when I've been working since 5. His whole family thinks I married him for money, all because I got pregnant 3 months after we met and had a quickie wedding. I quit my office job to work from my laptop, which to them means I don't work at all. The aunt asks, so you're just home with the kids? And I say, I actually run a business, but she pats my hand going, oh, you have a hobby, how nice. My mother-in-law laughs, saying, she sells things online, it's so cute, like I'm a 5-year-old with a lemonade stand. My husband tries at dinner saying, she's actually really successful, but his mom cuts him off with, stop embarrassing her, honey, not everyone needs to be a career woman. My phone buzzes with another notification. I quickly silence. My mother-in-law tells the wedding planner I've been between jobs for 6 years when they asked about the extended family of the bride. Not to mention my father-in-law makes a weekly joke about how I won the lottery marrying his son. The most annoying thing is when my brother-in-law calls me the professional mom, and they all think they're being so clever. Wedding day arrives and it's this garden situation with 150 guests. I'm trying to get the kids ready when my mother-in-law walks in, seeing my laptop open with spreadsheets showing 6-figure quarterly reports and goes, you shouldn't be playing games while the kids get dressed. Priorities, dear. I say, it's actually my quarterly reports, but she's already talking over me. Can you help with flower arrangements since you're not busy? During the reception, they seat me at the back table with the kids and elderly relatives because where else would the housewife sit right? The bride's college friends are at my table and ask what I do. I start to explain, I run an online business, but they turn to each other before I finish saying, must be nice to not have real deadlines. And as if summoned, my mother-in-law walks by adding, she's trying to start a little Etsy shop, isn't that sweet? The photographer is gathering details for the album, asking about everyone's careers. However, when he gets to me, my mother-in-law answers for me. She's loved being a homemaker and a professional child raiser. And when I try to correct her, she goes, she's being modest. She runs after 2 kids all day, and everyone laughs. But wait, it gets worse because mother-in-law takes the microphone for her toast, and instead of talking about her lawyer daughter, the one getting married, she talks about how special her son is, how successful he is, how handsome he is, then turns to me saying, my son married for love, not money. He provides everything while his wife gets to enjoy the simple joys of motherhood. Some women are just meant to keep house. She said it as a joke, only no one was laughing. Even the elderly relatives at my table looked uncomfortable. Not even a minute after the speech, the maid of honor, who's a fashion influencer with like 2 million followers, rushes over to me. I'm sorry, but I have to ask about that dress you're wearing. She walks closer, squinting. That's part of an exclusive collection that's not even released yet. How do you have this? My mother-in-law, who still had the microphone, jumps in saying, she probably got a knockoff online. She's always shopping discount sites. But the maid of honor shakes her head. No, this is real. I've held this fabric at Fashion Week. My father-in-law laughs. Son, you shouldn't be spending so much on clothes for your girl. My husband finally snaps. I didn't buy it for her dad. Meanwhile, the maid of honor's getting more confused. But this isn't even available to the public yet. My mother-in-law was clearly getting angry that the attention on me shifted from pity to intrigue. This is ridiculous. She's a housewife. She probably won it in some online contest. But the maid of honor's studying my face like she's trying to place where she's seen me. Then her eyes go wide, staring at me. How do you have unreleased items? Unless you're, oh my god. People at nearby tables are turning to look now. Mother-in-law says, unless she's what? A gold digger? A small group of people gasp. Mother-in-law realizes she might have had too much wine. The maid of honor ignores her though and does a quick search, then shows her phone with my face on a female founder's magazine. She owns this fashion company that I love. She's worth $8 million. My mother-in-law sits down hard while everyone starts Googling me.
My girlfriend said, maybe I should upgrade to someone who actually shows up for me. I replied, sounds good to me. Then I pulled out the ring box I'd been hiding for 3 weeks. I've been dating Sonia for 3 years. She's incredible, but her family, absolute sharks. They are the type of people who won't shake a janitor's hand because they think it might infect them. But I always thought Sonia was different, that she was special. Sadly, I was about to find out just how wrong I was. One day, her parents invited me over for their monthly dinner. But when I got there, I realized I was invited for a humiliation session. Sonia was there with her brother Finney, her parents Edmund and Viv, and they were all looking at me like I was some disappointment they needed to discuss. So, JC, Finney started, already laughing. Are you still doing IT support? Must be so fulfilling, turning computers off and on all day. Sonia giggled, not even trying to defend me. He's trying his best, she said, but the sarcasm was obvious. Then her mother Viv jumped in. Sonia tells me you've been too busy for everything lately. You've missed 3 events this month alone. Do you even care about her? Edmund put down his fork and nodded. He's always working, yet he's somehow still driving a 2012 Camry and renting an apartment. Make it make sense. I just sat there in shock, staring at Sonia, who made no attempt to refute her family's insults about me. Finney pulled out his phone. Speaking of real success, look at David from the golf course. He just became a partner at his hedge fund. That's him and his wife in Turks and Caicos. Sonia leaned over, eyes lighting up. Oh my god, is that her ring? It's massive. Finney laughed again. That's what happens when you date someone going places. Sonia nodded and then turned to look at me with disappointed eyes. Meanwhile, this guy thinks taking their girlfriend to Applebee's is romantic. The whole table laughed. Sonia was laughing the hardest. Then she said the words that hurt the most. Maybe I should upgrade to someone who actually deserves me. The entire table nodded. These people who I thought would become my family were sitting here openly discussing my replacement. I could have defended myself, but I was tired of being their entertainment. So I reached into my pocket and made a decision. You want to know why I've been so busy? I pulled out the ring box and set it on the table. Open it. The laughter stopped instantly. Sonia's smirk vanished. What is that? Open it. Her hands shook as she lifted the lid. The diamond caught the light and her face went completely pale. Viv's wine glass slipped, spilling red across the white tablecloth. JC, what is this? Sonia whispered. Your dream ring. The exact one that you've been talking about for months. I pulled out my phone and showed the receipt for $9,000. Finney's jaw dropped. Edmund pushed back from the table like I'd pulled out a weapon. $9,000? How did you afford that? Viv looked at me like she was seeing a ghost. I pulled 6 months of double shifts, working myself to death while you sat here laughing at me. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. This was supposed to be tonight. The proposal. In front of your family. Sonia's eyes filled with tears. Her hand went to her mouth. I was going to get on one knee right here. Tell everyone how much I loved you. Edmund couldn't even speak. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. JC, please forgive me. Sonia reached for the ring, tears streaming now. I didn't know you were. I snapped the box shut. The girl who was going to get this ring would have defended me. Once. Just once. Sonia jumped up, nearly knocking over her chair. Please, that's my ring. That's our future. No, I said, pocketing it. It's a $9,000 reminder that I never belonged here. I walked out while Sonia sobbed behind me, her family sitting in stunned silence. My phone started exploding even before I reached my car. Sonia, please come back. I'm sorry. Please bring the ring back. I ignored it at first, but then her family started texting too. Finney's text read, dude, she's hysterical. She keeps saying, my ring, my ring. I'm sorry about what I said. Just talk to her. Then came Viv. JC, please. I know we shouldn't have said those things, but Sonia is devastated. She wants to talk about the ring. I put my phone on silent once the call started, not willing to deal with these fake losers. Once I reached my apartment, Sonia showed up within minutes and banged on my door, screaming, JC, please. I know you're in there. I'm sorry. Can I just see the ring again? I love how good it looks. Please. I put on headphones while the ring sat on my desk, as nothing but a reminder of how much I'd sacrificed.
When did your parents blame you for ruining their expensive plans after they put you in danger? When I was 16, I ended up in the ER after I got mauled by my parents' dogs while they were at a wine tasting in Napa. Red soaked through the gauze on my arms as the doctor stitched up the worst bite on my shoulder. We need to contact your parents immediately, the ER nurse said while examining the puncture wounds covering both my forearms. They're at a wine festival, but their phone goes straight to voicemail when they're tasting. She stared at me. They don't answer during emergencies. They say tastings are sacred time and nothing should interrupt the wine experience. The nurse tried calling anyway and shook her head after the 5th attempt. They don't know about the attack yet because it just happened an hour ago, I said. How many dogs do you have? Asked the doctor as he cleaned another wound. Right now we have 9, but last week we had 11. 2 got rehomed when they kept attacking each other. He stopped mid-stitch. 9 dogs? In one house? I nodded. My parents run a rescue, except it's not official and they don't actually rescue them. They just see cute dogs online and buy them. Who takes care of 9 dogs? He prompted. Me, obviously. Since my parents travel 4 days a week for their wine blog, the doctor and nurse exchanged looks. How long have you been the primary caretaker for these animals? The doctor asked carefully. Since I was 12 and they brought home the first 3 puppies from a backyard breeder, and now you're 16 managing 9 dogs alone? The nurse asked. Well, technically 11. If you count the 2 they're picking up tomorrow from some guy on Craigslist selling wolf hybrids. The nurse actually gasped. Wolf hybrids? Those require special permits and and experienced handlers. Yeah, my parents think they're just big fluffy dogs and have already named them Pinot and Grigio. The doctor paused before opening his mouth again. When was the last time you went to school without rushing home for feeding time? I tried to think. Maybe freshman year before we got dogs 4 through 6? And when did you last hang out with friends without canceling for a dog emergency? The silence stretched too long. When did you last sleep through the night without breaking up fights or cleaning up accidents? My throat felt tight. The dogs need schedules and training, and I'm the only one who bothers. Sweetheart, the nurse said gently, you're not a professional trainer. You're a child who needs stitches from trying to separate fighting animals. That's when animal control walked in, and my heart stopped. We received a report of a dangerous dog attack involving a minor, the officer said officially. The dogs aren't dangerous. They're just stressed and untrained and kept in too small a space and fed inconsistently and never exercised properly, and I heard myself making excuses and stopped. The officer pulled out his tablet. How many animals on the property? 9 dogs ranging from 15 to 90 pounds. Are they licensed? I shook my head. Vaccinated? Some of them maybe, but I don't know where my parents keep the records if they exist. Fixed? Only 2 because my mom thinks it's mean to take away their manhood even though 3 females have had puppies, he wrote furiously. Any previous bite incidents? Well, there was the mailman and the neighbor's kid and that jogger, but my parents said those don't count because no one pressed charges. My dad burst through the door reeking of Merlot and rage. What the hell did you do that required us to leave an exclusive $800 tasting? As my mom trailed behind him, I lifted my bandaged arms. Diesel and Thor got into it over food, and when I tried to separate them, the other dogs joined in. Fire burned in his eyes. You stupid girl. Do you know how embarrassing it was getting called out of the grand tasting? Sir, your daughter has over 30 bite wounds requiring medical attention. The doctor interrupted. She's being dramatic as usual and probably provoked them somehow. Sir, I'm mandated to report this. The officer stepped forward. 9 unlicensed, unvaccinated dogs in one home with a minor as sole caretaker constitutes neglect and endangerment. My dad ignored the officer and went off on me. Those dogs are worth thousands of dollars. Dad, I needed 14 stitches and a tetanus shot. He snarled. Do you have any idea what this emergency room visit will cost our insurance? The officer closed his tablet. All animals will be removed pending investigation, and you'll be prohibited from adopting any animals for 5 years minimum. My mom started sobbing about her fur babies, while the officer explained criminal charges.
My fiancée left me for her cousin on her birthday. At her birthday dinner, my fiancée Caitlin stood up in front of both our families. She said, I'm in love with Nolan. Everyone went dead silent. Her mom dropped her wine glass, and it shattered everywhere. Nolan was sitting right there at the table, her first cousin. She continued, we've been together 6 months. 6 months while I was planning our wedding and buying our house. They walked out together holding hands. I still had the anniversary gift in my pocket. The next morning, she posted photos from Nolan's apartment with the caption, finally living my truth. I had to call 200 wedding guests by myself, had to cancel everything and eat $40,000 in deposits. The humiliation was crushing, but it turned into something else. Pure motivation. I started at the bank as a teller and worked every overtime shift they offered. Studied for licensing exams during lunch breaks and passed everything first try. Made loan processor in 6 months and junior loan officer by year 2. While I was climbing, Caitlin's family disowned her for dating her cousin. Nolan's parents cut him off completely and told everyone he was dead to them. They got evicted from their first apartment for non-payment, then their second apartment, then their third. Someone sent me their wedding photo. It was just 10 people in someone's backyard, and she wore a thrift store dress. By year 3, I was senior loan officer. That's when their mortgage application landed on my desk. Caitlin and Nolan Brennan needed a home because she was 7 months pregnant. They had absolutely no idea who their loan officer was. Their application painted the whole pathetic picture. 6 banks had already rejected them, and their credit score was in the 400s. 5 different addresses in 3 years. Nolan made minimum wage at a warehouse, and Caitlin worked part-time retail. The house they wanted was the cheapest listing in our entire database. It was 40 minutes outside the city and had no other offers in 8 months. They'd scraped together $3,000 by borrowing from the few friends still speaking to them. They sold their car. Her original engagement ring was pawned too, the one I'd saved 3 years for, the one she used to flash around. Now it was pawned for rent money. They needed someone to overlook their disasters and give them a chance. That someone turned out to be me. My assistant knocked and said, the Brennans are here for their appointment. Through the glass, I could see them waiting. Caitlin was heavily pregnant, and Nolan wore the same suit from her birthday dinner, but now it was frayed at the edges. They were holding hands and looked absolutely desperate. They had no idea they were about to walk into my office. I said, send them in. Nolan entered first. He saw me and stopped completely. His face drained of all color. Caitlin bumped into him until she saw me too. Her hand flew to her mouth. She whispered, oh God. Nolan turned to leave, but I stopped him. If you walk out, your application gets denied and you'll be blacklisted from every bank, I said. They had no choice but to sit down. My office showed everything I'd achieved without them. Banking awards covered the walls and leather furniture filled the space. Success they'd never have. I opened their file and said, your credit score is 421. 3 evictions. No permanent address. Caitlin's eyes filled with tears. She said, we're staying with friends. I responded, the few who still talk to you. She physically flinched at that. Let's review why 6 banks said no, I continued. I went through every late payment and collection notice, every single consequence of their choice. You pawned an engagement ring last month for $900, I said. That ring cost me $8,000. 3 months of saving. Caitlin was crying now. The baby needs a home, please, she whispered. I looked at their application and their pathetic down payment, looked at what their love had accomplished. You barely qualify. The debt-to-income ratio is right at the limit, I said slowly. They held their breath, waiting. But I'm going to approve this loan, I finished. They stared at me in shock. Nolan asked, why? I stood up and said, because I'm professional, and everyone deserves a chance to start over, even people who didn't give me one. Caitlin sobbed and said, leaving you was the biggest mistake. I cut her off. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Why did defying a dumb rule end up being the best decision you've ever made? My parents were absolutely convinced the gym was no place for a 17-year-old girl. At 17, I was the only athlete on my my track team who wasn't allowed to strength train. While my teammates were getting faster and stronger every week, I was stuck doing bodyweight exercises in my bedroom with a yoga mat my mom bought on sale. The frustration was unbearable. Every time I brought up needing a gym membership, my dad would go into his speech. There are too many creepy guys just showing off and hitting on young girls, he'd say. Those places are meat markets, not fitness centers. Mom would jump in with stories she'd read on Facebook. Did you see that article about the girl who got followed home from the gym? Or a trainer at that franchise got arrested for harassment last year? My coach kept asking why I wasn't following the team strength program. She'd written out this whole periodized training plan, but I had to keep making excuses about why my times weren't improving. I begged them constantly. Please just let me try it for 1 month. I'll only go during women's hours. But dad would shake his head and say, we're protecting you from that toxic culture. Meanwhile, girls I used to beat easily were now passing me in races, and college scouts stopped considering me at all. I was venting to my best friend Kimberly after practice one day about how much I was starting to resent my parents. They think every guy there is some predator waiting to harass me. Kimberly just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. That's insane. You need strength training for track. What do they expect you to do? Fail horribly? Her mom overheard us talking and walked over to the couch. I thought I was about to get another adult lecture, but instead she said, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. The next day during pickup, she secretly handed me a key fob. I added you to our family gym membership, she whispered while my mom was distracted. Tell your parents you're studying at the library with Kimberly before school. Oh my god. I hugged her and thanked her and promised to keep this secret. For 3 months, Kimberly picked me up every morning at 5:30 a.m. for our library study sessions when we were actually going to the gym to train. I was building muscle and finally starting to catch up with the rest of the team. I even kept gym clothes in Kimberly's car and always showered before returning so my parents would never realize. Then one Saturday afternoon, my rebellion would end up paying off in an unexpected way. I was upstairs in my room doing bodyweight exercises when I heard my mom's car pull up. She'd been out grocery shopping and was carrying in those massive bags. She'd always refused to make 2 trips and was stubbornly carrying all the bags all at once. Through my window, I watched her struggle with the bags, each one looking like it weighed a ton. I heard the front door open, then footsteps, then a sound I'll never forget. A sharp crack followed by a cry of pure agony. I flew down the stairs to find Mom collapsed on the kitchen floor. Her face was completely red, and she was crying like it was someone's funeral. My back, she whispered, barely able to speak through the pain. Something popped. I can't move. Her whole body was trembling. Every tiny movement made her cry out. I tried to help her up the normal way, grabbing her hands and pulling her up, but she screamed so loud I jumped back. Don't pull my arms. Please, it hurts so bad. She was sobbing now, the kind of crying where you can't even catch your breath. Something in me just shifted when I realized my mom needed immediate help. The adrenaline hit me like a wave. Without even realizing what I was doing, I dropped into a perfect squat position, slid my arms under Mom's body, and lifted her up in my arms with barely any effort at all. Just hold on, Mom. I'll take you to the hospital. Mom gasped and looked at me in shock. How did you just lift me? But I was already moving, keeping my back straight, breathing steadily, carrying her through the house like I'd carried that 150-pound barbell last week. I set her down gently in the backseat of her car and drove straight to the emergency room, with her bewildered face watching me in the rearview mirror the entire time. I pulled up to the emergency entrance and ran inside for a wheelchair. A nurse helped me transfer Mom while she winced with every tiny movement. We wheeled her straight in and they took her back for x-rays and an MRI. About an hour later, a doctor came out and brought me back to where Mom was lying on a gurney. Your mother has a herniated disc, he said, looking at both of us. The compression on her nerves was severe. If she'd stayed on that floor much longer, we'd be looking at potential permanent nerve damage, possibly even paralysis. Mom's face went white. I could have been paralyzed? The doctor nodded. You're very lucky you got here when you did. Every minute matters with this type of injury. After the doctor left, she turned to me and asked, have you been going to the gym? I nodded, and her only response was, good. When did you realize the kids your parents were saving actually saved you? My parents fostered 17 kids over 12 years and treated every single one of them like royalty while I lived in the laundry room. The first foster child arrived when I was 6, and my mother immediately gave him the bedroom she'd promised me for getting straight A's, because foster children deserve a real space to heal. When he had nightmares, she'd hold him for hours singing lullabies. But when I had strep throat, she told me to sleep in the garage so I wouldn't infect the foster kids. By 10 years old, I knew the drill for every new arrival. Give up your belongings because they've been through enough. Cancel your plans because family bonding helps them adjust. Skip your school events because their therapy matters more. My parents threw their first foster child an elaborate going-away party with 300 guests and a 5-tier cake when he reunited with his aunt. 2 weeks later, they forgot my birthday completely until the foster kids reminded them at dinner, and Dad said, birthdays are just commercial nonsense anyway, but fine, we'll get you something next week. Mom ran a support group for foster parents at our church where she was constantly celebrated as a saint while referring to me as our helper, like I was hired staff instead of their daughter. The foster kids genuinely loved me and constantly questioned the different treatment, which made everything worse. One girl would sneak into my laundry room crying because Mom wouldn't let me join movie nights even though family activities were supposedly mandatory. You're their actual daughter. Why are you in here doing their taxes while we watch movies? A 12-year-old boy tried giving me his brand new PlayStation because he felt guilty getting a $2,000 gaming setup while I had a laptop from 2009 that crashed while running email. A younger foster daughter asked my mother point blank at dinner why she never hugged me, and Mom said, biological children don't need physical affection because they have genetic proof of love. The girl looked at me and said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and I've been in the system for 6 years. While my parents attended galas and support groups accepting awards for their sacrifice, I was the one actually raising these kids. I taught 3 different foster boys to tie their ties for court dates while my parents were at foster parent appreciation dinners. I held a 7-year-old through panic attacks every night for 6 months, teaching her breathing exercises I'd learned from YouTube because my parents said she just needed to self-soothe. I helped 5 different teenagers with homework until 3 in the morning because my parents believed in natural consequences for grades, but these kids had never been taught basic math. I drove foster kids to therapy appointments using gas money from my grocery store job while my parents updated their foster family blog about the healing power of unconditional love. One 16-year-old foster sister sobbed in my arms after her first heartbreak while my mother was at a conference presenting about attachment parenting, and my father golfed with other foster dads. I taught 4 different foster kids to drive in the grocery store parking lot after my shifts because my parents said driving was a privilege they hadn't earned yet, but I knew they'd age out with no one to teach them. I snuck birthday cakes into the house for foster kids whose birthdays my parents forgot to celebrate because there were too many kids to keep track of, but I kept a calendar in my laundry room with every single important date. A foster brother told me before leaving for college that I was the only parent who'd ever shown up to his basketball games, despite that I'd only been 15 myself, sitting in those bleachers with homework on my lap cheering for him. When I turned 18, my parents handed me apartment listings and said it was time to be independent because they needed my laundry room for a sensory calm-down space for traumatized children. I worked 3 jobs to pay for community college while sleeping on different couches because they spent $8,000 renovating my former room. Then when I got accepted to my dream university with a partial scholarship needing $5,000 for the remainder and asked my parents for a loan, Mom literally laughed in my face and said, "We just spent $12,000 on equine therapy for our newest placement. Do you think money grows on trees?" That night, I got a call from one of the first foster kids who'd aged out years ago and kept in touch. I heard what happened from the younger kids. "I've been saving money since I got my job to help you out. It's not much, but I hope it helps." Within a week, she showed up at my job with an envelope containing $6,000 in cash that she and 4 other former foster kids had been secretly saving for me. They'd all gotten jobs after aging out and decided independently to save money for when I finally needed to escape because I was the only real parent any of them had ever known. My boyfriend took my best friend to Italy on the trip I planned, but Tokyo wanted me more. My boyfriend Jaden looked at me and said, "I need space to figure things out." Exactly 1 week before our Italy trip, the one my parents paid $12,000 for as my graduation gift. I'd spent months planning every detail, but here's what made me depressed. I turned down a full-ride scholarship to Tokyo's top design program for this trip, for him, because he swore long distance would destroy us. My mom had called me an idiot for choosing love over my future, and maybe she was right because that's when my phone buzzed with something that made me even more depressed. There was Jaden at the airport gate with my high school best friend Jessica, except she was wearing the exact outfit I'd shown her for day 1 in Rome, down to the vintage Versace scarf I'd bought myself at that estate sale. But wait, it got worse. The caption read, "Finally going after what I deserve, tagged at gate 47, our gate," at the exact boarding time on my ticket. My roommate grabbed my phone because I started hyperventilating, but then she gasped and showed me Jessica's story from an hour earlier, a photo of her passport next to a ticket with today's date, the same flight, the same seats I'd selected. How? I FaceTimed them immediately, which probably wasn't a good idea, but I did it anyway. Jaden answered from seat 11A, the window seat I'd picked because Travelblog said it had the best landing views, and you know it's safest, while Jessica was literally reading my Kindle next to him. "Look, you're too good for me anyway," he said, which sounded rehearsed, like they'd practiced this exact conversation. "Besides," Jessica butted in, "you always talked about Tokyo. Now you can go." That's when the pieces clicked and I threw my phone into the wall. She'd been in my room last week, helping me pack, had access to everything, my Pinterest boards, my reservation confirmations. 2 hours later, I got an automated email from the airline about my canceled ticket credit, which felt like salt in a wound until I remembered something crucial. The Tokyo program director had emailed me last week begging me to reconsider because another student had dropped out last minute. They needed someone immediately, or they'd lose funding for the position. I rage emailed at 3 a.m., probably sounding psychotic, but the professor actually replied within an hour because it was already afternoon in Tokyo. "Can you be here in 3 days? The scholarship is still yours." My parents thought I'd completely lost it, but my dad booked me a red eye with points, saying, "Show that piece of trash what he gave up." Tokyo felt like landing on another planet where I didn't speak the language and couldn't even order coffee correctly. The scholarship covered tuition and housing, but I only had $40 for food until my work study kicked in, which meant convenience store rice balls for every meal. But then things started becoming very interesting for me. Hiroto from my design cohort, this photographer who wore all black and never smiled, started leaving extra bentos on my desk, pretending he'd ordered too much. He didn't speak much English, I didn't speak Japanese, but somehow we'd sit on the roof eating in comfortable silence while the city screamed by below us. Meanwhile, Jessica's Instagram became my toxic obsession. She was posting at every restaurant I'd bookmarked, but here's the thing. There was something wrong in the photos. Jaden looked hollow, disconnected, like he was somewhere else entirely. In one, you could see their reflection arguing in a store window. Things got even more interesting when one day, the professor pulled me aside after I'd submitted my 3rd project running on 2 hours sleep and convenience store coffee. I thought I was failing, but instead she said my work was being presented to Sony's design team, that they wanted to meet me about a junior position that never goes to international students. The same week, Hiroto's street photography series featuring me navigating Tokyo went viral on Asian design blogs as "Foreign Girl Local Soul." Suddenly I wasn't broke anymore. Brands started reaching out for collaboration. My $40 food budget turned into dinners at places I couldn't pronounce. But here's what nobody knew. Jaden had been texting me from a burner 2 weeks into their trip, increasingly desperate messages I never answered. The truth finally came out through Jessica's roommate, who sent me screenshots of the disaster. Jaden had gambling debts I never knew about, $9,000 from online poker. Jessica's trust fund had hit, and she'd offered to pay them off if he'd take her to Italy instead of me. She'd been obsessed with him since high school, and saw her chance when he got desperate. He figured he'd string her along for 2 weeks, get his debts cleared, then dump her when they got back. But when she found his burner phone with the desperate text to me, she abandoned him in Florence with no money, no return ticket, and had to call his parents to wire him funds to get home. Hiroto and I are planning our own Italy trip for next year, business class. Why did this woman kidnap my son, and I thanked her for it? My son Rory was kidnapped by his babysitter Luna. The police called me at 7 a.m. "Your son has been located. He's safe, but you need to come to the station immediately. The woman who took him is in custody." Rory was supposed to be at his father's house for his court-mandated weekend visit. My ex-husband Mitchell had picked him up Friday afternoon from school, but then the babysitter we'd hired to help Mitchell with Rory during his weekends had taken my son across state lines to Connecticut. She'd broken into Mitchell's house through a window, taken Rory from his bed, and driven 40 miles before police intercepted them. Luna, the 22-year-old college student we'd trusted for 3 years, was now facing federal kidnapping charges. When I arrived at the police station, I found Luna in handcuffs on a metal bench. Her NYU sweatshirt was torn at the shoulder, dirt streaked across her face, and a purple bruise bloomed on her left cheekbone. She'd been like family to us. She'd taught Rory to tie his shoes, helped him with homework, made him dinosaur-shaped sandwiches. I'd even given her a key to my apartment, introduced her to my mother, and trusted her completely. Now, she'd taken my child in the middle of the night. The detective said, "At 2 a.m., Luna removed your son from his father's residence without permission. A neighbor saw her carrying Rory to her car and called it in. She drove across state lines, which makes this federal." He showed me doorbell camera footage. Luna carrying Rory wrapped in his dinosaur blanket to her car and Rory's arms around her neck. She broke a basement window to enter the house. That's breaking and entering on top of kidnapping. The detective's expression reaction was grim. Your ex-husband is pressing full charges. He says she's always been too attached to Rory, overstepping boundaries. He mentioned she'd questioned his parenting multiple times. Other parents in the waiting area whispered about how babysitters who snap could be dangerous, how you never really know someone. One mother said she'd never trust a college kid again. I need to see my son, I said. The detective hesitated. First, you should see why she took him. Luna was recording on her phone when she entered the house. He pulled out an evidence bag with Luna's phone and played a video. The footage was dark, shaky. I saw Mitchell's living room. Then I heard his drunk voice yelling, "Get over here, you little brat, now." The camera moved toward the sound. Rory came into view, backed into a corner beside the couch, wearing his pajamas, his hands up protecting his face. Mitchell kept yelling, "You wet the bed again? You disgusting little baby." He raised the bottle and smashed it against the wall. Rory screamed. Mitchell now held the broken bottleneck, the bottom shattered into a jagged weapon. "I'll teach you to embarrass me." He moved toward Rory with the broken bottle raised like a knife. Luna's voice came from behind the camera. "Mr. Anderson, stop." But Mitchell lunged at Rory with the bottle. The phone dropped, showing the ceiling, but the audio was clear. Luna screaming, "I've got you, I've got you." Rory was sobbing, "Help me, Luna." I heard footsteps running and a door slamming. The detective stopped the video there. Luna had grabbed Rory just as your ex-husband swung the bottle at him. If she'd been 1 second later, he didn't finish. Luna stayed on the property for another 20 minutes, hiding with Rory in the pool house while your ex-husband raged through the house looking for them. She called 911, but when she heard him coming toward the pool house, she ran to her car with Rory and drove straight to her parents' house to keep him safe. I stared at the frozen video frame. Mitchell was going to, with a broken bottle. He was going to stab our son? The detective nodded grimly. Luna saved Rory's life. M.O.M. I heard Rory's voice as he ran out from behind a corner and jumped into my arms. His eyes were still red, probably from all the crying. Daddy tried to hurt me with the broken glass. He was so mad I wet the bed and he broke the bottle and came at me, and Luna grabbed me and carried me away. She saved me, Mommy. Luna saved me. Over his head, I saw Luna being released from custody, her parents holding her as she cried. I ran and hugged her so tight I thought I might break her. "You saved my baby's life. How can I ever thank you?" Luna hugged me back. "I love Rory like he's my own little brother. I couldn't let Mitchell hurt him, not for 1 second." Rory pulled on her hand and asked, "Luna, are you still going to babysit me?" "Forever and always, buddy. I'll always keep you safe." What happens when the ugly duckling becomes prettier than the swan? My sister Victoria spent 18 years telling everyone I was adopted because no biological sister could be that ugly. She had the blonde hair, the cheekbones, the effortless beauty that made her prom queen 3 years running. I had braces until 17, cystic acne, 60 pounds of depression weight, and a unibrow my mother said gave me character. Then college happened, my skin cleared, the weight dropped, and suddenly Victoria was introducing me as her distant cousin because she couldn't stand people saying I was the pretty one. The transformation wasn't intentional. Depression medication balanced my hormones, clearing skin that no amount of Proactive could touch. Therapy helped me stop eating feelings. Braces came off revealing straight teeth. I discovered exercise as anxiety management, not punishment. The unibrow got professionally shaped. By sophomore year, I was unrecognizable. When I came home for Christmas, my own father walked past me at the airport. Victoria's reaction was immediate and vicious. "Did you get surgery?" "You must have. Nobody changes that much naturally." "No surgery. Just puberty's apologetic late arrival, mental health care, and basic grooming I'd never been taught because mom focused all beauty efforts on Victoria, assuming I was a lost cause." The real problem started when her friends noticed. Jake, her on and off boyfriend since high school, suddenly remembered I existed. "Sarah, holy shit, you look incredible. Like, completely different." Victoria laughed, sharp and bitter. "She's wearing makeup and got her teeth fixed. It's not that dramatic." But it was dramatic. The ugly duckling narrative assumes the swan celebrates your transformation. Nobody mentions the swan's rage when you become competition she never expected. Family gatherings became battlegrounds. Victoria would create slideshows of old photos, remembering good times, which meant displaying my worst moments on the TV. My 13th birthday with braces and acne, pool parties where I looked like a whale next to her. "Isn't it amazing how much Sarah's changed?" she'd say, ensuring everyone remembered the before. When I started modeling for a local boutique's Instagram, Victoria lost it. "You're not actually pretty," she informed me. "You're just benefiting from low expectations. Everyone's impressed because you were so ugly before. So I'm not pretty, but I'm prettier than I was?" "Exactly. And that threatens you because?" She couldn't answer. The truth was too ugly for someone who'd built identity on beauty. The crescendo came at her wedding. She made me a bridesmaid, then picked dresses that should have been unflattering. Mustard yellow, empire waist, basically a tent, except I looked good in it. The photographer kept positioning me, saying I caught light beautifully. Victoria's college roommate asked if I modeled professionally. Her cousin hit on me during cocktail hour. Victoria pulled me aside between dinner and dancing. "You're doing this on purpose." "Doing what? Standing here? Existing? You know what you're doing. This is my day. I'm literally just being a bridesmaid." "No, you're trying to upstage me. The ugly sister becoming pretty is your whole personality now." That's when I understood. She'd built her entire identity on being the pretty sister. Without that contrast, who was she? Just another attractive woman in a world full of them. My ugliness had been her pedestal. My transformation didn't just change me, it erased her narrative. "I'm not trying to be anything," I told her. "You're the one who can't handle me being visible." She uninvited me from the reception photos, told the photographer I felt sick, posted only pre-transformation photos of us on social media with captions about growing up together, created a careful fiction where she remained the only beautiful sister. "We don't talk now." She blocked me after her husband added me on Instagram and liked 3 years of photos in one night. She told family I'd tried to seduce him. The truth was simpler. She couldn't forgive me for becoming what she'd always been, because it revealed what she'd always been was nothing special. The ugly duckling doesn't become beautiful to spite the swan. Sometimes it just happens. But the swan will never forgive you for proving that beauty isn't rare, isn't special, isn't identity. It's just genetics and timing and luck, and those can change. Victoria still posts old photos of us with hashtags about glow-ups and puberty hitting different. She needs people to remember she was always beautiful, and I wasn't. What she doesn't understand is that I remember too. I remember 18 years of being told I was worthless because of my face. That memory makes current beauty feel hollow, temporary, unimportant. The ugly duckling learned something the swan never does. Worth isn't in mirrors. Victoria never learned that lesson because she never needed to. Now she's trapped checking her reflection, terrified of losing the only value she ever cultivated, while I know I survived without it. My boyfriend ditched me for his Discord mods until his roommate said, "I'm taking you out." He finally took off his headset. Xavier texted me 30 minutes before our anniversary dinner. "Can't make it, babe. The boys boys need me for raids tonight. I stared at my phone in my brand new dress that cost half my paycheck. This was literally the third time he had stood me up for our anniversary, and I had enough this time. I immediately drove to his apartment because I wanted him to see exactly what he was choosing those dumb pixels over. The second I walked through the door, I could hear him screaming at his monitor. Then I heard a voice from the kitchen say, "Wow, that dress is way too nice for getting stood up." It was Hunter, Xavier's roommate who had moved in 6 months ago. He was pouring himself a glass of whiskey. Hunter looked showered and dressed like an actual adult. Meanwhile, Xavier was probably still in yesterday's clothes screaming at 12-year-olds online. Let me guess. The boys needed their tank for tonight's very important digital battle that definitely couldn't wait? He asked while getting another glass from the cabinet. I laughed bitterly. "You know how he is," I said, trying not to cry while Xavier's yelling echoed from his room. Hunter shook his head. "Listen, Jules, I've seen him ditch you for regular game nights before, but really? On your anniversary?" He actually looked angry for me, which was more emotion than Xavier knew how to show. "That's just messed up and you know it." He poured me a glass of wine from a bottle that cost more than Xavier had spent on me in months. We sat there drinking, and Hunter actually listened when I talked about work. "Wait, you got promoted to regional manager?" he asked excitedly. Xavier never mentioned that at all. That's huge. I realized my boyfriend didn't even know what my job actually was, but his roommate remembered every detail from our random kitchen conversations. "I told Xavier about the promotion 2 weeks ago," I said. "He just said cool and went back to his game." Hunter looked at me sincerely. "You deserve someone who throws you a party, not someone who can't look away from a screen." Something about the way he looked at me made my heart flutter. Hunter had been there for me more than my actual boyfriend just by answering the door when I showed up. "Hey Xavier, your girlfriend is here in a smoking hot dress," Hunter called out during a break in the shooting sounds, but Xavier just yelled back, "Tell her I'll be done in an hour." Hunter's face went dark, and he grabbed his car keys off the counter. "You know what? Forget waiting around for him. I'm taking you to that anniversary dinner myself," he announced loud enough for Xavier to hear over his game. The gaming sounds cut off completely, and Xavier's door flew open so hard it hit the wall. "What did you just say?" Xavier demanded while still wearing his stupid gaming headset with the mic flipped up. Hunter walked over and put his hand on my back. "I said I'm taking Jules to dinner since you're too busy playing games to treat her right," Hunter replied calmly. Xavier's face went red and he ripped off his headset while his friends' confused voices asked where he went. His hair was sticking up and he had Mountain Dew stains on his 3-day-old hoodie. "She's my girlfriend, so back off, dickhead," Xavier shouted, but Hunter just laughed. "Really? Because you've been treating her like she doesn't exist," Hunter shot back while grabbing his jacket and keys. Xavier grabbed my arm desperately and started rattling off promises about how he'd skip next week's session and plan something special. "I'll delete Discord right now. I'll sell my gaming PC," he said frantically while his friends kept calling his name through the abandoned headset. He looked pathetic standing there in his boxers with Cheeto dust on his fingers. "You literally only care because someone else wants to treat me right," I said. Xavier's mouth opened and closed like he was buffering. I was already walking toward the door with Hunter beside me. "Jules, please don't do this," Xavier called out. Xavier tried to follow us to the door, but his computer started pinging with Discord notifications. I saw his head turn toward his room like a trained dog. "When did you realize your daughter was gonna go to jail?" "When I rushed into the ER carrying my bleeding grandbaby. I came home from the most important presentation of my career to find my 11-month-old granddaughter screaming and kicking on the living room floor all alone, with a large gash on her head from where she had hit the coffee table. And my daughter, the actual mother of the baby who had swore this time she'd stay and watch over her, nowhere to be found." I was shocked, furious, in desperate tears as I scooped her up and called for an ambulance. The nurses took her for a CT scan immediately while I filled out forms with shaking hands. "Is she going to be okay? Please tell me she's going to be okay," I begged. "Where did this happen?" the intake nurse asked coolly. I hesitated. "At home. She fell off the couch." "Are you the mother of the child?" I shook my head. "Grandmother." The nurse raised an eyebrow. "Where is the mother now?" I opened my mouth to speak, but I wasn't even sure how to answer her. I opened up Instagram from my phone and found her post from an hour ago, enjoying a nice smooch with a stranger at a music festival. "How long was the baby unsupervised?" the doctor asked when he came out. "Maybe a few hours." I kept calling my daughter, straight to voicemail every time. The hospital called the police in the meantime. A social worker approached me in the waiting room and called my daughter on her personal phone. "This isn't normal for her," I tried to explain. "She's young. She's still figuring things out." The social worker just stared at me expressionless. When my daughter picked up, she spoke bluntly. "Your baby is in the hospital, and that custody of yours is hanging on a thread. So show up. Bam. End call." The social worker pulled out her tablet. "Now, let's talk about what normal looks like. How often do you watch the baby?" "Well, at first it was just during classes. And now, I bit my lip. More often." She waited. "Yes, okay, every night. But I'm her mother, and I'm that baby's grandmother. You gotta understand, When was the last time your daughter spent a full 24 hours with her baby?" she interrupted, writing out a long list on her case file. When I couldn't answer, she scribbled even more on her clipboard. "Okay, and expenses? How do you guys split it? Formula, diapers, whatever. She pays for some toys, and you cover the rest, right? And her job?" I shook my head, frowning. "Ma'am, you understand that your daughter is clearly not providing and acting responsibly, correct? Unfortunately, things like this don't end well. For months, I knew that my daughter had been abusing my kindness. It's only temporary, Mom. Let me find a job first," she told me after deciding to raise the child on her own. But soon the babysitting job became more frequent and more unreasonable, leaving her daughter to me just to go party, meet different men, socialize. And now, my daughter arrived 2 hours later, intoxicated and furious. "You called the cops on me? I'm your daughter," she slurred. Not one question about the baby, not one glance at the bandage on her tiny head. I finally snapped. "She could have died. Look at her," I cried, pointing at my granddaughter hooked up to monitors. "Where were you? Where were you when she was bleeding on our floor?" She rolled her eyes. "Ugh, Mom, stop lecturing me. She's fine." "Fine? She has a concussion." "Well, you said you'd help me. My job is to be a kid and eventually find her a good father, so I don't see why you're complaining. I mean, you never found me a father." The nurses nearby gasped, even more shocked than I was to hear her say something so below the belt. "I'm your mother, and maybe I failed you by being too lenient, but that stops today." She actually laughed. "You can't just stop helping me. What are you gonna do, abandon your own grandchild? You're my mom. This is literally your job." I shook my head and nodded at the CPS in the room. "No, my job was to care for you, and you seem to be doing fine. Your job was to care for her, and you already failed in the first year. The social worker stepped forward and made it clear that based on all the evidence, my daughter had lost custody due to criminal neglect. Then to my surprise, she turned to me. You have two options. You can take emergency custody or the baby goes straight into foster care. I knew it would be hard. I had already raised a daughter alone, worked double shifts just to provide rent, took the bus because I couldn't afford both a car and milk for the month. I can do it. My daughter played her last card. If you take my baby, I'll never forgive you. I'll leave you forever. Let you grow old without any child to care for you. Ouch. That one stung, but it was too late. I had made my decision. I was already caring for her like my own child. The only thing this changes is the name on the papers. The social worker smiled and exchanged documents with me. I'll be checking in, she told me before placing my daughter in handcuffs. Mom, wait, are you serious? Mom, they're arresting me. She screamed out, more and more frantic as they dragged her out. I bit my tongue and looked away, heartbroken and ashamed. Before I could post her bail, my daughter's boyfriend paid for it. So she moved straight into his place and spent every waking hour sending me hurtful messages. But I didn't care. I failed with my daughter. This was my second chance. The priest suddenly stopped the wedding and asked, "Where is Susie?" The bride's name isn't Susie. My best friend Janice was literally mid-vow when Father Angelo raised his hand and said, "I'm sorry, but I need to ask something. Where is Susie?" Everyone in the church went dead silent because we all knew the bride's name wasn't Susie. The groom's face went white and Janice's voice cracked when she said, "Who's Susie?" I stood there as maid of honor, holding her bouquet, watching her eyes fill with tears just thinking her fiancé had another woman. An elderly woman in the back stood up and pointed directly at me. "That's her. That's Susie." The whole church turned to stare at me, including my best friend Janice, but I was just as confused as everyone was in the room. My mom rushed out of her pew and ran to the altar before the old woman could finish walking down the aisle. Mom grabbed my arm, trying to pull me away from the ceremony. "We need to leave, right now." Janice grabbed my other arm, crying. "Did you sleep with my fiancé?" Mom tugged my arm harder. The old woman reached the altar and slammed her cane down onto the marble floor with a bang. "Please let me speak to my granddaughter in peace, before it's too late." The entire congregation whispered with questions and rumors. My mom hissed, "Stay away from us," while everyone stared at her like she was crazy. The old woman ignored her, pulling out a travel-sized photo album. "This is your father holding you as a baby. This is you in my arms. This is our family." The kind-looking man in the photos looked exactly like me. Same eyes, same hair color, even same smile. My mom tried to grab them, screaming, "You have no right to do this here. This is a wedding. She deserves to know her father loved her, and that he left this world trying to find her." She yelled back in a voice so clearly in pain that it made the entire church go quiet. My grandmother's voice calmed. "Your mother took you away when you were just a toddler, changed her name, changed yours, but by some miracle I found you. Now we can be complete again." She held out her hand with a soft smile. "Please." I nearly grabbed it, until my mom burst out with a horrifying truth. "Took her away? Number. There was a restraining order against you." The church gasped, watching more drama slowly unfold. "Ask her why," my mom demanded confidently. I looked at my grandma, whose face now changed from sweet and sympathetic to something cold and judgmental. She kept her mouth shut. My mom laughed. "That's right. You can't say it, can you? Your grandmother drove your father to his last breath. She is the reason he's gone, and the reason I fled with you in my arms on the night before the funeral. You poisoned him against his own family," my grandmother screamed back, slamming her cane against the floor again, this time with shaking hands. "Even now you deny it." Right there at the altar, my mom announced the truth. My grandmother had refused to believe her son had bipolar disorder and needed medication. She kept telling him the doctors were wrong and gave him money to start over instead of getting treatment. She threw out his medication. Until one day, during a manic episode, he drove straight into a tree going 90. My grandmother sighed, head hanging low in defeat. "Fine. Believe what you want. One more week, and I'll be buried beside him." "What do you mean?" I asked, instantly regretting it. "I broke the restraining order because I need you, dear. I need a bone marrow donor within the week, and you're my only match." The church went completely silent. My mom laughed bitterly. "First you take her father, and now you want her bone marrow? That's just like you. You're only nice when you need something." She turned and looked at me. "Don't do it." I stood there at the altar, stuck between guilt over ruining my best friend's wedding and choosing between a mom who's lied to me my whole life and a grandmother who needed my bone marrow to live. I couldn't decide, so I ran.